write it and we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. That will go down in history, right? As one of the all-time hissy fit celebrity
It was one of the
moments.
first remixes too. Did you ever see the Bill O'Reilly remix, the dance remix? I was amazed by that with Bill O'Reilly, where he was going, they're going, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I don't know what that means to play us out. I'm like, how do you not know what it means to play us out?
So angry.
Yeah.
So angry.
Yeah, he's an angry man.
What we were talking before the podcast started about No.
You don't want to talk about
No,
it? I can't talk about that. That's insider information being at Fox for years. I can't. But bad stuff.
I'll let it go. But you can talk about Moby, though, right?
Yeah, we could talk about Moby.
Moby says he has inside information about Donald Trump, that he knows that Donald Trump talked to the Russians. First of all, when you look at Moby with his fucking hashtag vegan t-shirt on, do you really think anybody in the Russian fucking intelligence community is talking to Moby?
Actually, it would be a brilliant ploy from the Russians. They just give a little info to Moby, like, yes, you go, you tell them, and he's going to do it,
You should definitely leak this information.
Yes.
It will be the downfall.
Then they found out he wasn't Enya, and they'd made a mistake. My mom was the wardrobe stylist, so costume designer for a show called L'Écuyer. It's like the French-Canadian sort of Letterman, kind of like Graham Norton in England. So they'd have stars come in all the time, and Moby was there. He was just a head case. The guy was just absolutely out of his mind. Nothing was good enough, and he would want something and then say he wanted to change it.
What kind of things did he want to change?
I don't know. I can tell you this. There were only 2 people who made my mom come home crying. One was Brett Butler. And
Brett Butler from
Grace Under Fire.
Oh, well, she was all pilled out of her head.
Yeah,
Is this in the 90s?
Yeah,
when
she
was
did the Just for
crazy?
Laughs too. My mom, she was the wardrobe person. You might have even, if you did one of the galas. And
no, I never did the galas because they wanted me to work clean.
Did they put you on the Nasty Show?
Yes, I was always on the Nasty
They always
Show.
advertise
and
it
then
that
I was
way.
on
The
my own
Nasty
shows
Show.
after a while. I would do my own shows. But
Yeah.
the gala, they were always like, you have to be clean. I'm like, not interested.
Yeah.
Not interested in being clean for Canadian TV for no money. Thanks, though.
Well, the flip side is the Nasty Show. Just don't market it that way. Just make the show. Everyone come I'm going to the Nasty Show.
Yeah, but they liked it. They would go to see it, and it would be the way that the festival would sort of differentiate. I don't know. It's not the worst name for a show.
I guess it just seems like they're little kids in the schoolyard. He said a bad word. We know comedians. It's going to be a raw show.
Dirty people.
Yeah.
Nasty. Speaking of nasty, we are gentlemen today, and we have pipes.
Oh yeah,
because Crowder had a.
By the way, I don't think we said
pipes.
Crowder. By the way, I don't think we even mentioned.
No,
it.
I don't ever do that.
Do
we just start talking. Steven Crowder, who's from Louder with Crowder, is. Internet show, and he has a thing on his internet show where you have a little pipe. What would you call them?
Pipe rack.
Like a trolley. Would you call it a trolley?
Just a pipe rack.
Pipe rack. Okay. I wanted to come up with a better name.
You want to come up with a better name? So you went to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood right away. Trolley.
I saw it. I said, I always wanted to smoke a pipe, man. I just think they smell good.
Yeah.
It'd be a fun thing to do.
Smell that. That's actually from my brother out there. That's called seersucker.
So your brother's a serious pipe.
He knows more than I do. Yeah.
So isn't this a seersucker is a type of suit,
I
right?
know, but that's just what they call it.
Oh, so they call this
there are all kinds of weird names, Lane 1Q is really common.
It smells actually really good.
It smells really nice.
It's
and then
interesting.
You have English blends, which he smokes. We don't want to do that now. It's super heavy nicotine, but a lot of Kia. You get some Perique. It's very smoky, incensey, barbecuey. I have some Dunhill Nightcap, which it'll put you to sleep, though.
So how much do you put in the pipe?
So... Sorry, people are thinking, yes, no, here's the rule. So what you're going to do is put it up to the brim.
Up to the brim.
Just kind of the brim.
Pack it in there.
No, don't pack it in yet.
Oh, okay.
The general rule is when you tamp it down with your finger, the strength of a child. Then you fill it again, the strength of a woman. Then you fill it a third time with the strength of a man.
Okay.
So you fill it in 3. Yeah, just barely. Now a little more.
Strength of a woman. Well, what kind of a woman, man? Like a Chris Cyborg
No,
woman?
not like a cyborg. Let's not talk about that because that can go sideways in this show.
Okay, woman... It's already gone sideways.
I know.
The fact that I said her name. She's like Candyman.
I'm going to fight, Joe.
Then a man. What kind of a man? Like a Moby man or like me? I'm saying?
Well, Not Gay Jared just is arm wrestling Courtney, who's super CrossFit extraordinaire this week. Well, she's really strong. She can squat 265.
Whoa, that's a lot.
But I think he's going to smoke her in the arm wrestling. So
why do you think that?
Well, people can tune in and watch. I think because he's a man. So you tamp
sexist.
That. I am, yeah, right away. Well, she thinks he's going to win too.
Wow.
But the bet is
She's setting him
74.
up.
Yeah. So you tamp that down.
Tamp it. Okay.
What you want is to be a little springy.
Okay. I got a little springy there.
Yeah, a little springy.
Like running on moss, perhaps.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then I didn't have a lighter, so you got matches.
You got to follow in
I
there
do.
too.
So what you
man.
do is you light it once, and that's what we call the charring light. So what you're going to do is you're going to see that tobacco.
This is already turning me off.
I know.
It's too involved.
By the way, only tobacco
Fetishy.
in that pipe, or it'll ruin the briar. Let's just.
You mean if I put
disclosure.
weed in there, it'll fuck it up?
Well, you won't be able to taste the tobacco from there forward.
Yeah, because it'll taste like something better
So
than
around in a
tobacco.
circle. Yeah, around in a circle. And
Do I
puff
suck
it
on it
yeah,
while I do it?
Suck on it while you do it. Oh, gosh. And then you're going to see that tobacco kind of raise up. So puff it. Keep puffing on it. Yeah. And then you tamp it down one more time once it goes out. And then you light it again.
Okay.
So
This is super involved.
I know it is. It's not something you just kind of light and go, and it won't last long.
Hold
on the
up.
show.
Immediate head rush, by the way.
Really?
Oh,
by the way, don't
yeah.
inhale it. Just puff it.
Too late.
Well,
I'm a pot smoker, bro.
well,
I
you don't
inhale
want to
everything.
inhale that. There's no filter on that.
What are you, pussy?
Well, I'm saying that's like you'll get actual chunks of tobacco in your lungs. There's no filter. That's a big.
Maybe you will.
Well,
Not me, bro.
probably. You toss the matches over
Maybe
here.
you, bro.
But smell that though. Doesn't that smell nice?
I gotta stop inhaling it. Now, do I use a lighter? Can I use a lighter?
Yeah, you can, as long as it's not a jet lighter, because that'll damage the briar. So, like I said, it's not a.
I like it. I feel like a distinguished gentleman. Like, who's that?
Nigel Farage.
No, he's not that distinguished.
He's an asshole, but he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun to listen to him talk to people. I love when you guys had that thing when he.
Oh, the Thug Life.
Yeah, the Thug Life thing. That was hilarious. When Not Gay Jared came over and gave you a lap dance, and
I was the queen.
you guys were getting silly.
Yeah, we got word that Nigel liked that show. I don't know how true it is, but
Well, you guys are one of the very few. I mean, you're a conservative guy, but I would say you get a bad rap, dude. You really do. And
Yeah,
it's
I do.
one of the reasons why I like you, is because you're a pretty much fact-oriented guy when it comes to a lot of issues, political issues, social issues. You don't bullshit, and you don't like try to sway things toward one side or the other when it's not accurate. It's not factual.
I appreciate that. And by the way, these probably will go out. You have to relight it because it's just kind of an art. So
But I've had people talk to me about you, and they give me this bullshit take on you. And I'm like, no, he's a smart guy. I go, he's conservative. So, yeah, I know a lot of people that are liberal, too. And a lot of people that are in the middle. What, you can't talk to someone? Because
I appreciate that. And not to kiss ass, but people out there need to know that Joe has been incredibly fair and very kind behind the scenes. You have, because you have every reason not to. And I think a big reason of it, honestly, here's a good example, the Young Turks. And we've seen this transition with Trump, where people who were really afraid to speak out now, you're seeing that change online because the establishment has been Barack Obama. So kids who were raised for 8 years under Bush, man, I hate Bush, listen to NoFX, go to the Vans Warped Tour, whatever it is. And now they've been raised under Obama for 8 years, and all this political correctness has run amok, and they're rejecting that. So for the longest time, I had this small YouTube channel, and I was on Fox, so I was kind of muzzled a little bit because I was there, and there were certain things that I could say or couldn't say online because it was a
you were a
liability.
little youngish at the time as well.
I was
It
21.
hard to take you seriously.
Yeah, I was 21 years old.
Yeah, you little
Yeah.
fresh-faced little lad. How old are you now? You're not even that old now. How old are you now?
At 29.
Yeah, you're a young fella.
Well, and so what happened is they kind of had their interpretation from whatever the Young Turks said about me. Because when I had 50,000 subscribers, it was like their day job to go after me. And now, when I've had Alex Jones on, we've been doing proactive parodies of the Young Turks, calling them out, asking them to debate. They will trash talk every conservative not named Steven Crowder. It's like I'm Voldemort. My name won't be spoken. When I had 50,000 subscribers, they would talk about me all the time, and they had, 1 million or 2 million. Now that's changed, and people are able to come here directly.
I feel lonely that you're not smoking.
Sorry,
the
well,
pipe
give me
with
your lighter. The matches are getting annoying.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I'd like to think, but, there's also the real possibility that people just don't like me because, I'm kind of a dick.
Well, you can be a dick sometimes,
Yeah.
but you're a funny dick. Like, you do some funny shit. Like, one of the things that you did that was really funny was, what was that feminist rally thing that you went to?
Just,
and you dressed
was this
like,
the recent one where it was a tranny?
Yeah.
And I actually interviewed Wendy Davis.
I don't think you're supposed to say tranny, bro.
Yeah, I don't really. Well, see, that's why people don't like me sometimes. But I think now you're seeing more people say that. They don't care.
I think it's funny when they start making words taboo. I really do. Like, people said tranny forever, and then all of a sudden it's like disparaging. Like, okay.
I even noticed in the new Bill Burr special, he said like, what are you going to do? You fucking marry? I was like, he would have said fag 4 years ago. Because he did in his special. And he used the word marry, talking about like a sissy. I said, I'm like, that's not a word we ever heard him use before.
Oh, Bill uses that word.
Do they?
Yeah, that's a Boston word. Yeah, you fucking Mary. Yeah,
Is it?
people call guys Marys.
Well,
Maybe he's trying to be a little bit more politically correct. You know what I do? I use the word, but I do it in character.
because you
Yeah,
feel like if I
sneak it
said
in.
it and like if I say like faggot like that, well, I didn't say it. Nigel said it. That was not me.
I had this joke about tigers in Texas. Because I don't know if you know, this is a true story from my last Netflix special. There are more tigers in captivity in Texas than there are in all of the wild of the world. In private collections, in
Wow.
people's backyards, there are more tigers in Texas than the rest of the fucking planet Earth. That is a fact. That is a
Why?
real stat. Because they can have them.
Just a bunch of dentists who carried him back.
Just
in the
dudes.
pickup truck.
I know people that
Yeah.
know people that have tigers. I know people in Texas whose friends have tigers. You can have a tiger.
Are you aware, by the way, what's the biggest cat? You probably know this, but the biggest predatory cat. Do you know what it
Well,
is?
ligers, but they're not viable.
Oh.
They can't breed.
Well, I thought the lion at first.
No,
Siberian
tigers are
tiger
bigger, way
is so
bigger.
much bigger. I learned
Huge.
back in the Roman times in the Colosseum. This is what, and I can't entirely corroborate this. I will say this.
I
if
bet
don't
I
know.
can corroborate it when you do, because
So
I
they
got
would
balls
bring out
deep.
the lions, and they said the lions have to be on 3 points and can paw, whereas the Siberian tigers would leverage back and pounce.
Yeah.
Said it wasn't even close. Not to mention that the tigers are way bigger, but they were able to just go back on their 2 legs, whereas the lion has to have 3 points of contact, which is like a dog
get you.
giving the paw.
Right. Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like, well, that's something that's pretty incredible. Because you see a lion, I mean, you know, I saw the ghost in the darkness, and that's pretty scary.
Well,
but it's not even close.
The mountain lion will fuck you up, dude. Like just a small mountain lion, an 80-pound mountain lion
Yeah.
will fuck you up. But a Siberian tiger will fuck you up in ways you couldn't possibly imagine.
Well, I have a dog, Hopper, Doggo Argentino.
Oh, those are big dogs.
Well,
they're
you
quite,
can Google
quite
a video.
sketch, too.
They're not. They are not.
You gotta train them good, but they're sketch.
Well, he ran for president with Dean Cain, and he had like a few hundred votes, which I felt bad about because it was a gag. So who knows if that changed the state of Michigan. But by the way, if it starts going out, you put 2 fingers over, kind of create a slipstream, and suck it in, and it'll give you, probably not now, you probably need to relight it. It's not like a cigar. It's not good to talk and smoke a pipe. It's meant to be more contemplative. But
Bertrand Russell used to smoke a pipe.
did he?
I don't know if you knew that. He did it.
Why are you
back
doing
in
the voice?
day.
You need to say a
This
bad
is
word
how
with the voice
Bertrand
to-
Russell used to speak.
And he
uh,
was a tranny.
It was one of the things, like, he wanted to fly, and he would only fly if he could smoke on the plane because he was so addicted to tobacco that he had to constantly smoke. There he is. Look at him. Look at him. Such a distinguished gentleman.
Every time
Smoking a pipe.
Smoking a pipe.
That's how he would speak.
But it is very relaxing because it's kind of like jiu-jitsu. You said you've used the term moving meditation. Mm-hmm. When you're sitting down there outside at the end of the day, if you don't focus on it, it's going to go out. It's not like a cigar. It's not like a cigarette. So you have to sit there and focus on the draw, focus on the exhale, and all you're thinking about is the pipe. So it really is kind of a contemplative art.
No, you're getting fucked up on tobacco. Why are you lying, man? You're lying to people.
What were we talking about before that? We were talking
Tigers
about-
in Texas. There's more tigers in
okay. So
Texas.
Doggo Argentinos. If
You're a
you
little
run
more
a YouTube
scatterbrained
search,
than me, dude. You're going all over the
if
place.
you run a YouTube search on Doggo Argentino mountain lions, you will see Doggo Argentinos messing up actual mountain lions.
Yeah, you know why? Because the mountain lion wants to get away.
It's probably true.
The mountain lion doesn't want to fight to the death. The mountain lion is a predatory animal. Predatory animals don't necessarily fight to the death. It's one of the reasons why dogs are so fucking dangerous, because dogs are bred to not feel pain, not recognize pain. That's one of the things about pit bulls. They're not the biggest, strongest dogs,
Yeah.
but they're bred to ignore pain. And that drive to attack and ignore pain makes them very problematic.
Well, you just used the word problematic. Let's ban that word.
I love that word.
And you just ruined my anecdote.
Smoking a pipe.
But yeah, that's what they're bred for. They're actually really people oriented because they're bred to be protective of people and hunt with people. So they're not bred to fight dogs.
Right.
So a lot of actually people that's why we got Hopper. He's a rescue out in Michigan. A lot of guys in the inner cities bought them thinking this is like a bigger pit bull. They're going to be great dog fighters. They were horrible and they just got abandoned. So there's all kinds of doggos out there in Western Michigan. I don't know if there still are. I mean,
Wild doggos?
well, just our dog Hopper.
Oh, look how cute.
That looks very much like our dog
Look
Hopper.
a cute fella. They're so big. Such a big dog.
Well, ours is a little bit of a runt. He's about 90 pounds because we found him with a broken leg, roaming the streets, alopecia, Lyme disease.
Oh, so you rescued him right off the street?
Well, no, he was rescued into a lady who specialized in doggos, and then we took him from her.
Ah.
And he's the most people-oriented dog we've ever seen. I mean, to the point where the biggest problem you have is if you stop petting him and you don't know him, he'll growl for you to keep petting him. So kids are just like, okay. And they're terrified.
Well, that seems like a dicky dog.
Yeah, a little bit.
I
He's
have
needy.
a dog called a Regency Mastiff.
Oh, yeah. Those are no joke.
Yeah, it's a Neapolitan that's bred with a pit bull, so they're about 140 pounds. They're
good with the
more
kids?
athletes. He's great.
Yeah.
My kids ride him. Like, literally ride him. They get on top of him, and he'll just walk
Watch, you're
around
going
with
to
him.
get PETA on you for that now. They shouldn't be riding
Well,
dogs.
he's older now, poor fella. He's like 11. He's got some hip problems. He walks with a limp.
Well, thank you for having me back, even though part of your audience doesn't like it. But
Dude,
it's changed now.
Don't be defensive. Don't say that.
No, but
Don't worry about
have you
that.
noticed a change kind of in
How
the era
so?
of Trump? Well, culturally, I think there's I know this sounds like a broken record, but counterculture-wise, you have a lot of people who were afraid to even speak up, even from the last time I was on the show, where they've been called racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic as a new thing, where everyone's going, you know what? All right, fine, let's go with that. I think if you were to hold the election today, Donald Trump would win in a landslide. Wouldn't even be close. Just because
Really?
of, yeah, that's because of how bad the behavior has been from the left. The rest of America. I had my Uber driver coming here, and she believed every lie. Her name, she was a Latino woman.
Why ever talk to Uber drivers about politics? That always seems to end in a TMZ video.
That would explain why I have a 4.2 rating. So I'm right at the threshold of losing my Uber privileges.
Are you serious? So, like, you get a rating as a customer?
Yeah, you get a rating as a customer.
What's a good rating? A 10? You have a 4.2?
No, it's 5. It's out of 5.
Oh, that's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad. But if you go
4.2
under
out of
4,
5?
you're out.
No.
Yeah, you're out.
So you go, like, someone could find you right now. Uber drivers could, like, unite
Yeah.
and blackball you.
They could. Well, my friend, I can't say his name because it's illegal. Actually, had his concealed carry with him in an Uber, and he forgot his magazine, and that person rated him like a 1. So it took one bad rating to drop his score because he had to call them and say, "Hey, I think I forgot something in the back of your car." And they're like, "Well, what is it?" Like a magazine. He's like, "Oh, like a People magazine." Or she's like, "No, just look." And the guy was just on the phone with him saying, "What did you do in my car?" And he just said, "I was going to the range." He wasn't. He carries a gun on him everywhere he goes. But this lady, Uber, L.A., she decided to start talking about it, talking about the Women's March and stuff. So it's hard for me to say nothing. But we ended up on very good terms. But
This is a different story. This is not the magazine.
this is not the magazine story. And she...
Are you on drugs right now? Any speed or anything?
I don't do drugs.
You're very quick. Everything's
Sorry.
going quick.
Well,
Are you
once we
hyped
settle
up?
into the show, I'm not... Well, I had
You
that
hyped up?
nitro coffee.
Oh, okay,
And I
okay.
came from Coffee Bean Tea Leaf, where I'd already had...
That is 270 milligrams caffeine.
So I've probably got about 500-600 milligrams.
Yeah,
in me.
that's like 2 grande Starbucks coffees. Seriously.
Well, I think we've
Isn't it?
gotten to the middle of that
Like a
mystery.
Venti's 200. Yeah, it's closing in on 2 grandes.
But she said, she's like, well, Donald Trump called all Mexicans rapists. I said, no. She goes, Donald Trump is going to ruin gay rights.
Why
So
are you
she-
arguing with people?
Well, because it's just in my nature. And I said, well, why? She goes, because Donald Trump removed the gay rights thing on the website. I said, what about the fact that all presidents, they remove everything from the previous administration? And they put up a whole new WhiteHouse.gov website. And these people, they buy, in LA, they're in such an insular bubble. I don't think they realize that there's a whole bunch of people who voted for Donald Trump. And I wasn't a fan of him in the primaries, but they didn't vote for him because they're racist. They didn't vote for him because they don't want Caitlyn Jenner to take a dump at Trump Towers. They didn't vote for him because they hate brown people. They voted for him because they're tired of being called all those things. And that's why I think you see a lot of these young people who just kind of want to be instigators and provocateurs. But at the same time, they're appreciating more traditionalism and some of the values their parents tried to instill in them because that's kind of more rebellious than going along with the entertainment industry.
Well, there's always this sort of longing for nostalgia that people exhibit. There's always like, back in the good old days. Like, back in the good old days is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because the good old days, you died of syphilis. In the good old days, people got fucking plague from rats.
Right.
Like, there's no good old days. This is the good old days right now. So there's always that, right? There's
Yeah.
always this longing for nostalgia. But I think you're right with some people. But for sure, there's some people that are racist that voted for Donald Trump just because some people are racist.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. But to try and paint, I mean, if you look at the numbers, a huge percentage of people who voted for Barack Obama had to have voted for Donald Trump, particularly in Michigan and Pennsylvania. There just aren't the numbers there.
Well, don't you think that they probably voted for him? A lot of it is for economic reasons because they thought that he's going to loosen up some regulations, encourage industry.
I think it's the opposite. I think
Really?
a lot of the union voters, they thought Hillary Clinton was in the pocket of Goldman Sachs,
Right.
and they thought Donald Trump, with his sort of economic protectionism, is going to bring jobs back to the Midwest. Which that's
right,
one of the
like encourage industry.
But that's one of the things I
American
disagree with him on.
manufacturing.
I disagree with the idea of, for example, I've been in Michigan. The unions have a stranglehold. I would rather GM be able to move to Texas or anywhere they want to be competitive in the car market. But I can't even get to that because as soon as I'm going, well, hold on, Donald Trump made a mistake here. I disagree with him because then there's a women's march where they're lighting hair on fire and calling him literally Hitler.
They're
And so
lighting hair on fire? What do you mean?
at the women's march, girl got her hair lit on fire.
A girl?
Yeah, by someone with one of those pussy
Yeah,
hats.
see, you know what, man? The thing about that stuff is it's always one fucking person or a couple people out of hundreds of thousands that are acting in that mob mentality and doing
Incorrect.
violent shit.
Incorrect.
Oh, come on, man. There's not that many people that do violent shit at those women's marches.
Every
That's why
single-
there was no arrests.
No, well, there were no arrests at the Lansing protest either, where they cut down a tent with box cutters. There were.
What's the Lansing protest?
when it went right to work? That was a big thing where I was there. But even the inauguration protest.
Was that the one you got punched?
Yeah, I did get punched.
Yeah.
So that wasn't
That
fun.
was hilarious. That guy couldn't punch.
I know, but when you're not expecting it.
Why throw a punch when you don't know how to punch? Like, come on, fella.
Well, think about everywhere leftists gather, though. Whether it's Woodstock back then, Woodstock '99,
Woodstock
Occupy
back
Wall
then
Street.
was violent?
Yes.
No, it was
there were so many
acid-taking
rapes.
hippies.
There were so many rapes.
How do you know? Were you there?
There are reports of rapes that occurred.
Were they rapes or were they like...
I think back then they were rapes. Back then, Elena Dunham wasn't, shoving fast food napkins in her sister's cooch, claiming she was raped because she saw the condom in a potted plant. So
What?
Elena Dunham, she claimed she was raped because she saw the condom on a plant after she was drunk on muscle relaxers. I feel like we always go back to Elena Dunham.
Yeah, I didn't know about that story. I knew that there was some sort of a gross interaction with her younger sister.
Yeah,
right?
she was reaching in her vagina. But the point is, anywhere leftists gather, there is always violence.
Don't you
There's
think
almost
that's a
always-
giant exageration? I mean, when the Women's
Well,
March
look
in
at the
LA had
inauguration.
no violence, there was no arrest, there was no nothing.
Well, hold on a second. You say there was no violence, but people said there was no violence at all of these other marches, right?
But I
Where
have a
girls'
bunch
hair
of
was lit on
friends
fire.
that went. But like, again, it's like isolated incidences.
Well,
don't
no,
you think?
not. But when you have to look at a trend, right? I'm not saying
Trend.
everyone.
If,
Not saying
okay, but
everyone.
if you've got 1 million people in LA, 1 million people march.
Right.
It's 970,000 people.
Okay, but you have way more than that with the Tea Party, which was accused of being racist. Not one.
Wait a minute. There was
incident-
never way more than that.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
no.
Oh, yeah.
You never had a march in LA that had more people than
No,
970,000.
more people across the
for
country
the Tea Party.
with the first Tea. Yeah, more people across the country with
No,
the Tea Party.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Not a march
So the day of
in
the
pussy
Women's
hats.
March, when there were hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah.
all over the country marching together in one day,
Yeah.
there was never a movement like that for the Tea Party.
Yes, there was.
A day where the Tea Party had
the
more.
one day
A
was Glenn
a
Beck
day?
400,000 in Washington D.C.
Okay, that's less than was in L.A.
Right.
for the Women's March.
But across the country, because there were so many, like in Dallas, there were 4 or 5 different ones across Dallas. You had them
In the same
downtown and
day?
in the same day.
Come on.
Yeah, in the same day. Now, not in
How
one
many
city.
different
I'll give you
cities?
that.
How many different
But
cities
here's the
had
thing.
had a march like that?
Oh, for the Tea Party?
Yeah.
They were in hundreds of cities.
Hundreds of cities simultaneously
Yes.
in one day, and it was bigger than the Women's March.
Certainly comparable.
Well, the comparable does
here's
not
the thing.
mean
Well,
bigger.
certainly comparable. Not a single incident, and they left the places cleaner than they found them. You look at
Aw,
Occupy Wall Street,
that's sweet.
over 500 crimes, including felonies. You look at the Women's March. Let's disregard the crime. People up there with pussy hats, bringing their 2-year-old with the most profane, disgusting signs you can imagine. When leftists congregate, it's generally not a peaceful assembly, not in the same way as when people who are right-wing congregate. Look at Berkeley. Jake Shields, a vegan from Berkeley, is becoming
He's a
conservative.
vegetarian.
Sorry, vegetarian from Berkeley is becoming conservative because of he just said this was the rule, not the exception in Berkeley.
Well, I know Jake. He's a buddy of mine, and essentially he was saying that these people that were doing what they're claiming they're fighting fascists. He's like, you're being a fascist. Do you understand what a fascist means?
Right.
Using violence to enforce your ideology, and
Yeah.
you're tolerating no deviations from that ideology. That is being a fascist.
Yeah.
This pipe smoke, it blows, bro. It takes
Well,
too
you have
much
to do it on
effort.
your own.
It takes too much effort.
But well, we had him on the show, and he was saying like, it's changed. Where the left, we need to call this out, and we need to take ownership over this, and we need to squash it because it's becoming a real problem.
It's also a problem when you say the left or the right, because it's not necessarily just the left. It's these fucking idiots that go to these things and put masks on and want to beat people up and mace women. I saw that girl with a make Bitcoin great again hat. She had a joke hat, and someone hit her over the head with a stick.
Yeah.
That was holding up a sign, and then another guy maced her in the face. I mean, and they think that they can do
at
that
inauguration,
kind of shit.
you had people getting pulled out of cars, getting punched. You know, Occupy Wall Street, you had people putting bloody rags on tents that they claimed had AIDS. I mean, anywhere, again, just go back through history in the last decade, it's very different. And not saying all left, right? You have to speak in generalities to save time. But as a general rule, if you look at the right, if you look at, for example, the Tea Party, you look at the movement, people who were complaining about the stimulus package, you look at people who had economic problems with Barack Obama. They didn't riot. They didn't beat people up in record numbers. There was not a single trash can lit on fire thrown through a window. That seems to be a common occurrence at these leftist protests.
Well, it is now.
It is now.
It certainly is now.
Because they're out of power.
Well, it's also these people feel like what Donald Trump represents is the worst possible scenario for the right. They feel like he represents this like really arrogant businessman who promotes rape culture and grabbing pussies, and that's how they're looking at it.
Right.
So they're like, it's time to act. Like there was some woman who was on Fox News the other day. Who's the one, that dude Tucker
Carlson?
Yeah, is he a Fox News guy?
He
is, right?
is. He used to be CNN on Crossfire.
Right, and he had some woman on, and she was talking about
little Asian.
Yeah. And she's a fucking school teacher, and she's talking about beating people up, and I was like, this is crazy. Like she's talking about. She called Milo Yiannopoulos, who's a gay Jew, by the way. She called him homophobic,
right. And prefers black men.
Yeah, I mean, but how do you call a gay guy homophobic?
Everyone's a Nazi now. I mean, I was not for Trump in the primaries, so I get called a cuck, right? And I was like, well, listen, he's the most liberal Republican ever. People don't want to talk about. He's the only.
He was
president.
a Democrat most of his life.
Well, he's the only president to ever take office being pro-gay marriage when he was sworn in. Barack Obama can't even claim that. Donald Trump is the first person.
That's something that people need to recognize about Hillary Clinton. She was anti-gay marriage as recently as 2013. She was speaking in 2013, and she said, "I believe that marriage is a bond between a man and a woman." In 2013.
And she was making arguments too. It wasn't like she was put on the spot and, well, I think she was out there arguing against same-sex marriage. So, my point here is, they're out of power. And so they declare everyone a Nazi. They declare me a Nazi. They'll declare Milo a Nazi. And so if you say, hey, it's okay to punch Nazis in the face. If Hitler walked in here, you'd probably have a tussle with Adolf Hitler. But it's acceptable if you make me, or even you, or Milo, equivalent to Hitler. And that's what they're doing now. And that's the point that I'm making, is I think because they behaved so poorly, more Americans would vote screw you with the lever and vote for Donald Trump now than they did on November 8th. I believe
that's highly speculative.
It is highly
speculative, Crowder.
Hence the pipe. We can speculate and ponder.
Highly speculative. Not sure if I buy it. Maybe.
Well, let me
but
present.
Then people are also freaking out. They're freaking out about his appointment of a Goldman Sachs executive. They're freaking out over what's happening with that Flynn fellow who was forced to resign because he was coordinating with Russia and talking about removing sanctions before they got into office and all that stuff.
Well, that was a screw up. But and I'm not here to defend Donald Trump.
You call it a screw up. We call it treason in my country.
They give him a pipe. He's a whole new man. It is delicious, though, isn't it?
It's good.
It really is good.
I'm high as fuck right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What happens if he hits some marijuana after this? Probably takes it to the next level. But yeah, the nicotine gets you high as fuck, man.
That's pretty low in nicotine, though, and aromatic like that.
Yeah, but I'm a rookie.
Are you?
I don't smoke any. I
occasionally
cigars. Smoke a cigar. Yeah. But it's pretty occasional. Like maybe once a month, I'll puff a cigar.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You can keep that one. That one's already broken in.
I can keep this pipe?
Yeah, because there's a real break-in process with a pipe. It's actually, you have to smoke it really slow when you first get it because the briar expands. So, I know.
Pure faggotry.
You just said it in a different voice. Pure faggotry and tranidom. I don't know if that's a word, tranidom.
Yes.
It's okay if you say it in a different voice. Let me present this, okay? You take someone like a Bernie Sanders.
You son of a bitch.
Well,
I just want you to relax.
Right,
Can I get you a drink? Do you drink?
Yeah, I drink.
You drink? Wait, get this man some whiskey. Let's get some whiskey up in here. We need to.
I'll take a beer if you have a cold beer.
This podcast is very. We need drink, real booze.
What do you want to talk about?
I just want to relax a little.
Okay.
I want you to be a human. I don't want all these talking points.
These aren't talking points.
You're fired up to fucking defend the right and promote your agenda.
Well, just because I know you said people they think you're an asshole because you're right wing.
I don't care what they think. People think I'm a fucking meathead. Well, I'm right. I am, in a way. Very meathead-like.
Just because you're strong?
No, well, I eat meat. I'm a cage fighting commentator. I look like a meathead. There's a lot of meathead qualities that I possess, although
I
I'm
guess
a
I wouldn't
kind
think of you as
person who's
You
very
are.
open-minded and probably more left than I am right, if you looked at a giant spectrum.
I don't think so.
No?
No, not anymore. I just think it's such a narrow path on the left. They're so unaccepting of people. That's why you've seen all this backlash.
Well, I'm very accepting in that way. I mean, I'm very accepting even of ridiculous ideas. I want you to talk about them.
Yeah.
I just think one of the real problems that I have right now with all these protesters and all these people that are going crazy and calling everybody Nazis is you're stifling communication.
Yeah.
And you're stifling the marketplace of free ideas. I want real booze, bro. Get out some whiskey. What's that? Good. Even better. Make it hurt. Bring out some whiskey. Bring out that Alex Jones whiskey. The stuff that makes you talk about interdimensional child molesters.
Actually, he stopped talking about Pizzagate. Remember? That was a big controversy.
Oh, he didn't when I had him on here.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He
I know.
went deep.
Well, Eddie was probably instigating with
Oh,
that.
Eddie was out of his fucking mind drunk. He doesn't know what he did.
I remember you asked me, like, what do you think about this Pizzagate thing? I'm like, I don't think
Here
it's
we
true.
go. It may not be true, but what do you think about what Breitbart was saying, like way back in 2011 about Podesta? That Podesta like shields
I'm good with a beer.
pedophiles
If you-
and come on, don't be a pussy. I'm
at
good
this.
with a beer.
I'm good with a beer. I have to go to the
Have a
airport.
little-
I don't have a
Yeah,
whiskey.
you gotta
that's
go to
fine.
the airport. You can't
Well,
be
it's
drunk at the
Gentleman
airport
Jack. You
where
fell
everybody gets
victim to
drunk.
marketing.
I didn't. He gave it to me for free. Fuck off.
Gentleman
Cheers.
Jack gave it to you for
Cheers.
free?
Jack Daniels did.
No.
They know I enjoy Jack Daniels.
I've actually never had Gentleman Jack.
I have now.
Well, because you asked me about it, and the first thing where my antenna went up with Pizzagate is they said James Alefantis means I love kids in French. And I know where they're trying to get it from. It's J'aime les enfants. That's not James Alefantis. So right away, when it's the first premise that I read is a lie, I'm going, all right.
Well, there was a bunch of weird ones, but there was some stuff that was like really odd. Like the pizza place that had that symbol that is the international fucking symbol for pedophilia and child molesting.
And Beyonce's in the Illuminati. I
But
mean, what
no,
can we
that
say?
is a symbol that the FBI admits that they use in these secret organizations when they capture pedophiles, which they do all the time.
Yeah.
They use that symbol. I mean, they agree upon that symbol. There's a lot of weirdness to it. And here's the thing.
It could be.
This is my take on it, and I don't have a side, and I'm not claiming that I have any knowledge, but there absolutely are pedophile rings. They exist. They've caught them before. They've busted them before. Like Jerry Sandusky's kid just got busted.
I know.
Yesterday.
That
right?
was the beauty of Michael Jackson. The guy was so clever about it. Think about it. He screwed every kid in Hollywood except Macaulay Culkin. So
How
he's
do you know?
he's that canary in the coal mine. Macaulay Culkin said, no, I go to Neverland Ranch. He never touched me.
Yeah, that's what I would
so
say,
all
too.
the other kids are coming back. They still swear up and
That's
down.
what I would say. It's like if you went to a bachelor party and everybody got their dick sucked, and your wife said, "Hey, what the fuck?" Bobby says he got his dick sucked. Not me. I don't know. I mean, maybe she just didn't like me.
Yeah, but Macaulay Culkin has no reason to say that now.
Yes, he does.
Really?
Yeah, nobody wants to know that you got molested by Michael Jackson. You'll never get a girlfriend again.
Yeah, and
She'll
we get one hell of a book deal.
Come on, she'll be about to go down on you, and she'll think, "Oh my God, Michael Jackson sucked this dick." Oof. Right? Don't you think you'll get one
don't
hell
know.
of a book deal?
Well, you know,
Oh, like-
Andrew Breitbart, actually, not Breitbart, the trademark. Andrew Breitbart, the name is, I mean, he was actually the guy who got my start. And he wrote about that, Neverland Ranch, his photographer was a pornographer who specialized in European actors who looked underage. And so once he talked about this, the guy was fired from Neverland Ranch. I think it was 6 months later he was back. So my point with like the Pizzagate stuff is there are things that are provable like that, which people can go search Andrew Breitbart and find that story. And because people are cocked and loaded to hate someone from the right online,
cocked.
well, you really do go into a different voice with nasty words.
That was my Beavis and Butthead voice.
Because of that, I'd rather dwell on stories that we know we can prove or commentary because it's really easy to go, Crowder was wrong with Pizzagate or whatever it is. So there's so much there that's
right.
real. That's where I focus.
That's my issue with Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Alex Jones goes super deep. And I did not know before I had him that he was a Sandy Hook denier. And I saw that and
It's pretty rough.
It hurt my soul. It really did.
Yeah, he's been his son is a fan. He's been really, really good to me and coming on the show. He's done the Young Turks sketches with us. I think he's doing less of the conspiracy stuff now, it seems
Alex?
like. Less now.
Get him drunk.
Get him drunk.
Get him drunk and watch it come out.
Well, doesn't surprise me.
Alex has been my friend for a long time. He's 84% crazy. But he's like, it's one of those things where if you chase down, there's enough corruption and enough crazy shit in the world that if you chase it down, you're gonna find it.
Right.
It's there, but you got to be careful what you call corruption and what you call conspiracies.
Right.
Because there are a fuck ton of them that he's missing the mark, like the Sandy Hook thing. I mean the Sandy Hook thing is so fucked. There was a great article that was written about a guy who was a conspiracy theorist until his kid was killed at Sandy Hook.
Right.
And then realized, like, holy shit, like, these people are telling me that my kid didn't die.
Well,
And then he realized how dangerous this whole thinking that the government's spraying shit in the sky from mind control and the CIA is a mind control organization. And
Right.
I've been told that I'm in the fucking CIA.
Oh, yeah, there are people think I'm in the Illuminati.
How do we get in?
I think they
Do you
meet on
think-
Tuesdays.
Do you think you could get in, or are you young? Are you too old? Are you too young, rather?
I have no idea. I think you just need to have the all-seeing eye in one of your music videos, and you're in like Flint.
That is it? You just got to go like
I
this,
think they
like
have
Jay-Z?
I think they're.
Is Jay-Z doing diamonds? He's saying I like diamonds, or is he like doing Illuminati?
Well, I didn't realize diamond is also like a black term for a lady's nether regions.
Really?
I found that in Risque's song "Smell Yo Dick." You ever hear that song on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah. Let me
I wasn't even
smell
feeling
your
a diamond like
dick.
that. I was wild and I wasn't clown like that. He says diamond like that. And I was
I
like, what is
wasn't
this?
feeling
Her
a
diamond like that.
Like that.
I've heard of white people who are out of touch with black culture.
That's
but
me.
that was ridiculous.
Welcome to me.
I didn't know.
I have to tune to Jamie because Jamie's on Black Twitter every day. Jamie keeps he's at a
oh,
tweet
the
deck.
close down of Vine must have been rough for you.
Jamie's got tweet deck and he sets up one hashtag Black Twitter and it's just all black.
So just butts.
It's all just Black Twitter references, and he tells me that like people steal from Black Twitter and they make jokes on late night TV because.
Yeah, it's
You
a
know.
subculture.
Yeah, Black Twitter, they say funny shit, and then people steal it. Is that true, Jamie? Is that what you said?
That's what I heard. That's the rumor.
That is what he heard.
I've heard that too. When did women, but speaking of which, like black is a subculture, right? We talk about minority groups.
I think you need another drink. Is
Women
there more whiskey out there?
are
You didn't even
considered-
finish that.
No, I didn't finish
Come
it.
on, pussy.
By the way,
Come on. And I'm not, that doesn't work on me. Yeah, see, you are in the Illuminati. You're trying
Feeling
to do the mind
diamond
control.
like that?
See?
Diamond's a stripper.
Oh. So I was wrong all this time.
Fuck this whole thing up, dude. See, you're spreading
Well, how am I
disinformation.
supposed to know Diamond's
Smell
a stripper?
my dick.
Hold on
Wait
a
a
second.
minute. Hold
No,
up.
no, no.
See, that's not how a bitch get her eye swole up.
That's just lazy
That's how
songwriting.
a bitch get her eye swole up.
Yeah.
He's promoting violence against women
Oh, he
because
beats the
she
hell
wants
out
to
of her.
smell his dick.
She beats the hell out of her. But that's
He
lazy
beats the hell out of
songwriting.
her.
That's not my fault. That's not my
Lazy
fault.
songwriting.
They didn't even introduce the character Diamond beforehand. How am I supposed to know? We can't know. That's not a racism thing. That's a
Right.
bad songwriting.
Okay, if he said, I ain't even feeling Mercedes like that, would you assume? Okay, Mercedes is probably a stripper. Lexus
Probably.
to the main stage.
Probably. But I didn't read the lyrics, so I didn't see a capital on Diamond. I can't know this. I was trying to be understanding of another culture. And it backfired. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Why doesn't he just wash his dick?
Like when you go to the Crab Shack, they have that automatic hand cleaner.
Doesn't he have hand sanitizer he keeps in his fucking Benz? Just
Spray thieves essential oil like my wife
just
does.
wash your dick, bro, you dirty bitch. Coming home with a dirty dick. Jesus, that's like
Or
worse
don't-
than adultery. It's
don't
just
cheat on
keeping
your
a
wife as a
dirty
start.
dick. That's not his wife for sure. First of all, the guy's
Risque?
definitely not married. This is not a marriage we're talking about. This is not
Probably.
some. Oh, look at this, more booze. Bring it out, both. Bring them both out. This guy needs to get drunk. He talks too much shit.
Tell me what you want to talk about.
Everything.
Okay.
Life. Generalities.
Okay, let's say this. Generalities. I've never been as mad as I was watching that Holly Holm fight.
Why?
watching
oh,
the fight.
because of the.
Well, here's what I think. I think if you hit someone after the bell and it's really clear, it should be an immediate point deduction, and they should be given time to recover more than a minute. That's just an opinion.
I
But when
agree
it's twice,
with you.
when it's twice,
I agree with you, but here's why I disagree with you. I'm even more extreme. I think that hitting someone after the bell is grounds for a disqualification.
Yeah.
Because you know, bam,
hands go down, your whole mindset changes. You're not expecting it.
She definitely heard the bell. The guy was stepping in. She threw the shots. It's grounds for disqualification. I fought. it's been a long time, but I did, and I heard bells, and I didn't hit anybody afterwards. You know what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
You know what it is.
Well, if you do the point deduction, Holly wins that fight or a draw for sure.
Jermaine Duran to me is fucking awesome. She's an awesome fighter. I mean, she's a 46-0, 10-time world Muay Thai champion, and for that to happen with her, it upsets me in 2 ways. One, it upsets me because Holly got fouled, and 2, it upsets me because she's a great fighter.
Right.
For her to do something like that, I was like, why did you do that? Don't do that.
Yeah.
And she rocked Holly. The problem is when you rock someone, who knows how much that affects them for the rest of the fight.
Right.
I mean, Holly is so badass. She not only came back from that, she came back from that, wound up head kicking Jermaine,
Right.
dropping her, and then rocking her.
That
in
short
the,
little hook that she
Yeah.
threw it looked like
Straight
an elbow at
left.
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a straight left? I thought it was like a hook
When
coming
Holly
in.
rocked her, it was a straight
It was
left.
a straight left as she was coming in, so it was just really short then.
Perfect shot.
Yeah.
Running. Holly-
She's an incredible striker.
She's so badass. And that question mark kick that she hit her with over the top of the shoulder, drops down and hits her in the head.
Isn't it funny though that she doesn't fight like a boxer in the octagon at all? She fights much more like an American kickboxer.
Well, because she was also an American kickboxer, and
Yeah.
she's also trained by Mike Winklejohn, who's
Right.
like one of the best American kickboxers from his era.
Yeah.
He was world class in his time. He's really good. I mean, he fought Rick Rufus.
Right.
He fought some really good guys. He's a great striking coach, man.
Well, very similar to when I'm in Dallas, Guy Metzger. Very similar style to that kind of stand-up
Yeah.
kick. Not as much head movement.
Yeah, Guy Metzger's a good friend of mine. I love that guy.
He's really just an awesome guy. I won't get into personal stories, but he's done
kind
some
of
really
weird
nice
shit?
things.
Making out?
No,
You guys
does
make
some
out?
really nice things for people. I mean, he's the exact example of when people say fighters are meatheads. He's just a really kind-hearted guy.
Well, he's definitely not a meathead. I'm more of a meathead than him for sure. He's not just a kind-hearted guy. He's very intelligent,
Yeah.
soft-spoken. You never hear Guy Metzger yelling at people, and he's also, he's worked really hard to mitigate some of his brain trauma and been
Yeah.
really open about it, which
Yep.
I think is very, very, very important because it's like this silent thing that guys don't want to talk about the issues that they're dealing with from fighting.
Yeah. Well, he also, did you ever hear the story about when he got into the fight in a parking lot? It was like a bunch of guys who jumped him. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, well, how long? This wasn't that long ago.
No, you're probably thinking of the one where the guy had a knife and actually stabbed him in the
Yes.
hand because he got in between an altercation between a
Right.
woman and you just don't do that when a
Just
woman
don't
and a
go
guy are
out.
fighting.
Stay home.
No, this was something. Maybe he may not want me to tell the story, but it was in a parking lot. Something happened. I don't know how it started, but what happened was there were 3 or 4 guys, and all he did was he grabbed one guy, just got him to the ground somehow, and put him in a chokehold. And he told his friend, he said, "If you come forward, I'm going to choke your friend out." And they just got back into their RAV4, closed the doors. He let the guy go. They were gone.
That's a really nice person. Most
I mean,
people would have
'cause
just
Guy
choked
Metzger
that
could've-
guy out.
Well, he's a striker. He could have really hurt him.
Yeah.
That's kind of the beauty of grappling. You can hurt them or not as much as you want to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Guy Metzger is a very high-level striker. I mean, he's not known as a grappler. So that's, I think.
well, he's a grappler too. He choked out Tito Ortiz in
That's true.
one of his first UFCs.
He just won Worlds at Brown in the senior division.
Did he really?
Yeah, in the gi.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's still competing and doing that stuff. He's a pretty awesome guy.
That's a nice thing for people that don't want to strike anymore. I know Babalu Sabral, he's been doing a lot of grappling competitions and stuff.
Yeah.
Guys that just have like taken a lot of head trauma, a lot of crazy fights, long careers.
Yeah.
They still like to compete. They can do that. And, and Babalu has, I think it's Babalu's Iron Gym, I think that is what he calls it. And he's got a really nice high-level gym down in
Yeah.
Orange County. And,
That's an explanation. Every time parents taking their kids for lessons, they walk in and see Babalu.
He's
like,
a great
he's a great
teacher.
guy, but they have to do that kind of. All right, let me.
Well, you
let
see
me
the
quote your
tattoos up
first-
his neck? Yeah.
Yeah, parents are going to be a little apprehensive.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy, and he's a real pioneer. Babalu was in the early days of fighting. There's a fight with him and Brad Kohler. It's one of the fucking scariest knockouts ever because it was back when you could soccer kick on the ground.
Yep.
And he dropped Brad Kohler because Babalu was one of the first Brazilian wrestlers, which a lot of people don't know. I mean, he was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and very good striker and all those things, but
Yeah.
he also was on the Brazilian national wrestling team back in the day.
Yeah.
And so Brad Kohler, who's like this really beefed up, fucking just jacked dude, couldn't touch him on the feet, and Babalu eventually got him tired out. And when he dropped him, got him down to the ground, he fucking soccer kicked him into oblivion. And it was just those days when you could soccer kick someone who was already tired and down.
Yeah.
Those are dark
But
days.
to put it into context, the Brazilian national wrestling team, They'd be like benchers to Oklahoma State wrestlers. It's just not even the same level.
Maybe, but a high-level wrestler's a high-level wrestler.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's like Sarah McMahon. You know, she was silver at the Olympics. And I remember when people said she was going to beat Ronda with the wrestling. I'm like, well, hold on a second. The talent pool in women's wrestling is nowhere near where it is at judo at that point. I mean, you just have women in Japan in judo who are animals. Kayla Harrison, too, if you've been following her. She was actually one of the first guests on our show. She's just a monster.
Yeah.
You know, there's no one in female wrestling, no one who would even come close to her level of experience with the
And the
monster she
same
goes
could
against.
be said about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which isn't in the Olympics yet, but really should be, is there's some phenomenal, like, have you seen Mackenzie Dern? Have you seen her compete in MMA?
I haven't seen it. Well, yeah, I saw
She has
highlights.
one of the most badass chokeouts that I've ever seen in my life. She started with an omoplata, worked her way to this girl's back. She's got this move that she does where she gets a girl in an omoplata and she rolls over onto her back and chokes this chick out. And apparently, she hits this move all the time.
Well, they teach something similar to that at Marcelo Garcia School in New York, where if ever someone's turtling, you wedge your knee into their ribs and their hip crease, and you kind of get around. It's not quite an omoplata, but you're bringing your other leg around their front, and you're wrapping and you're blocking. If let's say you're coming in from your right side, you block their left arm, which is something we actually would learn in judo quite a bit. A really basic back.
So you block it by taking an underhook.
Yeah,
and
so
then
you're putting a knee in and you're
Okay.
grabbing wrist control around. So you're not putting a hook in. And when you control this, the way they taught it to me, like if you watch Marcelo Garcia, they'll just go for the choke straight from there. They don't even need to get their hooks in.
Right.
And, you know, then you have Clark Gracie who does the omoplata roll to the lapel choke. I mean, it really is. Omoplatas, I don't think there's been a submission from that in a long time. But
Well, there's only
it's a great
one
setup.
ever in the UFC history. It was
Is
Ben
this-
Saunders. This
Yeah.
is Mackenzie Dern. Watch how she does this. And
Oh,
what
okay,
the
from the
thing
bottom.
is also is that she's hot as fuck. And so she gets the omoplata. The girl tries to roll. Now watch how she handles this. When she gets her from this position. Oh no, you got to go back. You got to go back.
See, I shouldn't even have her hooks in
It's
this.
a
What I'm
highlight
talking
video
about.
cut
Oh, it's just a
itself.
highlight video. Oh, so she doesn't need the hook.
No.
What she does is she rolls, and you don't see it from that position.
Well, that's a lot like a no-gi version of Clark Gracie's omoplata lapel choke.
Let me see if they show it here. What she does is she gets up, and when she gets up on her hip, the girl rolls, and then watch how she scrambles. Now she takes her right arm. They don't show it. She takes her right arm and she rolls underneath the girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know her dad is Megaton Diaz, who's world famous.
Yeah.
You know, very very respected Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But there's one of the coolest things about jiu-jitsu is it's like almost like sentences and languages. There's so many different ways you can go with things.
Yeah.
There's so many different possibilities. It's almost never ending.
Well, there's a guy like my dad, you know, he's in his 50s and hasn't lost a point, let alone a round, competing up to purple belt. And he competes against guys who are 40 in open weight because there's no one his age. And, you know, he played hockey, U of M, high-level athlete. And he's not super flexible. He's not going to do a guard game. He got really good at takedowns, really good at trips, really good at guard passing, and side control, a few chokes, you know, paper cutter choke, things like that. And he's diverse enough where he can protect himself in areas. But that's one thing, too. You know, when I was helping coach him for his first tournament, I'm like, listen, in training, you want to work these positions. You know, you want to work your guard, you want to work your half guard. But there's nothing that says in the competition you can't stuff the head, get up, and just come up on top. And when he realized that, when he competes, it's just getting out, getting on top. And if he gets on top, he's going to pass, you know, at his level, at a purple belt level.
Yeah,
40
but
and up.
the problem with that strategy is it only works with someone who's weaker than you. Like, as soon as you find someone who's better at that game than you have to have other options. So
Well,
if he's not good off of his back, someone's eventually going to put him on his back.
Well, he's pretty good on his back.
Well, that's good then.
But in a tournament, the point is there's no unwritten agreement where we're working passing.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So he can try his, you know, a scissor sweep, which is a big thing for him as a strong guy. And if it doesn't work, he can do a technical standout and come up.
Well, Helson Gracie has the best description of jiu-jitsu. He said, you do this, then I do that, then you do this, then I do that, forever.
Yeah.
I love that. Because it's like if you try jiu-jitsu, you go, yeah, that is what it is, until someone taps. Like Rickson Gracie has always been famous for saying about other athletes, other competitors, that if they can't keep the rhythm, they will lose. They
My
will
rhythm.
lose. Meaning not like George St. Pierre, but like meaning that he keeps attacking and you keep defending and keep attacking. Eventually, you're going to slip up,
Right.
and he's going to get a dominant position.
Sure.
And then once from there.
I'm not saying he's world class. I'm just saying he's able to learn a game.
I know you want to brag about your dad. It's
Yeah,
okay.
he's
Have another
pretty
drink. Come on, bro. Cheers.
Oh, thank you.
Clink.
Gentleman Jack, I guess, on there. Oh, no, that's normal Jack.
This is regular Jack. Yeah, what is this stuff called? This is Sinatra shit. That's how you sell it.
If they were a sponsor, if they were an actual sponsor, you'd be getting phone calls. Yes,
before
Joe,
we glued
you said
on
it
a
was
toupee.
Sinatra shit, and our PR representatives have a problem with that.
Well, then they wouldn't be a sponsor anymore. Nobody cares anymore, man. This people have to realize. This is the age of shit. You can say it.
You know what's actually a great whiskey that has is Wild Turkey 101.
That stuff's disgusting.
No.
We have some. You want some?
No, I'm good.
Pussy.
But Wild
So
Turkey
scared.
101 is a fantastic drink. It really is. It's like Jim Beam advertises aged 4 years. Well, Wild
Right.
Turkey 101 is 8 years off the bat.
Why is it better to be old? Why is it better for whiskey to be aged? Like, oh, we've been saving this. It tastes like shit. Just be honest. It all
No.
tastes like shit.
No, well, with the rye, you want it younger. With the bourbon, you want more of that char kind of flavor in there.
Listen,
Anyway,
bro.
it's a good whiskey.
The best whiskey can't fuck with Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid tastes better than the best whiskey that's ever
Just put
made.
vodka and Kool-Aid. What are you doing with Sinatra shit?
See, I like the pain. I like the suffering. I like the suffering that comes with Jack Daniels. That's what I like.
Really?
I like when you shoot that shot down, you go, ah! You know exactly what you just did. You're not playing any stupid games.
You know it's poison.
Like, I'm here to enlighten myself. I'm here to spread love and karma.
Is that what people do with horchata? What's that with?
Horchata is a Mexican drink.
I'm thinking rum chata. Yeah, rum chata.
Horchata is some shit you get when you get tacos at an authentic joint.
I was thinking rum chata. I misspoke.
What's rum chata? I don't even know what that is.
They sell it. It's like horchata, but alcoholic. And they sell it in a white bottle, and it's already pre-made, and it's just got the spices and whatever the dairy filler is. And,
Sounds like a good thing to make terrible decisions on.
well, Not Gay Jared loves it, so it fits in perfectly.
Oh.
He loves rum
Your
chata.
co-host, Not Gay
Yeah.
Jared.
Sorry,
People
my
are like,
producer.
who the fuck is Not Gay Jared?
He's my producer on my show.
Interesting.
Well, so you were after this election. Then, where do you line up now? Where are you? Because beforehand, you were kind of. I mean, you saw the Black Lives Matter thing, and you talked about the issues.
I'm
with
more
that.
libertarian than anything.
So did you?
But
did you go Gary Johnson?
I did, but only because he did my podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, you do my podcast, I'll vote for you for president. It's deal's a deal.
Did he smoke pot doing your podcast?
She should have. We should have got him high, right? No, we
I
talked.
would imagine he
we
would.
talked pretty sensibly. I like Gary as a human, and I think he's a good guy, and I think that the Aleppo thing sunk that fucking boat like a goddamn torpedo. When he didn't know what Aleppo is, I'm like, oh, Gary.
Here's the thing.
Plays good pool. Tell you
Most
that.
people don't know about Aleppo. When
Yes.
that happened, there was a spike in Google searches for Aleppo, and he doesn't know what Aleppo is. And
I didn't know about Aleppo. I knew that Syria was in a terrible, terrible situation, and I knew the Syrian refugees that are fleeing this. I knew the bombings. I knew all
Right.
that. I didn't know the name of the city. The problem is, he got caught not knowing the name of the city, and he should have known the name of the city. Like, if you ask me, how do you think Matt Hume handles Mighty Mouse's career? I'd be like, who the fuck's Matt Hume? If I said that, I shouldn't be doing MMA
Right.
commentator ever again. But
Yeah.
I'm a mixed martial arts commentator. That is part of my job. If you're running for president, it's part of your job to know the name of the city.
That's true.
So
Well, the worst
he
part was when he
fucked up.
tried to cover it up. Like after he said, "What is Aleppo?"
Oh,
I said,
Syria.
And he
Yes,
goes,
Syria's a
"Yes,
mess."
yes, got it." He said
Yeah.
it twice, buying
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah.
She's like, "You just said, you know what? I
Yeah.
don't really know, but I'm a libertarian, so he wouldn't even be in Aleppo. So what does it matter?"
Yeah, but see, I don't buy that either, man. Once you've entangled yourself in the world of politics, foreign politics, and international politics, the idea that you're not going to be there anymore. Well, we've found out what happens with that in Iraq. We found out what happens with that in Libya. You create a vacuum, and that vacuum is filled by terrible, terrible people.
Well, particularly when you give them a timetable of when you're going to pull out,
Yeah,
like
what a
Barack
great
Obama.
idea.
Yeah, and everyone on the right was saying, "Well, listen, that's a mistake." And no, this is going to work well. Trust me.
But in his defense, what the fuck else do you do? I mean, do you stay there? You stay there and
If you keep putting that in there, it's not going to light.
bitch, I know how to do this. I've been smoking a pipe for at least an hour.
Well, afterward, I'll show you how to get it really rip
I'm
roaring.
already doing it like a man. I started like a baby.
Where are you going to suffocate the flame?
Oh, lighters, bro.
Yeah.
Modern technology.
Well, here is something that I do think we've seen afterward. I wasn't a big Trump supporter with that. Do you want to go back to talking jiu-jitsu? We can, but I,
I don't
figure
give
people
a fuck. Let's talk jiu-jitsu.
I mean,
let's
with-
talk politics. Let's talk Jack Daniels.
with Bernie Sanders or whoever it is, you can't line up with the Black Lives Matter all the time. You can't line up with the pussy hat economics, the Women's March all the time. You can't line up with the anti-free speech protesters on campus all the time. You can't line up with the people online who want to ban voices of dissent all the time. You can't line up with we want to tax the wealthy.
Who can you line up with?
Well, the point is, people like Bernie or Hillary, when they do that, until you realize, hold on a second, there's a line, and I've lined up with everyone except for the rest of America. And you see that in Los Angeles. It's an insulated bubble. People don't realize, you know what, there are a lot of people out there
saying that
who
about
disagree
Los
with it.
Angeles.
Or New York, whatever
It's
it
my
is, the coastal
city, bro.
cities.
Why don't you relax?
Didn't you go to Colorado at one point because you hated it?
No, I wanted to live. I do not like the population. I do love the mountains.
Right.
Bro, I got a straight off the mountain T-shirt on HoytArchery.com.
Yeah, but that could be in Washington.
No, it's a fucking bow hunter on that thing. I think that
Hey, you have chickens.
yes,
right?
Yeah, I don't live in Los Angeles.
Right.
I live outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I have several locations in which I sleep. I think that there's a real problem with high population areas, and that problem is there's two things. One, there's a diffusion of responsibility. There's too many people. You just feel like you don't value each other because there's too many. Everyone's there. If you see an accident, you don't pull over to try to help because there's
Right.
100,000 people on the highway. You just keep going.
Yeah.
If you saw that same accident on a single lane road in the country, and some cops, you might pull over and help. You
I've
might
always said
ask
that about
if
New
they
York.
needed help.
People are like, New Yorkers care about each other. I go, you walk past the hobo on the street in New York for a lot of people. They just ignore it because they're so used to it.
They did after 9/11.
They did after 9/11.
I went to New York after 9/11. We filmed a Fear Factor there, and I'll tell you, man, it was a beautiful thing because there was a real, a palpable, like a tangible feeling of community there that doesn't exist there anymore.
No,
it's
doesn't.
gone. Also, the New York that existed in 2001 is not the New York that is here in 2016.
No.
I've had some like Judah Freelander, who's a friend of mine, who's a stand-up comic. He was
hilarious.
here, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, it's all bankers now. He's like, there's no artists in New York anymore. They can't afford it. He's like, if you go to Brooklyn, maybe.
Well,
he's
know
like,
what?
but in New York City, the rents are so fucking expensive, and there's so much international money in New York. He's like,
I can tell you that's flipped a little bit. When I lived there, the Lower
when did you
East
live
Side,
in New York City?
I lived there when I was with Fox I lived there 2 different stints. One time sleeping on couches, and one time this would have been 2011, maybe 2011, 2012, and rent was cheaper in Old Money, Upper East Side than in the East Village or Lower East Side because that's where all the hipsters and the artists were. So they all wanted to be there now, and the Upper East Side was seen as not cool. So I got a place that was so inexpensive compared to if I wanted to live downtown. So that's kind of switched. But none of the artists want to live with all the wasps.
There's always a problem when too many people have too much money and they're all congregated in one area because then they're just annoying. They're just annoying. They're all trying to buy the same fucking cars.
They talk
and
like one of your
houses
voices.
And Bertrand Russell's a very
We
intellectual.
smoke pipes and stomp on the little man. I think you're right, and I think it also. I mean, there's obviously this is where leftists tend to congregate. Leftist ideology in big cities, right? They want you on public transportation. They want you
Do
dependent
they?
on the
They
government.
want you riding bikes, bro.
No, they want you. Well, bikes, public transport, but certainly they want to limit what kind of cars you can drive, how far you can drive them. You look at any big city, they definitely want to reduce independence, and there's a real.
Well, do you think that's what it really is? No, they want to reduce carbon emissions.
No.
They don't want to reduce independence.
No, I think it's both.
No.
I absolutely think it's both. And
Come on,
this is
man.
less conspiratorial
Listen,
than Pizzagate.
stop.
To say that people want you on buses and dependent on government just like they want you on welfare, they want you in public transit.
The people don't. Maybe some percentage of the people do. But if Tesla came out with some car that you could drive across the country on one charge, you think people would be suppressing that? They would welcome it. A zero emissions car that give you total freedom. No one's going to try to suppress that.
Yeah.
The issue is
I think they would.
I don't think so. How and why?
Well,
How
first
and
thing they
why?
would do is remove all the government subsidies that make Tesla even remotely competitive.
Who is they? This they shit is
I'm
driving
talking
me
about
crazy.
I'm talking about the United States government and the subsidies that go into a Tesla, right? Prius could still be losing Toyota on every one sold. But you look at the government subsidies, the government incentives. People don't want to buy these
Right.
cars.
Oh, that's not true.
Well, Tesla, yeah, but not a Prius.
That's not true either. I know a bunch of people who bought Priuses.
Well,
Greg
they probably-
Fitzsimmons has a
probably-
Prius. Brendan Schaub has a Prius. My buddies have
Brendan
Priuses.
Schaub drives a Prius?
He's got a fucking Prius.
How does
and
he even fit in a Prius?
and a Bentley.
Well, there you go. There you go.
He
Side
barely,
note, and
he barely,
Bentley.
he's a fucking big gorilla. He barely fits in a Prius.
I would say those things handle like trash.
They're shit cars. Bill Burr has a Prius. How about that? And a Jaguar.
Exactly. See, that's exactly what it is. It's
got
the
a
white
dope
guilt. It's
Jaguar.
the white guilt symbol in Los Angeles. So you can say, I got a Prius. This is the car I really
See, you
want.
say that, but it's people that don't want to spend a lot of money on gas. They bought a lot of them bought them in 2012.
No. Here's the, if you don't want to spend a lot of money on gas, you would do the cost savings estimation. You would see buying a used car, any used car,
you're so
especially a
silly.
Ford Fiesta, which would get more mileage than a Prius anyway. Yeah, it's a
No.
white guilt symbol.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
Ford Fiesta gets more money?
They're American small cars that will get over 40 miles per gallon.
Yeah, but a Prius gets over 50.
No.
Pull it up, Jamie. This motherfucker. Let's ride him
Let's
into
say
the
it's
rocks.
let's say it's an 8 mileage difference.
Yeah, but that's not what you want. You don't want an old car that's going to break down. You want a new car that's reliable, that gets really
You
good
really
gas
shouldn't be
mileage, and that's
inhaling
what a
that, by
Prius
the way.
is.
That's
a fucking pussy.
No, seriously, you don't want. That's going to be tar straight into your lungs if you inhale that.
I'm switching to weed. You're driving me crazy. Oh, this is so much better.
Well, back to the. Well, there you go. All right. So what's that? A Prius is
That's a Ford Fiesta.
Ford Fiesta. All right. So 40 highway.
29 city, son.
Maybe.
40 highway. Now pull up a.
Well, a Prius going to have way more in the city because of the way the battery works.
Because it's better. You son of a bitch.
Do you drive a Prius?
Your point sucks. No. No.
That wasn't the point, though. that was a side.
No, you
to
were
the
trying
point.
to say that if you
Yeah.
really wanted to save money on gas, you would get a fucking shitty old Ford Fiesta, and that's
Yeah, absolutely,
nonsense.
absolutely.
58
Absolutely.
city.
Yeah, absolutely.
Son, are you
Getting
looking
a
at
used
that?
car.
It's
Getting a used
more
car.
in the city.
Joe,
58 city.
you can yell about it all you want, but here's the truth.
You're wrong
No,
by
no.
many tens
Joe,
of
no.
miles per gallon.
You are incorrect if you look at the actual price of a Prius versus the best thing you can do for the environment is buy an old beater car. Buy an old Camaro that does horribly on
who
gas.
said that? It's $24,000. It's cheap as fuck for a car.
No, you'd be better off buying an old beater car, recycle, than buying a Prius.
Listen,
it's not even close.
You dig your heels in. You don't see the other side. You
If
have
you
a
wanna
real
drive a Prius,
issue.
buy a Prius.
You're like everybody else on the right.
Two giant
You
non-recyclable batteries.
You dig your heels in.
Two giant non-recyclable batteries.
Non-recyclable for now, but much like nuclear waste, it's making a comeback. You know that they can make diamonds, batteries out of diamonds with nuclear waste now that last thousands of years?
Yeah, but why do we want diamonds? Oh, they make batteries out of diamonds.
Yeah, the nuclear waste, nuclear diamond waste batteries
That's
that
another
last
thing,
thousands
right?
of years.
Nuclear energy that we could be using, but we can't be using because people thought it was worse for the environment.
Well, we're using it, whether people thought it was worse or not. The real issue is like the old plants, like Fukushima, that they have huge difficulties with shutting down. Someone told me
let me ask
that
you- let me ask-
Fukushima is not. You know, we were talking about it the other day that someone had said that the radiation levels are growing. They're saying it's not growing. That the real issue is aerosol or something. The
No,
emissions
aerosols
into
are
the air.
that's the old global warming
No, but
CFCs or whatever
no,
it was.
but not aerosols. What was the airborne? Airborne radiation is an issue with Fukushima that they're monitoring it.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. But my point on that one is why are leftists, for example, against the sharing economy? Why would Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton be against? No, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, their platform.
Let's just abandon left
No,
versus
no,
right.
that's the
and
whole
just
thing. It's
look
like we're
at
trying to tell people if you have actual
what are
convictions.
The people? Who are the
okay,
people
let's
that
say,
are having
why
issues
is
with this
Bernie
thing?
Socialist Sanders against the sharing economy?
You give him a nickname?
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
He's a socialist. He's a self-avowed European socialist. Why would they be
Makes
against the
a couple
sharing
$100,000
economy?
a year.
Let's stay on this.
does
We're not bouncing
well.
around.
What are you telling me to
Yeah, not
stay
to
on
bounce-
things?
I'm telling
You're
you.
bouncing all over the
I
place.
know I
Why
am.
don't you bring up your fucking dog again? What about your dad, who's a jiu-jitsu guy?
Well, you
Son
said
of
you
a
wanted
bitch.
to not talk about politics, so I
Son
talked
of
about
a
jiu-jitsu.
I didn't say I don't want to talk
No,
about
but seriously,
politics.
this is the point. The
Did I
sharing
ever say
economy.
that,
Uber,
Jamie?
Uber and Airbnb. Shouldn't everyone be on board with that? Why do you have people like Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi banning them, or Austin politicians and constituents banning them from their city? If we're talking about sharing,
they?
socialism, yeah. You can't do Uber in Austin. Bernie Sanders doesn't want Uber,
No,
doesn't want Airbnb.
Why do you think they're doing that? Do you think they're doing that because they want taxis to survive?
No,
Is
I
that
think they're
what
doing
is?
it because just like people like to throw out this big conspiracy about big bankers and their own self-interest, which is true, I think that people don't want to acknowledge that the left is beholden to giant cabbie unions who are punching people in the face in New York because Uber removes their surcharge and decides to ignore the Trump travel ban. I think they're against Airbnb because they're beholden to, for example, the culinary union who
Did
might
you just
work
like
certain
sneak
hotels.
in an aside about the Trump travel ban when you're talking about
No, that was
Uber?
what happened. People were
do you mean?
protesting an Uber in New York City.
Right.
They went in and they were still going to the airport. The cabbies unions in New York said we're not going to go, and so people were punching Uber drivers. People getting furious about it, saying you're scabs. You're coming in. Uber actually removed their surcharge because remember all the airport protests, right? It was a quagmire.
No, I don't.
Oh yeah, during the airport, remember the Trump's travel ban? There were protests at all these different airports.
Right, about that.
Yeah, well, the guy
But
got
what does that
knocked-
have to do with Uber?
The point is, in New York,
Right.
the cabbies unions went on strike. They said against the travel ban, right?
Oh, I
so
see.
Uber's going
Okay,
in.
you weren't clear.
And they're
I
removing their
understand.
surcharge. Well, if we're talking about the sharing economy, if we're talking about bringing in refugees and resettling them against people's will, right? Because we want to be compassionate.
Right.
Well, just take that and say, okay, instead of resettling refugees against somebody's will because you want to share, what about somebody deciding to share their car at an agreed upon service or share their house? And the left, the political left, has fought against that vehemently. It is so
How so?
remarkably inconsistent.
How
They,
so?
they
Who
want
is-
Uber banned.
Who is this they?
Okay, so
Is
Bernie,
this
let's
across
go
the board, or is
let's
this
go with
just
Bernie
Bernie
Sanders,
Sanders?
Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren. What they want to do is either get Uber banned in cities, as you see in cities like Austin or in cities in Europe, or they want to make sure that unions, that cab unions either get first right or that Uber hires these union workers.
Okay, well, I definitely have an issue with that.
Yeah.
So let's pull up that story that Bernie Sanders is in favor of banning Uber. Bernie Sanders Uber.
Yeah.
And let's break that down and unpack it, because I think when something comes along that's better and it fucks with a business that is worse,
Right.
the better thing should win, because that's progress.
Sure.
I think Uber is progress. I think Lyft is progress. I think what Lyft is doing and what these programs are doing, where you have an application on your phone, you can turn it on and off anytime you want, you can work anytime you want, as long as they certify and test you and run and make sure you're not a crazy person, as long as they know where you are at every time, they can actually monitor your location through GPS, which they can. And everybody like saves money, and the people who drive the car make money. Like, you can make like $35 an hour doing that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather do that if you have a car like a Prius that gets 50 miles to the gallon? Wouldn't you rather do that? So I'm in favor 100% in progress. And I think that anybody that opposes that, because somehow or another it's going to challenge other people's jobs.
Right.
When it comes to something like Uber versus cab, in my opinion, this is pretty black and white. This is a new technology, a disruptive technology that benefits a lot of individual users, hence it's good.
Well, also benefits the middle class more than anybody.
And there's no union for Uber drivers.
That's
so
the big
there's
problem.
no lobbying, and there's no money that goes to politicians.
Well, that's the big problem.
So I'm not aware of this. You're more balls deep in politics than I am. So Jamie's going to pull up a story, and we're going to figure out what the fuck is wrong with Bernie Sanders' take on it from an individual point of view.
Yeah, or you can look up, you can even look up European cities that have banned it, or Austin
Well,
that's banned it.
I know it was a huge issue in London. I remember watching those cab drivers that had decided to block streets. They decided to shut their cars off in the middle of the street and literally stop cars from passing. And people had to go way around them, and it was a huge issue.
The reason the term political left and right matters right now, to me anyway, it may not matter to some people, but the reason it matters to me is because you do look at one side of the political spectrum right now, and I think the line's been pretty clear in this last election, where there's an ideological divide, and where one is deliberately looking at marginalizing and targeting and dividing victimized groups, and they do so and ignore other groups of people who are victimized as a result of them complaining about victimization.
Okay, like what? That's very vague. So
Okay,
what,
so let me give you. You want a concrete example?
Let's find this with Bernie Sanders.
Well, let me
thing,
go
but
into
I want
it
you
right
to hold
now.
this thought.
Sure.
I was
'cause
just trying
Jamie's
to
got
find like
something.
I was trying to find a quote about what he had. So here's about what I guess he has
Okay.
serious problems with it. And here's-
Serious problems with popular mobile ride-hailing service Uber. Speaking with Bloomberg, the Democratic presidential contender, called the service unregulated, wading into one of the most closely watched economic debates of the 2016 race. Workers on demand at on-demand economy companies like Uber, Airbnb, or Lyft are considered independent contractors and therefore
Right.
do not receive the benefits and protections afforded to full-time employees. Okay, so I could see that, but they do make more money, right? Isn't
Uber
that
drivers?
correct? Yeah.
Well, they don't have to pay a huge commission to the
Right.
cabbies union, and they're totally independent.
and they have their own car and they make more money.
Right.
I mean, is that true? Maybe
Yeah.
let's make sure that that is true.
It doesn't matter if
Let's-
it's true.
But
If
let's
people
just
have the choice to do
But let's
Uber.
just Google Uber drivers make more than car companies versus how much Uber makes from their drivers, because that's the real issue. Like, say Uber's a company, okay, and they're pimping out all these drivers and they're making shit tons of money, and then they're not giving the drivers enough. Then,
no, they're giving them
then people
certainly
have
more.
issues
I
with
think
it.
they take a much smaller commission than the cab drivers
Listen,
unions. I don't have the
should
number in
just
front of me.
Reiterate, I'm pro Uber, 100%.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who's actually a bigwig at Uber.
I think it's great. I
And
think Uber
even
all
if
the
I
time.
wasn't. What's the matter with this? How Uber fails to prove its drivers make more than
Well, that's
taxi
Huffington
drivers.
Post. That's Huffington Post.
Those
And
sons of bitches.
They
That's
feel the
Fox
need to be on the
News.
defensive.
Oh, that's the Blaze.
No, they feel the need to be defensive.
Well,
how
let's
they
read
fail
what
to
they
prove.
say. Let's
How they
read.
fail to prove. What does that mean?
I don't know.
That
Let's
means
find
there's
out.
a claim, and Huffington Post can't disprove it, but they're saying Uber's failed to prove it. So this isn't going to help
Steven
anybody.
Crowder, read the fucking quotes before
ahead,
you
read
get
the
crazy
quotes.
and defend.
I'm reading
You're
the
so
headline.
right wing.
I am very right wing.
My
Here's
God.
from Time.com then instead.
Hand me that beer, son. Time.com. Oh, Uber reveals how much its drivers really earn, sort of. Uber has long said that drivers get paid more than traditional cabbies, but do they really? Driver surveys, strikes, and class action lawsuits suggest otherwise. Most recently, BuzzFeed. Is that okay? Is it okay if it's BuzzFeed? Is that too left wing? You fuck.
Yeah, BuzzFeed is fake news. Haven't you heard? Fake news.
Estimate.
Fake news. BuzzFeed, you fake.
Estimate the terrible Trump impression that drivers in Denver, Detroit, and Houston make less than 13.25 cents an hour. $13.25 an hour after expenses using calculations based on more than 1 million trips. Well, that's not good. This spring, Uber was hit with 2 class action lawsuits from drivers in Florida and Illinois who seek to recover unpaid overtime wages and other expenses. This is after the company, this is our
Yeah, it happens in our thing too, our feed.
No, we have one shitty TV that can't handle an HDMI cable and it cuts out every minute and a half.
We have one of those.
Who seek to recover unpaid overtime. Jesus Christ. Unpaid overtime wages and other expenses. This is after the company paid $100 million to settle similar lawsuits in California and Massachusetts. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
California, Massachusetts, big union strongholds.
But if they have lawsuits and if there is a lawsuit that does make sense enough where a judge decides that they're going to rule against Uber.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know the law. Do you? Do you know if they're in
I
violation?
Know it depends on a right to work state.
But wouldn't you assume that the lawyers and the judges in Massachusetts would make a strong enough case where they would show the legality of it to the point where it wouldn't lose $100 million lawsuit?
No, I wouldn't assume.
Do you know anything about the lawsuit?
Well, here's what I would know. Whether it's a right to work state or not, and that would determine the lawsuit. And that's why people like Bernie Sanders, and that's why people, oh, geez, what happened there? You opened that too fast?
Oh, bro.
Just go. Do it like you did the pipe.
Not scared.
That's good enough, bro. So it depends if it's a right to work state or not. I don't care.
Right. Okay.
If they make less than cab drivers, I don't care.
Well, let's illuminate people. What is the difference between a right to work state?
Effectively means you don't have to join a union. Means you can work without being a part of the labor union.
And
so that would determine the case. Just for example, that's why when we do hidden camera videos, we have to make sure that it's a one-party consent state as opposed to a two-party consent state.
Right, like Nevada, when they used to do those prank call shows, they would do like, you remember Crank Yankers?
Yeah.
They would do it in Nevada.
Right, because California is a one-party consent state.
No, it's 2. Nevada.
No, but California is 1.
What do you mean?
California, well,
Am I
it depends.
getting the definition wrong?
No.
What I'm thinking is we both have to agree. Is that true?
Yeah. They would do it in Nevada instead of California.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right, in Nevada, only like you can call me up and prank me.
You can't do it in California.
I wouldn't have to agree.
Right.
But that might have changed.
It might change. For example, in Michigan, it was really controversial. It was a one-party consent state that, depending on the judge, read as a two-party consent state. So that's really scary because you can be in the clear, right? We recorded a prank call or we found some kind of corruption and it should be legal, but there's a little wiggle room where they can say, actually, this isn't legal and you committed a felony.
Oh.
So that's a problem with that.
Okay. So in these right-to-work states, when you have this Uber situation, is the issue that it's taking cabs out of business, or is the issue that they are not paying people enough and they're taking cabs out of business? So the people, like the cab drivers, if they switched over to becoming Uber drivers, they would actually lose money. Because these companies aren't regulated, so they don't have to pay insurance, health insurance. I mean, that seems like what the issue is, right?
That's what they would say the issues are. So
it's not true?
Well, no, it's not necessarily true, and again, that depends on the state. So first off, I would want to clarify, just for people listening, it would not be the right-to-work states. The right-to-work states would be fine.
Right.
A right-to-work state means I have the right to say, hey, do you want to work for this amount? And you have the right to say yes.
Right.
A non-right-to-work state.
As long as it's above minimum wage, everybody's cool.
Yeah, as long as, I mean, as cool as you can be, right? You have to
and
report
what
it.
is a non-right-to-work state? Just when
depending on the profession, if there's an established union in that profession, you can't work outside of that union, right?
Is that the case with trades like plumbing, being a carpenter,
generally
auto
speaking,
repair?
Yeah, generally speaking.
Is auto repair? Do they have a union?
Depends on the state. But Chael Sonnen actually would have some stories about his dad being in the plumbers union. He has some stories about that. Vince Vaughn has some funny stories about that. He's told actually when he worked at his dad's like paper mill. But to go back to it again, first off, I don't care if someone agrees to this price and this service. I believe that's a marketplace of ideas and services, and you have the right to do it, and I have the right to provide those services. Now, if Uber is doing a poor job, thank God there's Lyft. right? Because there's some competition there. But if the government steps in and says, no, you have to use the cabbies unions, well, even then you can artificially increase wages at the expense of the taxpayer who now has to pay more for a taxi ride. So I don't care. I think that people should be able to make their own decisions if they want to do Uber, if they want to rent out their house in Airbnb. And I don't think that Nancy Pelosi in the Bay Area representing her district should have any say in whether I can rent out my
I agree
place
with
as
you
Airbnb.
100% on that. And I think there's also a real problem with people resisting change because technologically influenced change is coming at such a high rate. There's no way you can put a finger in all the holes in the dam. It's just you can't do it.
Yeah.
There's too many things that are happening. They're going to change the way we communicate, change the way we do business, change everything from top to bottom. You're not going to be able to stop it. So anytime you're trying to stop something like an Uber, the only thing that I think is that you got to figure out how's the money being distributed, and
Right.
is that fair? And if it's not fair, what's the solution? Because is the solution alert people to what the actual numbers are and let it all sort itself out,
Right.
or is it passing regulation? I'm a firm believer that the less regulation you have, the better.
Right. And that's what...
As long as it's not like environmental pollution type
Right.
shit.
Well, that's
or
what Adam
crime,
Smith talked
or
about, the invisible hand, right? That moves the market. I certainly believe that the market is more efficient at regulating itself than the government creating a monopoly.
Well, also because unions can be influenced. And when you get large groups of people together, I think it's good because like what a union can do is they can say, hey, we're going to stand strong. We're not going to let these people take advantage of us like some sort of slave labor factory in the
Right.
Middle East or wherever the fuck it is. We're going to figure out a way to if you
Sure.
work here, you're going to get an honest wage. And I'm 100% with that. The problem is that you get giant groups of people that you can't go against. Someone's going to be in control of those giant groups of people.
And I'm glad
it's
that you touched on that. That's an
it's
important
no different
point.
than being the mayor of a city or the leader of a country.
It's no different than being beholden to Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan.
Right.
And if you look at the top political donors, you can bring it up from Open Secrets. If you look at the top 20, it's like 16 out of the top 20 are big unions. So this idea that it's big banks and the Koch brothers and energy companies.
Not
No
necessarily.
one wields more influence in American politics today than big unions, particularly the Democratic Party.
Because it's power and because they can influence the people that
Well,
are
they
members.
can also take dues from you, give 100% to Democrats,
Sure.
and you have no say.
Well, it's one of the big contributors to the war against drugs. One of the big things that's happening in this country is the prison guard unions have spent money to ensure that innocuous things like marijuana they stay illegal. Because if they stay illegal, then they keep their jobs. Like they've literally fought for that. Like fought to keep more people in cages because that would earn them more money. I mean, that's really what it is. If you break it down to black and white. And it's...
Did you just make a joke about the discriminatory prison system in the
I
United
did.
States? That was cold.
I didn't say black and white because I meant black and white people. I meant
It could be
black
interpreted that
and
way.
white
Someone
in
alert
terms
Media
of
Matters.
the reality of the situation is that prison guard unions are spending money and using their influence to ensure, and it didn't work
You
in
just
the
said
United
influence.
Influence.
Sound like from South
fucked
Paulo.
that word up.
Influence.
To ensure that marijuana stays illegal. And the reason why they're doing that is because they profit off of it. So that's not an altruistic ideal. That's not someone who
Right.
cares about the people that they represent. That's not someone who cares about their community as a whole. That's someone who's looking out for their best interests in a way that is negative
Right.
towards the general population.
I agree with you, and I think that's where the wool was pulled over people's eyes with people like Bernie. Well, he's from the people. He's never gotten big donors. That's
Right.
actually not true if you look at the collective donations from union members and from union organizations.
Right.
And when you look at that, and what bothers me is when people follow the money trail on only one side and act as though the political left is unbeholden to people.
That's the big point, what you just said, on one side. Because I think you can see the benefits in unions as well. You can see the benefits in protecting wages and making sure that people get insurance and making sure that people live a good life. That, like, if you're going to work for this company, you're going to be well compensated, and there's going to be an agreement between the workers and the people that run the company.
Well, there's a problem with that, and the problem with that is...
But there's not always a problem with that.
There's
occasionally, sometimes...
No, that's the rule rather than the exception. And I talked about this when we
What
talked
is
about the Walmart CEO, for example, makes $19 million, right? People are furious about that. Well, Walmart employs 2.5 million people, 1.5 million people full-time. So you add that, he's getting less than well, if you add up all the workers, not the full-time workers, it would be less than $10 per person he's employing and providing an active living. So when you have workers who say, well, he has 19 million, that's more than I have no million, 19 is 19 more millions. These people, they pick an arbitrary number. That's what Bernie Sanders was doing with the debate with Ted Cruz. Whether you like him or not, it was such a floor mopping because Bernie Sanders dealt with these phantom fears and again tried to victimize groups and marginalize groups. And my point that I was talking about there is, for example, we talked about the victimized groups, the marginalized groups who don't have insurance in the country, right? It was 40-something thousand. Well, most of them were young people who chose not to buy insurance. So now you can stand your parents' insurance till 26. There you go, we bought some votes. So you talk about them and they're getting more affordable insurance now, and now the play is we're going to take all these people off of insurance. Okay, so we're talking about that victimized group, people who didn't buy insurance. But what about the people who've seen their premiums go up, hardworking Americans? 40-something percent, 24% on average. In certain states, 46%, sometimes 60-something percent, their premiums have gone up. Why don't we talk about the ramifications of the everyday Americans who now can no longer afford health care insurance and don't qualify for a government subsidy? And if you look at the trend, I will argue this, and I'll dig my heels in if I feel I have to, the political left seeks to divide and conquer and find for sure the most victimized group of that day.
Wait, how so? Like, what do you mean the most victimized group of that day to do what?
Well, like right now, for example, I'm just using that as an example because you said a concrete example with Obamacare. So right now, it's these people aren't going to be able to afford insurance. Well, there were a ton of people.
Let's not go too far away from unions, because we're way out into the Obamacare pool.
Well, no, because we were talking about that.
That pool is deep and long.
No, it's not. It's really not.
Obamacare is a deep, long pool.
You subsidized technically health care at the cost of other taxpayers who couldn't afford it, and now they can't afford health care.
Let's start from the beginning, because you went way out there, and you started out with the CEO.
I went out there. You have Alex Jones on the show, and I went out there.
You went out there in terms of you covered so many different things before anybody could address either one of them. You have to like slow down and like take it point by point if you want to. You said that this guy makes so much money that if everybody gave him $10, like why should they give him $10? Here's the thing. Like, what is this guy doing?
Because it's the single biggest employer of people in the United States.
He's just a guy who works for them. He doesn't even own it. Why does this guy make so much money? I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying he shouldn't.
Right.
Maybe he should make that much money.
Right.
But why defend that? Why defend that? Why not
here's the
have?
Point. See, that's like
if
like
you
getting
say,
into
"Can I get a raise?" and they say no, and you go, "Wait, that guy makes $15 million a year, and he doesn't even work." What does he do? He sits behind that desk and punches keys.
Let me unpack what you just said. There were a lot of assumptions. He doesn't work. Why does that guy make that much money? How much? Well, that's
obviously.
Me sometimes.
This
so
is
what I'm
the
saying
guy
is
who's
facetious.
in the factory. This guy doesn't even have a real job. He gets driven around a fucking limousine. He gets $15 million. We can't get a raise.
That's my point.
Well,
you can just tell them this is too much.
But don't you think, and this is what I think, if that guy really does make that amount of money, he's probably like, how the fuck am I pulling this off? All he's doing extracting numbers from some system by his choices.
I don't think so at all.
Ones and zeros and moving things around and making sure the profit margin increase, and he gets a piece of that, and he's just living like a fucking baller on a yacht, a golden bikini with a bottle of fucking Dom Perignon in each hand.
Why is he a cross-dresser now
He's
in a golden bikini?
He's having fun. He's fucking balling. He made $15 million this year. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. But there's room for debate as to what a job is worth.
And I think that we do a good job on my show of having people on who disagree and engaging in those debates. We don't just say,
but about
you're
this
an idiot,
subject
you're
right
racist.
here. Just about this subject right here.
I think you made a lot of assumptions.
There's room. How did I make an assumption? There's room to debate how much a job is worth.
Yes, there is room to debate.
So if
but it should be determined by the value of a company and the services rendered, not some arbitrary number because Bernie Sanders throws out a percentage point.
I'm not saying that he's right. I'm just saying, well, I think it's totally within the interest of all the people that work for a company that are critical to this company actually working to figure out, like, hey, how much should we get for this? How much do they get? And when one guy's getting $15 million and the other guy's getting $15 an hour, and you got to, like, this guy, if this guy doesn't work, this guy doesn't get any money. Like, these people have to work. If they didn't work, the CEO would make $0.
Right.
Because there would be no profit. So someone has to work.
Sure.
So I don't think it's outside the realm of rational discourse to discuss how much a person should make to be a CEO.
No, I don't think it's outside the realm of rational discourse. I do think people are wrong when they say, for example, to take your argument, how much a CEO should make. I think that's silly. You shouldn't be able to determine that. Just like I don't think
you should either.
Just like I don't think you should be able to say $15 an hour.
Look, I think if some fucking super baller, fucking Steve Jobs type character comes in and starts running a company, and all of a sudden it goes blockbuster through the roof and becomes Apple. I don't think you should be able to say that guy doesn't deserve way more money than the average person, because fucking of course he does.
Yeah.
That guy is an obsessed genius who's making this
So
company.
who determines
this huge...
what's okay?
Exactly. Who does determine?
I think the market does.
But isn't it a relationship between the people who are, this is Bernie Sanders' point of view, I would imagine.
Right.
The people that don't have a say. The people that they're making the least amount of money, they're the easiest to replace, and they're the ones that are worried about being treated fairly.
Well, first off, I would say
Have you no heart, Steven
exactly.
Crowder?
That's exactly what
I'm gonna
leftists
light my
do, and that's
pipe
why
up
they get
again.
mad. They
Reassume my
say you're a
English accent.
conservative, therefore you don't care about poor people.
Do you
no,
care about poor people?
Well, I was sleeping out of an '82 Datsun when I first lived in Los Angeles, so I cared about myself. Let's put it that way.
I used to be in high school, but I don't want to talk to those fucks.
Yeah,
Back in the
again,
day-
but that's the thing that they'll say is right attribute motive. And I think we both know. I think you don't do it. I don't do it. I don't attribute motive. I don't say, well, you do this because you hate poor people, or
Right.
you do this because. But you do have to look at the numbers, and you do look at a certain point when people say they're underrepresented, they have no voice. Well, that's not true with union workers. They have a huge voice. They have huge political influence. These people don't not have
Right.
a voice.
They
And
have a
especially
voice.
they have the
Union
media,
workers
the
have a voice.
entertainment industry. They have, you know, the entire music industry has been so far left for so long, pushing for these same ideas.
Not country.
A lot of those people are actually pretty far. Kid Rock was just talking about how most of them
Come on,
are
son.
pretty far left.
Country music is not far left.
So you're taking an extreme. Okay,
Toby
let's
Keith,
remove country.
Get the fuck out of
Toby
Dodge.
Keith.
Well, stop. You remove country. It's one of the biggest genres of music in this country. Not only that, I bet they sell more fucking albums than anybody.
Is country going out there and making Redacted and Lions for Lambs and Rendition and Avatar and all these
What is that?
anti-corporate screeds? The point is,
I don't
they're
even
not
know what
going
you're
out-
talking about.
The
What are you
point
saying?
is, country is not
Avatar
going
the
out.
movie? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
a fucking movie about aliens, bro.
Avatar the movie is possibly the biggest piece of neo-environmentalist propaganda.
Oh, you.
If we're going to talk about Pizzagate.
You son of a bitch.
Did you see James
Avatar
Cameron?
is a fucking amazing
Oh
movie
my
about
God.
blue
I
aliens
walked out
and love.
just out of boredom.
That guy fell in love with that blue alien. He became one of them, bro. He was paralyzed. They put him inside the blue alien mind.
James Cameron could buy an island and paint people blue and have them run around for the rest of his life if he wanted. Instead, he decides to print them out on Blu-rays using petroleum
Bro,
products.
it was a dope movie, and you're a fucking communist.
I'm a communist.
It's a fucking great movie. You
Oh,
didn't
I
enjoy
hated
it?
No, I hated it. I thought it was
Jesus
a terrible
Christ,
film.
dude, it's great.
Really?
It's fucking flying dragons, badass Marines. What else do you want? What kind of a pussy am I talking to? What happened to you? You've been up in Michigan too long. It's too cold in the winter.
It's too cold in the winter, therefore I need to like
Bro, it's
Avatar.
bad for your brain. You don't think straight. You just want to stay home.
You like? Do you actually like Avatar as a satire?
Great. Can't wait for Avatar 2.
Really?
Heard it's underwater. Even better.
They just stole that idea from Mario. Level
Dude,
2, let's make it
James
underwater.
Cameron is a bad motherfucker. He's one of the best directors of all time. His
Sure.
movies are classic.
He's a great
escapism.
director.
They
He's
are
also a political
classic.
moron.
I don't care about his politics. He makes great movies.
No, but that's not the point I was
That
making.
Tree
The
of
point I was
Life
making
with
was
the
you took
Na'vi
an
went
example.
to.
See, I was talking about the media, the entertainment industry, the backlash for someone who I'm not even a huge supporter of Donald Trump. Neither one of us are, so I think we can be relatively objective. So let's remove country. But if you look at the internet, have you turned on CNN
Hold on
recently?
the drink. Slow down.
Have you
Getting
turned on
hyped up
CNN
again.
recently?
Cheers. 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 Come on. Oh my God. Drink it. Gotta go to the airport.
This is literally like this is
I
like
just
the
want
guy in high
I want
school.
you to relax.
If you
Look at
love
that.
me,
Bro,
you'll
that was
drink
a,
it.
That was a dope movie.
It was horrible.
The guy in high school, if you love me, you'll drink it. Who the fuck were you partying with?
Guys like you, apparently.
Kid Rock being considered as potential Senate
I know.
candidate.
Did you see that today?
Hold the fuck on. Is that true? He's a bow hunter.
In
I'm
Michigan.
with him. I'm voting for him.
I actually just saw his interview with Dan Rather last night. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah?
He's a lot smarter than I think I'd give him credit for.
He's not a dumb guy.
He's not a dumb guy. And have you ever seen him live?
No, I have not, but I like what he does. You know what he does?
He puts a
gives
lot of effort into it.
extremely low ticket prices, like $20 for
Yeah.
a guy like him. That's huge. Sells out these places and he gets a piece of the booze. He's smart. He's a smart guy,
well,
and
is
he's
that why
given he's given his audience like a good deal.
Yeah.
He makes a good deal with the venues. Like, look, if Kid Rock's showing up, this fucking place is selling out.
Yeah.
So let's just make a deal. Let's make a deal. And his deal is really smart. I like what he's doing.
Well, that's a good example of a guy not being forced to do it.
Yeah.
Right? He's just doing it because he wants to do something that helps people.
Plus, he's got a dope Cadillac. You ever seen his Cadillac?
I haven't.
He had one of them West Coast Customs custom-made Cadillac. It's the shit, man. Pretty goddamn impressive.
That
They
might
took
make
an
sense.
old
He started
Caddy
a beer
and redid
company.
it.
Remember that? So that might make, if he got a percentage.
started?
Yeah, he started a beer company. It was called like Badass, American Badass or something beer.
I like Kid Rock. There, I said it.
Do you like his music or you just like him as a dude?
No, I like him, man.
Some of his music is not bad. I agree with you. Some of his music is really not bad,
Look
and
at
it's
that
become
Cadillac.
popular to crap on him.
I like him for that Cadillac. He's unabashedly friends with Ted Nugent.
Now, are you
I
still
like
really
that.
into cars?
I love cars.
Because I remember I was listening to your podcast once, and you said it's only to the point when you make so much money that you no longer care about money. And you use your car as an example. You said, for example, like I got a dent or something in my car at one point, would have lost my mind because that car meant so much. And now it's just like, okay, it's only a car. So that was a good point, though, that you made, that when you have enough money, it's kind of like...
It's what I call guerrilla Buddhism.
Okay.
Like the idea of there's part of Buddhism that you should not be attached to items, you should not be attached to objects, and you know, I have a friend of mine who became a Buddhist monk, and he wouldn't even have sex anymore. He gave up on sex, all carnal pleasure, all attachment to women, attachment to relationships, and the idea is that you don't want to be connected to that because what you are connected to owns you. And my take on that was, okay, but does it have to own you?
Right.
Like, can't you just enjoy automobiles? Can't you enjoy engineering? You say that you can't have you can't own a thing. You can't possess a thing. I feel like that is so ignorant of the world that we live in. It's so ridiculous. You're choosing to act in a way that you're ignoring this amazing technological revolution that is going on right before your eyes.
Right.
And it is going to fucking happen whether you ride a bike to work or not. It's gonna happen. It's
Right.
what people do. We are a part of this cascade of electronic progress, of electronic innovation, and it's never gonna stop.
No, and that's
until we kill ourselves.
I want to go back to that point, the car, but that would be a good analogy
But
there,
this
right?
is my
we
thing
put
about
Radio Shack
objects.
out of business because of iPhones, or we put
You're
radio
going political on
transmitters
me.
out
I
of
want to
business.
talk cars.
No, but
there's nothing wrong with appreciating
Absolutely.
things that people make, whether it's an automobile, whether it's a painting, a sculpture. I feel like cars are like people look at them as just transportation, and I totally appreciate that because they
They're
are
works of art.
If you get a Prius, it's just transportation.
No, I said they're works of art.
If you get a 1969 Mustang, that is a goddamn marvel of time.
Yeah.
It is a moment where people decided to just create something that just looks inherently like collectively badass. There's no
Right.
one looks at a 69 Mach 1 and goes, that's fucking gross. If you do, fuck
I
you.
don't even know what that is.
If you do, fuck you, right? If you look at a 69 Mustang, you don't say, wow, that's crazy looking. That's amazing.
But isn't that a big irony that you're able to appreciate it and not be attached to it because you've been more financially successful?
Well, that's what I say. I mean, this is the whole point of this whole thing. It's not a rational, normal position to take because most people are behind the 8 ball all the time and
Right.
always need to pay their bills. Look at that car. Look behind you, sir. Look at that
Oh, is
guy.
that TV not working?
Yeah. Well, cuts in and out. We talked about that earlier before you were drunk.
Yeah, it looks nice.
That's a fucking
Phone's drunk.
amazing car, man. That 1969 Mustang is a marvel. It all came together. It's just, they figured it out. They just figured out some way to make something that just is incredibly pleasing to your eyes and doubles as
Do you have one?
transportation. No, I should get one, right? All I talk about them.
You can.
There's a
It's
company
like-
that takes them, and this is what I like.
Yeah.
They take the inside of it and the engine, all that stuff out, and they put a 2012 Shelby GT500 inside of it. So you get like anti-lock brakes, you get airbags, you get everything.
Yeah.
And then they put it together and sell it. That's the way to go.
This was actually my experience with very nice cars. I went to buy a car and I had very little money. So I went and I looked. There was a 2003 Ford Taurus with like 60,000 miles on it. An old guy had cataracts, so they took away his license. I can drive. And no, they took away his license. So I went in to buy this Taurus. The guy took like $4,000 for it. Not a great car. It's getting you from point A to point B. But I had to walk through cars. One from George W. Bush. I can't remember the singer, and there was one that was the exact same model of car that James Dean died in. Apparently, they're only like 13 or
Porsche
15.
Spider? You had a Porsche Spider?
No, I didn't have it. I walked through it. Here's
Oh.
the crazy thing.
What does that
This
mean?
guy. Well, I'll finish the story. This guy who was selling this old 2003 Taurus.
What are you, a ghost?
This is what he drove, right? But you know what his business was? His
What?
business was customizing cars like that Porsche Spider and doing high-end cars. People like George W. Bush, the nicest cars in the country. And he drove a 2003 Ford Taurus that I bought from him. It was just this surreal experience walking through these cars that, you don't even want to touch, right? You don't want to put a fingerprint
Right.
on it. And this guy, I found out later, was a multimillionaire, could afford any car that he wanted. He had a 2003 Taurus.
Well, some people do that because they want to stay low key and they just want to just kind of chill.
Yeah.
There's that. There's definitely that. Like Henry Rollins drives a Mazda 6. He drives like a regular car, and the reason why he does it is because he's just like he doesn't give a fuck. Henry wants to like sit in front of his gigantic $200,000 speakers and listen to records.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't care about his car. So like for him, it's like he doesn't want to ball. He doesn't want to floss. He wears the same T-shirt. He has like 100 gray T-shirts. He wears the same thing every day. He said.
Well,
so he's a fascinating character in that regard because he's a guy who has financial means. Like he's a very wealthy guy.
Right.
But he chooses not to spend it on things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's like my dad gave me this analogy one time where talking about cars, the ability to appreciate it, but you don't need it. It's like air, right? If you all of a sudden you stopped breathing, you don't have air, all you can think about is breathing, right? That's the first thing. Well, just like in jiu-jitsu, if you're being suffocated by a 300-pound guy in side control. Well, it's the same thing with money. If you take away the money, all you can think about is money because you need money. And my point was, like we were talking about earlier, is we don't want people in those positions determining exactly what I have to do with my money.
Well,
that's all they can think
conversely,
about.
personally, as soon as you get money, you get this stress alleviation that's palpable. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to you because you've been really successful over the last few years. When you all of a sudden don't worry about whether or not you could pay your gas bill this month,
right?
It's a different feeling. Until I was 25 years old, every day of my life was check to check. Every day I was fucking barely, lying to the landlord. I sent it. What happened? I mean, everybody's who's been in that situation where you're like literally wondering how much can I spend today to eat, And I've been there, and we all been there. The moment I got a development deal way back in the day with Disney. Of all people.
Disney?
Yeah, of all people. I was on a Disney show.
Because you were just there like, he's a young, good-looking guy. Let's put him into Disney.
I was a little stud muffin when I was young.
And then they saw your set. They're like,
No, I was boy pretty. They wanted me on TV. Well, it was, 1993 or something like that. So I got a development deal because I did an MTV half-hour comedy hour. Remember those shows?
Yeah, I do.
I did one episode of the MTV half-hour comedy hour, and I got a development deal from Disney because of it. I got like this little thing, and they sent me some money. And as soon as they sent me some money, it was like literally like someone just took a weight, like lifted it, like I was carrying around a weighted backpack my whole life. And they took it off. And it wasn't enough money where I was wealthy, where I could say, I don't have to work again. But it was enough money where I didn't have to think about money for a year.
Right.
And so all of a sudden I was like, wow. This is what it feels like to not worry about your bills. Like, I've never felt this before. And then I became obsessed with maintaining that position.
Okay.
Once you realize that, I was like, oh my God, I'm a bulldog. I'm going to work constantly. I'm going to do stand-up. I'm not quitting anything. That's why I work too much.
Why was that?
Because I realized how important it is to not be dependent on anyone.
Yeah.
To not change. Like, here's the thing about, look, you're talking about Hollywood, and the way people behave in Hollywood. It's, in many ways, it's a self-enforcing ideology.
Yeah.
In that you know that someone like Meryl Streep, who gets up in front of the Golden Globes or whatever the fuck it was, and says crazy shit.
Which are not the real arts.
But when she's saying that, what she's doing is she's like, it's a war cry for the like-minded.
Yeah.
There's no reason to say that for any other reason. She wants to rally the troops.
Yeah.
She wants to enforce her ideas, and she wants to make sure that everyone is on board.
Well, and the reason she said something so
she's
stupid
royalty,
is
but
because
she's Hollywood royalty.
It's because of that, she would say something that stupid that was received the way it was because she probably ran it by a bunch of people beforehand. And
I doubt that.
But the point is, not a single person there. They all roared and cheered.
Of course.
Not a single person there goes, what?
Of course.
They're surrounded by people.
But what I'm saying is that those people that are reacting to that, they may agree with it, or they may feel like they have to agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be the guy who feels like he has to agree with something.
Right.
I grew up in a weird way where, like, my parents they broke up when I was really young, and we moved around a lot, and I didn't have roots. Like, I didn't live in one place until Massachusetts when I was 13.
Right.
I lived there for a long time. But that was the first place I lived for a long time. And I got a chance to see the way people cling to ideas versus actually believe things. And I think it's very important to find out what you actually believe. And it's almost impossible in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because in Hollywood, people have to audition for things.
Right.
And I've been there, man. It's gross. You go in this room and some person looks at you and they have a clipboard and they're judging you and they have power. And the same way that unions can have power and unions can control groups of people, the same thing can happen for really self-righteous ideologues who happen to be holding that clipboard.
Well, then there's also the throwing out the baby with with the bathwater. We're calling anybody who has a worldview an ideologue. And I do think that you're susceptible if you don't have a framework from which you look through the world. If you don't have a prism where you go, okay, hold on a second.
But if you're a hardcore Democrat, do or die, without any exceptions whatsoever, you're an ideologue. If you start going us versus them, like I've had conversations with people in Hollywood where they've talked to me about the Democratic Party. They go, we have to win the House. If we win the House, then we get this. I go, what is this we, man?
Yeah.
You make a fucking cartoon.
But then you have people who just go, man, it's the left and the right. It's all the same. No, it's not. You do need to determine a prism through which you see the world. For example, there's a very clear decision you make. Do I believe in choice? Do I believe in freedom and personal liberty? Or do I believe in equal outcomes? And that doesn't mean that you line up with either party the same on every single issue. But it is a filter through which you will be able to see issues.
Well, explain those options again.
Well, a good example is right now. For example, you have to make someone has to make a decision right now.
What are the three options that you said?
No, I put two options in one.
But
do
one
I
of them
value
has
personal liberty?
Personal liberty
and choice.
Right, and choice.
Freedom of choice. Or do I value the idea of equal outcomes?
Oh, well, equal outcomes is ridiculous because I can't play basketball.
But you can't understand that unless you have some kind of it. People don't like to. There's an ism there.
Don't you think that a lot of that is people need to compete in things? People need to play dodgeball. They need to bring back dodgeball. You got to realize, stay away from that big fucker. That guy throws that dodgeball, it's going to hurt. When the little kid gets it, rush him. That's real.
The Asian kid with the glasses. You beat him as soon as the whistle blows.
Maybe that kid's a bad motherfucker. Maybe he's from Thailand. Maybe people have been fucking with him since he was little.
Pretty rare.
Catch him outside, he'll kick you in the dick. How about that guy?
That's possible. That's entirely possible. But the point is there is an ism. And people don't need to shy away from saying, you know what, I do have a worldview. There is an ism.
What do you mean by an ism?
There is an ism where people, whether it's conservatism, leftism, right-wingism, liberalism.
I don't think anybody's ever said leftism until you just said it.
A lot of people like to act as though, well, because liberalism is no longer.
Do you think you're the first person to say leftism?
I don't think so at all.
Been alive for 49 years. Never heard a single motherfucker say leftism.
Well, because today's left is not the same as classical liberals.
The word leftism. Yeah. Don't skirt the issue.
Yeah.
That might be the first time anybody's ever said it.
Have you ever heard
leftism?
Did
you Google it? Yeah. Fuck. Well, I'm mad
even if I made it up, I'll stick with it. I don't care. I don't think liberalism describes the current progressive movement. But a lot of people say, well, I'm not an ideologue. Well, actually, a lot of people, they don't realize they are to some degree. And you just have to determine to which degree that is and recognize that about yourself. Everyone has a leaning.
Well,
everyone
has a bias. Makes it easier.
No.
It makes it easier to get along if you subscribe to a predetermined set of values and ideas.
I'm not talking about that. There's no predetermined set of values or ideas if someone says, okay, I'm looking at the world through this lens. Do I look through it where we need to ensure fairness and equal outcomes, or do I look through it in the idea that people should be free to make their own decisions? That doesn't mean you're subscribing to the Republican platform.
Okay, well, you're talking about your first initial. Well, I'm talking about what we were talking about really recently. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we should do, see, I think a big part of the problem with human beings today is that it's not a fair hand of cards that we're all dealt, and some want to pretend that it is. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's just not. And you know it and I know it, and we say, well, you know what? You got to do the best with what you've got, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
The real problem with that is the people that got 2 fucking ones. Those people.
Why is it a problem?
Well, because for them, the guy with 4 aces just got Donald Trump Jr.'d. You know? It's like, you lucky motherfucker, by the way. Donald Trump Jr. is a very nice guy. He's a sportsman and a hunter.
You have to do that now that he's in power?
No, I like him. He's my friend. I mean,
he's a big hunting advocate.
He is. I mean, I only text him, but he's good buddies with friends.
Oh my God! You shouldn't have said. Now the forums are going to go nuts. Joe Rogan, Illuminati, Donald Trump.
I've said it before. He's a very friendly guy. Every single person that I know that has come in contact with Donald Trump Jr. has said he's a lovely man. Nothing but good things about him.
Let me ask you this: 100%. When you became more wealthy, when you became more successful, do you find yourself being more generous?
I've always been a generous person, but whenever I could be, because I realized the importance of camaraderie. I realized because I didn't have a lot of friends because I was constantly moving around. So when I had friends, I valued them greatly. Right. They were not disposable. Like my friends to me, like they are as important as my family. A bunch of my friends have lived with me.
Yeah.
You know, like when they've been broke. Like when I was single, especially, like Tate lived with me, Duncan lived with me. They were like, I got nowhere to go. I'm like, fuck you do. Come on, man.
So money just amplified your character. Didn't change it.
Well, it it helped me help people.
Right.
When I had the opportunity to do something. Look, if you see someone and they're a good friend and you have a bounty of wealth, like let's say a good friend is hungry and you have all this food, you would have to be some kind of piece of shit to say, don't eat my food that I can never possibly all eat myself.
Right.
You would want them to eat, so you feel better.
But my point is that's who you are, right? And I will say Joe has been generous with you've been generous with me in the sense of actually allowing me on the show, supporting content, whether people get mad about it or not, and I appreciate that. But the point is the money didn't change you. It amplifies. It's like alcohol. It amplifies your character. You're not a racist, and you.
Well, I'm not an alcoholic, so it amplifies my character.
Well, no, but I'm saying money amplified your character, right? And so that's important for people to know because you have, if you take that and you believe that again as a worldview, that money doesn't necessarily. It doesn't inherently change who you are. You'll find that you'll see just as many greedy poor people as you will wealthy people. And that's important because when we're deciding on some arbitrary number and we just toss it to democracy, you can have just as many greedy portions of the masses as you would big bankers, and they can just vote in their own self-interest, and that's not right either.
What do you mean by an arbitrary number? Like,
well, I'm saying, what should a CEO make, right? What's the fair minimum wage? And if you understand that there can be people making less than minimum wage who, if they got the Joe Rogan, they made their break. You worked really hard, but all of a sudden they have millions of dollars. They're just as greedy as they are making $13 an hour. Again, it's looking at the human condition.
Unquestionably, you're correct.
Yeah.
That there are people that don't care about other people's feelings no matter what they make. But I would say to you, do you have kids?
Not yet, no.
I would say to you as a parent that a big part of that was how they were treated while they were developing.
Sure.
And there's genetic variables. There's people that have illnesses, mental illnesses. There's all sorts of variables when it comes to who is Steven Crowder at 29 years of age.
Yeah.
Who are you? How'd you get to this point? Or who am I at 49 years of age? How did I get to this point?
You 49?
49.
You must moist your eyes.
Look good as fuck, right?
What was I was watching the other day where you lifted a kettlebell? You said, "I'm a strong motherfucker."
I probably didn't say that.
You did say that. You said those exact words.
What did I say?
It was with Brian Callen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a strong motherfucker.
Oh, that's right.
I'm a strong motherfucker, dude.
He was talking to me about, like, we were only talking about 450 pounds, like deadlifts. I'm like, dude, that's not that much.
Yeah, because you said you do it with a trap bar
450?
deadlift. Yeah. I had knee surgery recently, and so for me,
I know you went through the jiu-jitsu drawbacks, and then you got back in and blew your ACL out.
Well, actually, I tore my LCL, and the ACL was slightly torn, but they were like, the guy who does the surgery on the Red Wings, he came out and he goes, "Do you wrestle?" I said, yeah. He goes, okay, we rarely ever see an LCL that torn without a blown out ACL. He's like, did you do anything where your ankle was going towards your face? Guard pass.
Yeah.
But the problem is they went in and they fixed that, but that wasn't the real problem. The real problem is my kneecap. I guess whatever it is, the tissue that holds that in place is gone. And they said it would be easier if you had a torn ACL to fix because we know what it is. Like with a kneecap, take it out, do a replacement. There's really a 50-50
replace your kneecap?
I mean, he basically said there's no reason to do anything with a kneecap because we don't know what works.
Say if they replace it with an iron one.
Yeah.
And just start
just
fucking
go
people
Vanderlei,
up.
Silva throwing knees.
Rich Franklin versus Anderson Silva.
Oh,
and Anderson just rearranged his face.
That was so heartbreaking to watch.
You know, a lot of dudes wear steel cups.
The tie cups?
I don't necessarily think there's a law against it in the UFC. They started making laws against it in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Because you torque into the spine.
God damn it, I can't talk. No, here's the deal. I had a buddy of mine did it to me once. My friend Amir Renovardi. He got on top. No, he got on top of me, mounted me, and he had a steel cup on, and he was essentially fucking my solar plexus. It was totally uncomfortable because
I can imagine.
Well, it's metal. I mean, you have a metal piece, and it really affects arm bars in particular.
Yeah, it
because
really does.
It creates an unnatural fulcrum.
Well, a back take too is really uncomfortable.
Exactly,
with a cup. It's going into your lower spine.
Well, a regular cup, like I use a Diamond MMA cup. You know what those are? They're compression
They're in the shorts.
shorts.
Yeah.
They're in compression shorts, and the outside of them is like this rubberized thing.
Yep.
And the outside in the front is all like a really hard plastic. Like there's videos of them showing people taking like full groin shots on purpose.
Yeah,
while
that was their
wearing
advertisements, like getting kicked in the balls.
It really does protect you in an amazing way, but it doesn't hurt like one of those steel tie cups. So these dudes who are fucking real sadists, they get these steel tie cups. It's definitely an advantage. And
is that why they use it?
Oh yeah. Well, I think
Kenny
Kenny
Florian
Florian
used a steel
fought.
cup,
Yeah,
right?
I was just gonna say Kenny Florian fought with it. I'm pretty sure he
follow
fought
MMA
with it
pretty closely.
Like if you fucking mess up and you kicked Kenny Florian in the dick, you're gonna break your foot, kid.
Imagine that though. That bar fight. Hey, why are you walking with a limp? I kicked Kenny Florian in the dick.
Well, I'm sure he doesn't wear it to the bar. I'm talking about in a cage.
You
fight.
don't know. That's a judgment
I
you're
would
making.
judge Kenny. Yeah, but he wears tight pants. There's no way. There's no way he's got a fucking.
You don't know
tie
who he has
steel
to
cup
impress
on.
at the local dive.
There's no one that he's looking to impress. He's a married man. You son of a bitch. I thought you were conservative.
Kenny Florian.
How dare you go there? I'm going to take more tobacco and pack it in like
No,
a lady
I
man.
ask that. I don't ask that to kiss ass and say, "Look, Joe Rogan's so generous." But I do believe, again, going with the
Listen,
idea of isms.
This is a message to people that like wonder whether they should be generous or not. Generosity makes you feel better. It does. It just does. Like it's not a selfish thing. To like this idea that, not necessarily not a selfish thing. This idea that to keep your money yourself, you're protecting yourself. You're looking out for number one. It's not true.
Right.
It's the wrong way to think because when you're generous, especially when you're generous to friends, it's super important the people you actually love that you express that to those people. When you do that, it's good for you too. It just doesn't seem like it's good for you because people are so survival oriented.
There's a great book called "Who Really Cares."
It's
by,
about famine
is it
mentality.
Arthur Brooks or David Brooks, but he went out kind of seeing who actually donates and who's generous and kind of going by political persuasion, by geographical, by just the whole
Let me
landscape.
guess, conservatives are number one,
Yes. So, but
especially religious ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is actually true.
especially ones from fucking Michigan.
First off,
Minnesota,
stop mentioning my
whatever, same
my
shit.
home state, especially with jihadis out there. You've seen the Muslim
Jihad.
videos. But there is the ism, and this is one thing that I do sincerely believe, and this is why I don't shy away from saying, listen, I'm a conservative. You said something that was pretty telling. You said, because I wanted to work hard, I never wanted to be beholden to someone again, right? So you made that decision. Well, you knew that if you did that and you worked hard, then you wouldn't be beholden to someone else. That was the assumption
Yes.
you made. Okay.
But
So
there's a
that-
lot
hold on.
of
Well, hold on. Let me
okay,
just go with
please
this real
do.
quick. The assumption that is free enterprise. Free enterprise, or capitalism, to use the term, right?
Right.
It can only work under an optimistic society, under people believing they can retire and do better. Socialism, collectivism, can only operate by appealing to people's most selfish nature, by appealing to people saying, listen, the deck is stacked against you. You can't do this. There's someone else out there who has an ace in the hole. You've been born without the leg up that they have. Therefore, I need to help you. That is the big difference. Capitalism can only survive in optimism, whereas collectivism requires the worst of human nature to sustain itself.
Maybe.
I believe
Maybe.
that.
But wouldn't it be nicer if someone figured out a way to say, hey, how much do you really need? Instead of saying you have to
No.
do this and put people
Sounds like
back
a
on their
nightmare.
heels.
That
No.
sounds like a nightmare.
No,
I won't
that's
go
not what I'm
with you.
saying. What I'm saying is, can you contribute a small amount that's not even going to affect you, but it's going to help other people? And do you do that? And if you do that, how do you do it? Do you do it in the form of generosity? Like, do you tip waitresses more than you should?
Yeah.
Do you do it in the form of giving out to charities that you feel are very worthy and, you've researched them and you know the people that are behind them? Do you do it in terms of, social work do you do? Do you do it in terms of putting out informational videos that help people figure out how they can advance their own lives? We all do in certain, and I know you do too, certain charitable things amongst people we care about. When you address causes that you care about, you go out of your way in a non-selfish way
Right.
to try to illuminate certain things or add to the coffers of certain organizations that are doing what you
Right.
think are good things.
I agree.
But that should be enforced more than the idea that some people are fucking you, right?
Right. Well, I agree with you, and that's again that idea, like you're talking about. Why are you giving to this cause? Why are you donating your time? Right? It comes down to either donating money or time. Really, at the end of the day, it's some sort of material goods or time, because you're doing it with the belief that you'll help people. It doesn't work if you're being forced to, because you don't
Well, there's
believe
some
it.
people that do it for a tax break.
No, that's silly. No one gives away $100,000 to get a $40,000 tax break. The math doesn't.
You
add up.
might have to if you run some fucking LLC. You might have some weird shit.
I'm an
you have to-
LLC. Aren't you an LLC?
Of course, son. How dare you?
I'm talking about the other LLC,
Bro, I
son.
smoke pipes. Been smoking a pipe.
It smells.
For
It smells
2
amazing
hours.
though, doesn't it?
It's good.
It really does smell good. That's
It's definitely way better than cigarettes, which shows you how much the FDA has been fucking you.
Well, actually, now pipes are a controlled tobacco product, which they didn't used to be. But it's all the chemicals that are actually added to cigarettes.
Wait a
You and
minute,
I
what does
can
that
get more-
mean? Does it mean it's hard to get? I have to show
There's
my
something
ID
that's-
to get pipe
no,
tobacco.
There's something
Fucking
that changed
communists.
because with pipe tobaccos, a lot of these a local tobacco shop, they'll do their own blends, so they'll buy pipe tobacco in bulk, like that seersucker from someplace in one of the Carolinas, and I think that's changing. So it actually removes the artistry, where a lot of people like this is the blend I can get in, I don't know, Holland, Michigan. You can't get anywhere else. It's amazing. That's going away, and what that does, FDA steps in. Is what does it do? It favors the big boys who send out their tins from one centralized company. The smaller tobacconists can't compete.
That's the worry about marijuana.
Well, right. If it'll go legal, you don't need these dispensaries anymore, right? Isn't that kind of what'll happen? They'll be out of business.
Exactly. It's a problem.
Well, what?
But also, people, it's okay to possess it and it's okay to sell it. Or your friends can give you some. It's the most satisfying weed I ever got. My yoga teacher gave it to me.
That sounds about right.
How about that?
Every time my wife goes in there trying to give her some kind of weird incense or new essential
Every
oil.
time?
She
goes to the pot stores?
No, yoga.
Oh, yoga.
There's always something they're
There's a big
selling.
difference between essential oils and pot.
No, not pot, but they're always got something they want to put on, incense or something. There's this, my point is you're beholden to the yoga instructor, so they use it sometimes as a sales pitch.
Nonsense. My yoga instructor's pure and she's my friend.
What's with the
Fuck.
posing with the pipe?
Fuck you.
For those who can't see, when Joe just said "fuck you," it actually blew out his own lighter.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you, right wing.
Listen, I mean,
I sit firmly in the flip-flopping position of the middle.
you don't though. You're pretty. Here's the thing. You're pretty fair, and I do like to think that. I mean, it's really hard to get leftist guests on our show. That's just a reality. We try and book them, and then after a couple of times,
Who's the most leftist guest you've ever had?
Well, we had Imam Chowdhury, who actually said I should die on air.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's the guy who now he's in jail for giving to ISIS or something from the UK. So we had to create a whole new Skype
He said
address
you
for
should
that.
die on air? Mm-hmm. Why did he say you should die?
Oh, because I did a Three Stooges routine dressing up as Muhammad, beating
remember
the shit
that.
out of his 3-year-old wife.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? You should die for that. You
Yeah.
should die for dressing up as a guy.
Outside of that, Sally Cohn is pretty far left. Christopher Titus. We had to.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
I thought I want to talk about Michael Woods Jr. because we tried to
We
have
can-
him on.
we
He wouldn't
can-
come on.
The Christopher Titus debate was one of the most painful ones I've ever watched. Was it painful for you?
It was because I felt as though I usually do try and get into an engagement of ideas, and he was just screaming so much.
It was more painful for me because I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And
Why don't you care about dead kids?
Something went wrong somewhere along the line to get him to that place where he's arguing about something where he really doesn't know the facts.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that. It was when you were throwing out laws, regulations. He just didn't know enough and kept arguing about it. You know when someone's arguing about something and they don't know exactly what they're talking about?
Yeah.
And they've gone down a dark road, and instead of saying, okay, I can't really talk about this because I don't have any facts at my disposal. Instead of doing that, he kept arguing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Jesus. And I contacted you afterwards, like,
I know.
Jesus, bro, this was rough.
Well,
and
he was also-
you were very nice about that. You were very nice to him while it was going on because it was fucking ugly. And you were very nice afterwards. You didn't gloat.
We had him back. We had him back one time because I
Give him a
wanted to
chance.
find some common
Papa
ground.
Xanax.
He just gets so mad.
Yes.
Sally Cohn.
Well, he's saying you don't care about dead kids. Like it got.
That's the motive thing that I'm talking about. And here's the thing: I don't shy
But
away from
It wasn't
my.
a motive thing. It was a conversational debate ploy. It's like it was a crude debate
on.
ploy. He was trying to box you into a corner.
I want to say this because I appreciate Christopher Titus, and we talked off air. He's
I
a
do
nice
too.
Guy.
He's a nice guy.
Whereas someone like a Michael Woods Jr. who refused to come on the show, tried to leverage coming on this show to debate me, is dishonest. And someone who's afraid, or Michael Ian Black, who I recently got into it with. Hopefully he'll come on the show. A lot of times,
Why'd you get in it with him?
literally, I was on air, and all he did was, we talked about this last time, my video on rape culture. You saw it. With the Lena Dunham thing where it's 1 in 4 women are raped. And in the video, I literally say, I'm not saying rape isn't a horrible crime and those people should be buried beneath the train tracks. Okay. I'm also not apologizing for it. I literally say that in the video.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then I get into the stats as to why rape culture doesn't exist in the United States and it does in the Middle East. So all Michael Ian Black tweets out is a portion of that video, a snippet that is not the statistics that I present, a snippet that's a sketch cutaway, just tweets out, holy shit. And this is the thing that a lot of
But if
people
someone
do.
sent that to him, If he got a clip
Well,
and
hold
he
on,
saw that clip.
It goes further. So it just tweets out, holy shit. And this is a constant thing, right, that often people who disagree with me politically, who I identify as a left, go, Crowder doesn't think there's a rape culture. And so if they say it as though it's absurd enough, people go, yeah, that's silly. But I say, well, hold on, tell me why I'm wrong. And so I said, well, come on the show, tell me why I'm wrong. And he said, well, I wouldn't want two straight white guys debating rape culture. I'd rather you talk with someone who's a victim of rape or a woman who would have a better handle on it. So I said, okay, how about you talk with one of my two head writers, Casey or Courtney? They disagree with you, they'd be glad to debate it. No, I don't think this is going to go. And then I had to call him out on air to the point where he's agreed to come on next Thursday. But again, the point is, holy shit, this is absurd. Why is it absurd? Tell me why I don't want to show up. If you have to ask, then you don't know. And that's the position today that we see on cable news, that we see from in this election, but you particularly see from people trying to silence dissent.
I love the idea of, as a white man, you shouldn't be able to talk about this certain thing. You should be able to talk about bugs on Jupiter, okay? It doesn't fucking matter what your sexual orientation is, what your gender is, what your race is. You should be able to talk about things.
Right.
Just because you talk to somebody about something doesn't mean you're the premier expert of it.
Right.
You the premier? You're the premier expert of it.
No.
You should be able to talk about things.
I think you're right. And
That's a silly. It's a plea to the left.
Yeah.
That really is. That's a plea. What that is you're saying things that you think people could possibly criticize you about, and you're cutting it off at the pass before their preposterous ideas get to you and your Twitter feed.
Well, to me, I mean, like you said, you disagree with people on certain things, but you're not a coward ideologically. I'm not talking about physically, but you'll allow people on who you disagree with, and you'll change your mind.
I would definitely change my mind. I'm not married to my ideas as much as I get criticized for that.
No, I think you're pretty consistent in that. And I think on the flip side, what we try and do is I say, listen, this is my bias. This is what I believe.
What's your bias?
Well, my bias, like you said, I'm right wing. I'm conservative.
If you had to if you go, God damn it, maybe I went too far down this road. If I could just relax one aspect of my dialogue, what would it be? Maybe it would be my pipe smoking.
Your pipe smoking? I probably wouldn't talk about the marijuana issue.
That
I wouldn't care, because here's the thing: I don't care about it. I
one
really
way
don't.
or the other.
But my issue with it is when, and we saw this in Montreal, I talked about it when people lie about it and they're dishonest with their voting constituency.
Like how so?
Well, saying, it's medicine for A, B, C, or D. It may be medicine for A, but not for B, C, or D.
Well, what are the B, C's, and D's?
Well,
what are the things that's not medicine
an example.
for?
Well, you're asking me what I wouldn't talk about, and asking me to defend it. My point is, I don't really care about it.
But what are the B, C's, and D? What you said
it cures
specific.
cancer.
Well, there has been shown
it helps with cancer about as much as turmeric and ginger. Those things
all
help
those
with
anti-inflammatory
cancer.
things.
Yeah, I know, but it's not a prescription.
But CBD has been shown to have
seizures.
tremendous benefits for cancer and non-psychoactive.
Yeah, and certainly with seizures. I have zero problem with CBD being legalized. But my
Which is
issue
also
is
cannabis.
I'll have to, I feel the need to call people out in bullshit when they say, well, the reason it's not is because of big pharmaceutical companies. Go, hold on a second. There's 7 patents on chemical compounds for marijuana right now.
Right.
The people who stand to make the most out of marijuana legalization are pharmaceutical companies. That's why they make.
That's not true.
Well, it is. If you look at the biggest supplement companies,
because
it's owned by the same pharmaceutical companies.
But you can't patent
and the one
plant.
Yes, you can. They've patented seven at
you
least.
You can patent strains that are GMOs.
No. 7 active chemical compounds in pot that have been patented as drugs. They've gone through the process.
Yeah,
There's
but
one
you
that's
can't
really
patent it
efficient.
to the point where you can't grow pot. How would you stop someone if pot's
sure you can.
legal? If pot's legal, how would anyone? And if that's the truth, then that's a real problem.
If pot is recognized as a medicine, right? If pot is recognized, there is no one who would stand to gain more than pharmaceutical companies by providing it as medicine.
That's not necessarily true if people are allowed to grow it themselves.
Maybe it's not necessarily true. I'll give you that. But I also think it's not necessarily true that the reason people can't smoke up is because Big Pharma is sitting somewhere, Martin Shkreli going, oh, let's make pot illegal.
Well, not that
That's
guy.
my only point.
But there are absolutely people who have lobbied, as we talked about how the prison guard union has lobbied to keep marijuana illegal. There's absolutely pharmaceutical companies who have done the same thing. It was revealed in the WikiLeaks memos.
See, this is where I was saying don't care about
don't
this.
interrupt me, you fuck. Where Hillary Clinton said that she's against marijuana in every sense of the word, right? You remember those
Trump's
WikiLeaks
pretty against it
papers
too.
that came out?
Yeah.
Is he? He said he would leave it up to the states.
Yeah.
That's actually a constitutional approach.
But he wants to beef up the war on drugs.
You know why? I bet someone slipped him a pot cookie once and he looked at his hair in the mirror. And
No, he's a teetotaler. He doesn't even drink.
What the fuck?
Sold vodka, doesn't drink, Donald Trump. It's crazy.
Yeah. Ever?
No, he says he claims he's never had a
Colorado
drop.
topped $1 billion in legal marijuana sales in 2016.
Good.
Holla.
Yeah.
holla at Colorado.
Yeah. But another thing that we just wrote about, and again, people get mad with the weed issue.
Economics.
Well, no. Traffic fatalities regarding marijuana have skyrocketed.
Google that because that's nonsense.
No,
you
we
know,
wrote about it at loudandbetter.com.
drunk driving arrests have dropped. What do you mean you've? First of all,
Yeah, we wrote about what the sources
first of
are,
all,
original studies.
Just because someone gets in an accident and they're high,
See,
because hold on, stop.
No, hold on a second. This is
you
because you just
interrupt
want-
way too much.
No,
You need to stop.
you talk in
hold on
paragraphs.
a second. No. I don't talk in
Go ahead.
paragraphs. I make full points. If people are high a lot
Yeah.
and the same amount of fatalities exist, but the people that get checked once they get into these accidents happen to be high, it does not necessarily mean that marijuana caused those fatalities. It could be that you have an increased incidence of people doing marijuana and altercations that could not have been avoided.
It could be.
It could be.
But the statistical change is measurable.
well, what is
from
it?
pre and
You're
post.
talking about in Colorado.
In states where it's been decriminalized or
Let's
legalized.
go with Colorado. Pull it
So,
up,
hold on a
Jamie.
second, hold on a second. You just said, let me make my point. Again, my point is I don't care about it.
Yeah, you do.
No, I really don't.
You don't care about
no, here's the
people
thing.
dying,
You
you
get
son of
no,
a
no, you get
bitch.
so touchy about it because someone says, you know what? If people want to smoke up, fine. I just don't really buy the arguments that everyone is in some big conspiracy to try and snuff it out.
No, there
and
are
the
some.
idea and the idea that the drug war will end and the idea that it cures cancer. I just don't buy that, and
Well, it
people get
does.
so upset.
Well, listen,
That's my only point. That's why I
scientific
wouldn't talk about
studies
it.
have proven that it shrinks tumors, that it helps people with cancer. Much like turmeric, much like any things that reduce inflammation, including
Turmeric,
CBD
ginger,
oil.
tart cherry.
Right, but it's not necessarily
fighting
a
for those to be-
magical. They're all legal, and there's no issue because they're not psychoactive.
Right.
But they are beneficial. So all these things are good. Marijuana is one of the things that are good. And don't shore, man. Just like you don't shore turmeric, you don't shore ginger, you don't shore a reduced sugar diet. All those things that reduce inflammation are good
Yeah,
for you.
I don't buy that smoking marijuana would be as beneficial as a reduced sugar diet. And my point is that
you
people get
might
so
be-
offended
you
by
might
me
be
saying that
correct.
and saying, but if you want to smoke, go ahead.
You might be correct,
Shouldn't be
but
offensive.
it doesn't matter because it's not a fucking contest to see what's the most beneficial. The question is it beneficial and is it damaging?
It is. It does matter. That the
What's
fact
damaging?
That you said no. Let me finish my point. It does matter. You said, what would you not talk about? I said probably pot because I don't care. Well, what do you think
You
about it?
definitely
I said,
care. That's
this
why
is
you're
what
arguing
I think
with me
about,
about it.
And your eyes
Lying.
light up, and all of a
Lying
sudden,
bitch. You
where
care.
ideology and
You care
worldviews
like crazy.
shouldn't be discussed.
No, you
You're
care.
going to laser in like a tractor beam on the most important issue of the day. That I said I don't care.
You're the guy that thinks people should be able to do whatever. You're a free
Yes,
market guy,
that's
right?
what I just said.
So if you're a free
Smoke
market
pot.
guy, why wouldn't you be in support of something, whether it's the most
I just
beneficial
said I am.
or equally
I just
beneficial?
said I am.
But you're not necessarily because
I
you're
am.
denying.
But because
you're
right now of the
denying-
chemical compounds,
Hold on, fuckface. You're
Watch
denying.
it. Come on, it's been a good
Come on,
conversation.
We're friends. I'm just joking. Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado are at
Well, hold on a
near
second.
historic lows.
You haven't bringing up the source that you want to find.
Washington
Bring up the
Post.
study right there. Yeah, Washington Post. Bring up the study that we wrote. We wrote about it on our website.
Look, I don't care about your website, you fuck. Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado
Since you
are
called me a
at
hold on a second.
near
Since you called me hold on a second. Since you called me a
historic
fucking a puss, and you do this with the crazy
No,
lady at a
come
comedy
on,
club,
buddy, I
you
like
think if
you.
you scream enough that it makes a point. My point is, I don't care
don't
about
think
it.
that if we
Smoke
scream
up.
enough-
And you just said I wasn't interrupting. You're interrupting now and
Listen,
screaming.
because
I don't
Jamie
care about it
put
enough.
up a post, and you're not.
But I
you're
don't buy
ignoring
that
it.
it's as valuable as a low sugar diet. And the fact
Doesn't have to
the
be
fact
as
that
valuable.
you can't have a conversation about this as civilly as you did every other issue tells me that there's
not true.
there's a problem. This
It's not
is
true.
this is a TNT powder keg.
I can.
This
The
issue
problem
with
is
pot.
I get very defensive when people start talking over me, and you started it first. But the reality is that a low sugar diet is fine.
Sure.
It's good too. Why is there a competition between a low sugar diet and turmeric and marijuana and CBD oil? Why? Why does it
Because
even have
one
to be
is
discussed?
making the claim regarding legality that it cures cancer.
Because
my
the
only
other
point is I
ones
don't
are
believe
legal.
it. No, my only point is
Because
fine.
the other ones are already legal. They don't have to fight
Yeah,
for
but
it.
no one's prescribing, no one's dishing out dispensaries for turmeric or ginger.
They
That's my
certainly
point.
are. If you go to these local juice shops,
Anyway.
you go to these juice shops, people are promoting
couldn't care
ginger
less
like
people want to
crazy,
smoke
turmeric
joints.
like crazy.
I
Go
couldn't care
online.
if people couldn't care less people want to smoke joints.
You're an ideologue, buddy.
Really? That's an ideologue position by saying leave it to the states?
Yeah, you're locked in, man.
Really?
You're locked deep into this fucking
Locked
red
how so?
state thing, man.
I was raised in a socialist province
where
of
your
Quebec.
bread is buttered, buddy.
A socialist province of
And
Quebec. Kevin
meanwhile,
Smith?
you're over here in America, fucking just as much of an immigrant as some dude who sneaks over the wall that Trump just built.
I was born in Detroit, so that remains to be seen. It could be annexed. It's a horrible place. It's a
not
horrible.
bad.
Detroit?
Have you seen that thing where there's a guy who is making an urban farm in Detroit?
Oh, that's very common in Detroit now.
Well, he's got the largest urban farm,
Yeah.
and he's bought up all this land. And as he's bought up all this land, he's taking these like dilapidated houses, they tear them down, he's building his farm. Really cheap land, and people are getting pissed off at him. They're getting pissed off because this one guy now buys all this land. They're like, well, what about us?
Yeah.
And there's this weird thing that's going on where people somehow or another are mad at this guy who's trying to do something positive.
If I'm not mistaken on that story, I could be wrong, but urban farming was a real. We wrote about that when we did this report in Detroit. I was telling actually Jamie about it beforehand. We did a real-time ride-along because people said we selectively edited the worst parts of Detroit. So I went back with my producer, Not Gay Jared. We said, okay, we're going to start dead center downtown Detroit where all the hipsters drink their coffee and talk about how it's being revived. We will drive out in 3 different directions. We put a GoPro on top of the car, GoPro in the car, a mileage tab, and a timer clock. And it never took more than about I think 0.9 miles out of the city to certain death, an unbelievable urban plight. The crazy thing about Detroit is you'll see downtown Detroit, and then you look to the left, and it looks like the Upper Peninsula. There's nothing there. It's so desolate. And if I'm not mistaken with that story, everyone was doing urban farming, but there were some problems with the soil. And so there was a guy who probably found out he could make money if he improved the soil, and he got it down to a system that was more efficient. And people didn't like that aspect of it because now it's the big urban farmer, right? And they're always
Well, it's a wealthy guy who bought up a lot of land.
Right.
And he's a white guy, and he bought it up in this, really urban area. And, the buildings were all fucked up, and somehow or another people felt like somebody was encroaching in their neighborhood that they had watched deteriorate.
There's no one there. There's no one there in those neighborhoods.
There's some people there, but the point is they felt like that should have been somehow or another a part of their world, which is weird. It's weird to think that you deserve something because that's where you live. I think, like we were talking earlier about Uber and all these things, change is a real part of being an organism that lives on a planet.
Right.
And whether it's change because of nature, like the shoreline changes, the ocean rises, tsunamis hit the coast, earthquakes change the landscape, volcanoes, whether it's that kind of change or whether it's economic change or whether it's technological change, there's going to be change.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to stop change, you're on the wrong side of history. It's not going to work. You're going to try, and it's eventually going to overcome you.
Yeah, I think my view is you should allow people to be the change they seek, as Barack Obama put it, and shouldn't try to force change.
But if you live in a shit neighborhood and some dude wants to break down the terrible houses and build a farm, that's not necessarily a bad idea.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah,
I mean, they have, when we did our video in Detroit, packs of wild dogs roaming the streets in Detroit.
Oh, that's real. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
And we got fact-checked on it because we did a video on this where we said, packs of... And then I made a joke where I said, apparently there have been grizzly bear sightings, so hopefully this will be our next National Geographic special.
There's been black bear sightings.
Right, but I got fact-checked. I don't know if it was back then. I don't remember if it was Snopes or something. Someone saying, Steven Crowder made the claim that grizzly bears were in Detroit. Fact check reveals that only black bears have been in the action. And I was sitting there like...
Well, you should fact check them because black bears are more likely to be predatory on human beings than grizzly bears.
Is that just because of more common interactions, though, statistically?
You're very smart. You're right. That's right.
Kind of like sharks. It occurs in 3 to 4 feet of water. That's where people are swimming.
Exactly. But that is the case with grizzly bears are way more aggressive.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily associate human beings with food.
Are you supposed to play dead or run with a grizzly bear? You would know that probably.
It depends entirely on why the grizzly bear is attacking you. The reality is, if a grizzly bear is attacking you because she's with her cubs, you're better off playing dead. You're better off covering up, protecting your vitals, getting in the turtle position, and taking your beatings.
And kiss your ass goodbye.
She's going to fuck you up, but she might leave you alone if you just lay still, and then she feels like she can run away. She's going to fuck you up no matter what. She's going to incapacitate you. But if an old male or a predatory male that has killed another human being and recognizes human beings as food, that has happened before, where hikers have disappeared. And hikers disappear all the time to the tune of hundreds of people every year just vanish.
I read that actually polar bears will stalk people.
Well, that's a different animal.
Yeah, I read that
polar bears are completely predatory.
Yeah.
which means they don't eat any vegetation. You can get lucky with grizzly bears, where grizzly bears can have a fucking field of blueberries, and they don't want to have anything to do with you. Because blueberries are delicious, they don't run, and they can just sit there and eat, and they don't have any hunger pangs.
Really?
Yeah.
How many blueberries would it take to feed a grizzly bear?
Well, there's, you're talking about Alaska, like a mountainside. Like in the spring or in the fall, rather, like before they go into hibernation, that's what they primarily eat because all that sugar just gets like straight into the fat, into their bodies, and they store it up big, thick fat layers.
Yeah.
But an animal that has already killed a person is where it becomes a real problem. It's not that animals are evil or animals target people. It's they recognize food sources that they've already eaten.
Did you see those people who were protesting? They were really mad, the rangers at Yellowstone Park. So they're very strict that you cannot feed the bears, you cannot interact with them. And what they do is they had a bear that wasn't necessarily aggressive. They do this all the time, but there was some specific instance that pissed people off. Wasn't necessarily being aggressive, but learned that people would throw food at it. And so they're going, well, not only can we not have that bear doing it, but we can't have other bears seeing that bear as an example. So what they do, their first step is taking the bear far away, somehow transporting them, sedating them. And if it comes back either a second or third time,
They euthanize.
They have to.
Yeah.
And all these people were furious, and they're going, no, we're doing this so that the bears don't become dependent on humans for food. If you euthanize one bear, that prevents the rest of them. They no longer can forage, can hunt for themselves because they realize these people are going to throw us a sandwich. And that's a great example of just people not knowing, not being informed enough on an issue, and instead deciding to be outraged. Like, I don't know about grizzly bears. I assume the Yellowstone Rangers kind of have their crap together on it.
Well, that's also like PETA people that don't want to admit that PETA kills thousands of cats and dogs every year.
And their head's a diabetic who uses insulin, which came to you courtesy of animal testing.
Yeah, but she feels like that's okay because she's a
fat.
vegan, whatever.
Because she's skinny fat.
But there's a great podcast that's available right now, the most recent Meat Eater podcast with Steve Rinella, where he talks to a bear biologist who discusses the history of Yellowstone. At one point in time, the dumps where people in restaurants used to dump all their food was places where people would go
to watch
bears.
We did it at a campground.
Wow.
There was
what year was this?
Gosh, 90s.
Where were you? Not in Yellowstone.
No, this was in Canada.
Okay, they'd already made it illegal in Yellowstone, I think.
There were no
by
bears
then.
when we went. We just drove by. There was no one, but it was like, yeah, if you go down to this area, it's really cool. You get to see the bears foraging. We didn't think
in
anything of it.
Yellowstone, it was one of the main mortality. Like if you look at like mortality events, it was a huge mortality event because they went cold turkey. They stopped dumping all the trash there, and these bears had become acclimated so much so that they had stopped learning how to forage for food, and bears died like en masse.
Yeah.
It's really kind of crazy.
That's also the flip side, with a rescue dog, where I tell people, like, we have a rescue dog, and people get so offended when I say, but if you have kids, probably better to go from a breeder Because, for example, Hopper on the road, we don't know. We don't know what happened to him. He happens to be the most affectionate, loving dog that we've known. But a dog like that, that's starving, can learn to become much more of a wild dog. That can be trained in them.
Because they're scared.
They're
Because
scared.
they've been scared.
And you bring him in, for example, Hopper, he gets recall, any gun, ever since we've had him. Any handgun, rifle, pull it out. Goes nuts.
So he's seen guns.
He's seen something in a negative connotation with guns.
Jesus.
You can't know that. So if you have some kid and he pulls out a squirt, now he's not aggressive. He's just a bark if he doesn't like something. And people, I don't know if it was PETA, some animal person got really mad. Well, there's so many dogs that need homes. I'm going, listen, I've rescued a dog. I think if you know what you're handling, you should if you're able. But if you have kids who don't have a lot of dog training and you don't know where this dog's come from, I place kids higher on the totem pole than dogs.
How dare you? You're a speciesist.
I know, I am a speciesist.
That's a new thing.
It is
Was
a new
there
thing.
a speciesism when we were kids? Jamie, you were younger.
There was that film Species where that blonde chick.
That's different. Where'd she go? She quit.
I don't know. She's probably doing softcore pornography.
How dare you? Maybe she's writing books.
Well, the so I didn't know that. I've never thought of black bears as being aggressive toward people.
Yeah, man. Rinella, the same guy who has the podcast I was talking about, told me a story of a guy who went on his very first hunt, and while he was in his tent, a 500-pound predatory grizzly bear attacked him. His friend shot the bear and hit him in the wrist. The bear takes off out of the tent, goes to another dude's tent, and they shoot it in that tent to kill it. So everyone's covered in blood and hair. And
Did they kill it?
yeah, they killed it. But I mean, the guy had a bullet wound in his wrist. He had been mauled by this bear. I mean, this is his first hunting trip ever.
Did you see the Reverend?
Yes.
You know, did you remember that there was a rumor before that film came out that Leonardo DiCaprio gets raped by the bear? Did you read that? That was front page at Drudge.
You are on the wrong website.
No, it was front page at Drudge.
Exactly.
Where people were
you
so
are
outraged.
on the wrong websites.
And I remember thinking about that, and I remember watching it going, this is an example of fake news. Whether it's the right or the left, is going, this is clearly not a bear rape scene. But it was a huge rumor that was going around. People saying, don't go see the Revenant.
It wasn't huge enough to reach my Twitter page.
Well, you have a big Twitter page.
You're just too into it, man. You're too deep into the news of the world.
I told this story to Chris Lieben at the Revenant. So we're there. I swear this is true. And Chris Lieben thought it was faking it. So we're watching the Revenant, and it's right at that scene where he cauterizes his wound, remember with the gunpowder on his neck? So we're sitting there, and we're watching it, and he's screaming. And so for a second, we didn't realize it. A few rows down, a guy's all of a sudden starts projectile vomiting while Leonardo's on screen going, and we're looking and we're going, oh my God, we think he starts shaking. We think he's having a seizure. My wife, being a sweetheart, goes, okay, everybody, move away. Someone call 911. And his wife or his girlfriend says, like, sweetie, he's like, and it's going down 2 rows. I wait for the ambulance. They come in. The guy has vomit all over him. I think someone who's sitting in front of him had vomit on the back of his head. They thought for sure he had a seizure. Turns out he had fallen asleep and inhaled a popcorn kernel. And he was just choking. And
Perfect timing.
And then aspirating on his own vomit. So we're watching this film, The Revenant, one of the most graphic scenes in cinematic modern history. And everyone's, what the hell is going on?
Wow.
And
what a coincidence.
Yeah. And the guy was embarrassed. He just fell asleep. It's not a cool story. I fell
Imagine
asleep.
if it was a scene like, you remember that movie? What was that movie with, not Matt Damon, Matt Dillon? What was the movie where the 2 girls are making out by the pool?
Stranger? No.
Wild Things with Neve Campbell.
Wild Things, yeah. What if he watched that movie? What if that scene was going down and that popcorn kernel got stuck in his mouth and he started projectile vomiting?
Why would that be worse?
It'd be way worse.
Just be more awkward.
It makes sense. Like the guy's scared. There's a bear. He's killing Leonardo DiCaprio. No, don't kill Leo. Don't do it to him. He's the king of the world. No. He's in the front of the fucking Titanic. Don't do it. People freak out at like a bear attack. But if you're freaking out at like a lesbian event, it turns out it was just coincidentally just popcorn.
And that's a story people are going to tell about you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, Bobby saw these 2 broads making out. They were hot.
Choked on his popcorn.
He's alone. He's by himself. He just starts hurling. Changed his life, bro.
Said he choked on popcorn, but we know that's bullshit. Oh my gosh, I've never seen it like. I mean, from here to that like Buddha statue.
The kid in the pie eating contest in that Stephen King movie, Stand By Me. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
the blueberry pie contest.
I would say this is worse because it wasn't like a flow. It was pressurized.
It's funny
because he was also holding his mouth, so it's coming out through a crack. Like this, where it's going, it's squirting. So it was.
He fell asleep with a popcorn kernel in his mouth
at the Revenant
in the middle of that fucking really exciting movie.
In the middle of that scene, right where he's cauterizing the wound in his neck.
Fucking
I felt bad for him. I mean, imagine that if that wasn't his wife, that wasn't his fiance. There's a good chance they're not together.
Did you think that movie was based on real life events?
I have no idea. Was it?
Supposedly, but incorrectly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not.
Someone
based
should fact
on a
check
guy.
That. Fake news.
They already have.
Oh, really?
Didn't happen in an environment anything like the environment they filmed it in. They filmed it in this like tropical rainforest in British Columbia. The guy never had a son when Leonardo DiCaprio's son is killed in front of him. The only thing that was true was the guy got mauled by a bear and made it back to camp. All that other shit, they left him for dead. They left him for dead. He actually survived. He made it back to camp. That's it. And he's like, what the fuck, bro? And the guy's like, sorry, I thought you were dead. And that's it. That's the movie.
But that was the entire teaser was the lead up to the bear attack.
And it was him going back and killing the guy who left him behind, who also killed his son. There was no son. Nobody killed anybody. He got fucked up by a bear, and they left him alone.
That's interesting when you think about that. You go back and do you like Weston Price? You know that Weston Price Foundation where they do like the fermented cod liver oil and stuff, and they're a big catalyst for like eating real fats and stuff. And the guy claims,
I'm not aware of this. What is it?
Yeah, I think it's Weston A. Price Foundation, where it advocates traditional like organ meats.
Around for a long time.
Yeah. I think his name is Weston Price. And because I always watch those movies like The Revenant, and I go, could you imagine how much it smelled, or imagine what their teeth were like? And this guy, this guy claimed he went down to third world sort of African nations where they didn't brush their teeth, but they had perfect smiles. And he claims it was because I don't know if it's true at all. But he says it was because they ate a lot of organ meats. They were getting a lot of vitamin K, natural vitamin D, as opposed to kind of the sugary lifestyle with refined carbohydrates in the New World. And that's a big part of like this whole kind of high saturated fat, organs, bone broths. It's called like Weston something Price Foundation. But I remember there were these pictures side by side of people in the New World who were on largely grain-fed diets. And these people who were basically third world sort of tribesmen, but they had these beautiful white teeth.
That makes sense in some ways, that people that live natural lives with natural foods without anything processed would be healthier.
Yeah, but the teeth? I mean, they were nice white teeth.
Well, sugar for sure definitely deteriorates your teeth. We know that. We know that kids who eat a lot of sugar and don't brush their teeth, and I think a lot of that is also that stuff getting caught in your gums and your teeth, and it's just not good. It causes tooth decay. We know that.
Yep. And the worst thing is sugar-free gummy bears. You ever read those reviews on Amazon?
God, what do they do to your asshole?
That's exactly what the reviews are on Amazon. I swear to you, if you just Google sugar-free gummy bears, it's just like, my asshole has never been the same size since. It's just a bunch of people who trolled the Amazon review section for sugar-free gummy bears. If you're ever just looking for a laugh on a Sunday afternoon, read the Amazon reviews for sugar-free Haribo gummy bears.
Do you remember Olestra? There was an additive to like potato chips. Olestra just makes people just rocket shit out of their asshole.
Do they allow it anymore?
No. Well, trans fats are now they're illegal, but there's a grace period until 2018, I believe, or maybe 19,
right,
where companies are allowed to still use that stuff in their potato chips or whatever the fuck they sell up until like then. Like that's it. Like you can poison people for 2 more years. That's it.
Well, you know why we use trans
terrible
fats?
For you
because of the same environmental vegetarian lobby who, back then McDonald's used beef tallow for their fries. It was, no, you need to be using vegetable oil, hydrogenated vegetable oil. So that was a bunch of lobbyists.
Yeah.
That's why we started eating trans fats. And now they're going, actually, margarine is not as good for you as butter. And they've changed. But that was a huge, powerful lobbying group where the vegetarians, the San Francisco kind of hippie era, that's why trans fats became ubiquitous.
Well, it was also a byproduct of the sugar industry bribing scientists to lie about the beneficial qualities of their sugar. I mean, they just pretended that sugar's fine.
Corn was a big thing too.
It's saturated fat that's the issue. And everybody went, shit, we got to get some margarine.
Yeah.
And these people went out and bought margarine because they're terrified of saturated fat because the sugar companies had bribed some scientists.
We had that when we were kids, Country Crock margarine. We didn't know.
It's so bad for you. It's interesting now that that's been revealed. And you find out that those people didn't even get that much money. They got like the equivalent of $50,000 today.
Right.
To literally lie to everybody about they just made up a bunch of shit about saturated fat, and they just diminished all the negative effects of sugar, and people just started drinking that milk from Captain Crunch. Remember that milk? Where you get that fucking sugary Captain Crunch milk, or Cocoa
delicious.
Pops.
It's absolutely delicious.
Where you get the chocolate milk out of Cocoa Pops.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Count Chocula. Oh my Jesus, kids were
so
just
good.
We grew up on sugar.
I know. And in Canada, we had a whole different. I didn't realize till I moved to the States. Corn Pops in Canada are actually like spherical Captain Crunch. They're not at all like Corn Pops in the States. Oh. So there are a lot of little differences because it's such a silly country where you'll be raised there and you'll come here and be like, wait, Oreos aren't the same.
Super Sugar Crisp. Remember that? It had sugar in the title.
That's right. That
Super
was the
Sugar Crisp.
The bear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't it
Can't
bear?
get enough of that sugar crisp.
That's right. Super Sugar Crisp. Can you imagine you have a goddamn drug in the name of your Look at that.
There you go.
That is crazy.
Does that still exist? It's not even good.
It's illegal. You go to jail if you even sell that.
Super
It's the
Sugar
Sugar
Crisp.
Bear. This is the Sugar Bear. I'm here. I'm your Sugar
Can't
Bear.
get enough of that Sugar
Super
Crisp.
Sugar Crisp. Look,
Yeah,
it's
there you go.
golden crisp.
What's the
I'm not
difference
a-
between Sugar Crisp
I'm
and
not
Golden
a
Crisp?
bear. I'm a strange mongoose.
Then-
I'm a mongoose with a T-shirt on.
Then there was Cookie Crisp. Remember that? Cookie Crisp.
Yeah, they have cookies and milk.
Then there was Reese's Puff cereal.
Oh, look at that one. Smacks. They have an Indian, a cultural appropriation.
Native
Couldn't do that
American.
today. Look at that. What does that have to do with a Native American? What smacks?
It's
Why
kind
is
of
there
like Latinos selling cars. They
There's
just
a-
put tits on it because it sells in their culture.
Oh, inside there's a free Indian card. That's a special Indian edition.
Well, that doesn't make it acceptable. They created the Indian card, so it's just as bad
No, it's fine.
because there's a giveaway of the cultural
I
appropriation.
like Frosted Flakes. Go down to Frosted Flakes over there.
No, they still sell Frosted
They're
Flakes.
great.
Yeah,
1950s.
good source of vitamin D because
and
you added
today.
vitamin D.
Yeah, throw it in there.
There's no natural
Plus there's
vitamin D in
milk.
there.
You got milk, pussy. Your kid's gonna get sick from some sugar. What kind of fucking shitty kids are you raising?
Reese's Puff cereal. That was a big one. I remember when I was
What?
being Reese's Puff cereal.
Reese's peanut butter
peanut butter
puffs?
cup cereal. Yeah.
Whoa.
That's you've never had that?
No.
That was a little later than you, I guess.
It might have been illegal in my country. They might have been looking out for our best interest by then.
No, I remember it because there was like a fat black kid from Hanging with Mr. Cooper who did the commercials in Canada for Reese's. He's like, I can't get enough. I love that Reese's Puff cereal. We were sitting there as this kid. He was in Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and so as a kid, you're like, well, we watched that show on TGIF. We have to get Reese's peanut butter cup
What's
cereal.
TGIF up there?
That was the same thing. ABC, you know.
Oh,
the
down
series.
here it's a fucking place that sells wings.
Yeah, well, no, it was. Yeah, bad wings too.
They're not that bad.
They're pretty
If you're
bad.
in Kansas, you're on the road.
It's true. TGI Fridays.
What's the big deal?
Bennigan's is coming back too. Did you see that? Bennigan's is back. Don't you remember that? They were gone away because everyone was like, "Well, okay, Bennigan's we can do without."
I didn't
Now
even
they're
notice. You mean they went under and then they came back?
Back. Yup, they were
Somebody-
gone. Now they're back. I don't know why.
Huh.
Whole new branding.
Probably investment bankers. Probably some dudes from Marin County.
It's the globalists.
Wire frame glasses. Those fucks. Skinny jeans. Well, what we're trying to do is bring back a really recognizable brand
Yeah.
that's really important to America.
Have you ever had people do that on this show?
Feel and we understand. Do
Like,
what?
have you ever had people try to come in and be like, "Listen, we can take your show even bigger. We just think there are a few tweaks." You ever get those people who approach you?
No, which is interesting.
Really?
No, everybody's like, no,
No,
no. Adam Carolla, they got him though, huh?
they did.
I don't know. Just
I
trying
don't
to
know.
see if you've-
I did his show once, and it was the most awkward thing I'd ever done in my life.
Why was it so awkward?
Well, because the booker, so I was doing Prager University, and it's like, "Oh yeah, I know, I'll hook you up." And first off, he's like Adam Carolla. He's not like you, like come in and you talk off air. He kind of like doesn't really talk to you until you're on air, which I can respect. It's professional, but I wasn't on the Adam Carolla podcast. It was Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew had reunited to do like it's not Loveline, but it's effectively the same thing.
Right.
And so
They still do that? Or
well,
they
they brought
stop?
it back, and
But
I
I
was
think
there
they
for like
stopped.
the first week. No, I was there for like the first week they
Right.
brought it back, and so it's him and Dr. Drew sitting there doing their shtick at a table, and then I'm literally at the end of the table with nothing to say. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, that sounds about right. They're taking callers from people
They didn't bring you in?
a little bit, but it just Adam Carolla does his podcast like this with an interview, and that was it was really weird. And I think what happened was they didn't realize he wasn't doing the show that day, and they brought me. They were very nice. Dr. Drew and Adam was gracious afterward, but it was clear like it's a two-guy show taking phone calls.
And you were just there?
Yeah, I was pretty much just
Did
there.
they say your name?
No, they did, but it was like, we want to take phone calls.
Well, he essentially does an internet radio show. That's what his show is.
Right.
You know, I mean, he had his radio show that was a big hit radio show, and then the station went under in L.A., and I think he just decided to do the same format and just do that same format online.
Yeah. That makes it. Well, when we started our show, it was syndicated, and so we had radio, and so we had all these commercial breaks. We used to do it at 6 a.m. on Friday mornings out of Detroit. And what we did was, well, no one really cares about these commercial breaks nationally, so we just did a bunch of sketches and fake commercials. And that's what created all these characters that people have created these Twitter profiles for, because we just said, well, so we're not going to run an ad for a local car delership. We'll
Right.
do a fake news break. And we would do like fake tornado warnings and stuff like that, which is highly illegal, by the way. We learned that one later on. Because we had to kind of work with the format online, and now we just took it off radio.
Yeah, fuck radio,
It was
dude.
too
That's
much.
a dying market. That thing is not going to last. It's stupid.
When was the last time you turned on your radio?
I
honestly?
haven't ever.
Yeah.
I don't
Your
even
phone.
remember. It's another person. I think like all the cells in your body except your neurons switch every 7 years. That means every cell in my body has never listened to the radio. That's real. That's fucking real, man. It's like if someone said to me, when was the last time you watched a VHS cassette? I was another person.
Yeah.
I wasn't even me. I don't take responsibility for me of 14 years ago. Because if I did, I would still be pissed at shit in my pants when I was a baby. Okay? Because I would take it back to when I was 3 and I bit my sister or something. I don't know what the fuck I did. But you know what I
bit your
mean?
sister?
I might have. I don't know. I don't
Lord.
remember 3 is my point. It's
Right.
like if you go back to the things you did when you were a developing individual.
Yeah.
So I feel like every 7 years, I don't even want to know
Yeah,
what I did 14 years
At
ago.
3, it's pretty rough years. I called my dad's pastor a little bastard at 3.
You're probably right.
Well, because my grandfather called me little bastard,
Right.
and I thought it was a term of endearment. And so my dad's like, "This is Pastor Kevin Butcher." I said, "Hey, how you doing, little bastard?"
Well, that pastor should have known. Oh,
was
this
cool
little
about it.
kid is getting fucked over at home.
No, you know what happened? Actually, he got outed, and this is actually a point where
Gay?
No, he got outed from the church because there was his pregnant wife was at a Detroit Lions game, and there was a guy with a bullhorn behind her, right up against her ear.
Right.
And this guy was but a really good guy, regardless of someone's religious affiliation, but a good guy. And he's like, "Hey man, could you stop? My wife's here. Whatever, she was either pregnant or something." And the guy just looked at him and kept doing it right next to his wife's ear, like got right up on her ear. And he ended up kicking the guy's ass, getting into a fight with him because the guy was getting up on their space and getting
Didn't
belligerent.
exactly turn the other cheek.
He did not. He did when he asked him to, and so there was a whole vote. And I remember that was when I was pretty young. I thought, well, okay.
So they outed him. They got rid of him. Meaning,
I
like,
could be wrong. There was a whole controversy over it, and I remember learning about it as a kid, thinking, well, that seems pretty reasonable. The guy getting up in his wife's grill and bothering a pregnant woman.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do? Because human nature is definitely to hit the person, but do you just leave? Because your night is ruined.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I say
Right?
kick his ass. I mean, I think what happened
think
was
so?
no, I don't think he kicked his ass. I'm saying
But
the
you
guy
do-
got physical, and he got physical with the guy
Right.
and got the better of him. So it could have been a shoving match, could have been a punch. He didn't beat him. It wasn't American History X curb stomp. I'm just saying no one expected a pastor to do anything to protect
Right.
his wife.
I get it.
Yeah, and that was a big deal. I called him a little bastard. That's the end of that rabbit trail.
Well, you were right. Once he got kicked out, probably that Crowder kid, he's got vision. He sees the future.
This
He knew
kid's
that-
going places.
He knew that guy was a brawler. He's a fucking bleachers brawler. He gets up there, gets licking up, fucks his wife, gets her pregnant, takes her to the game.
That crowd is going places. He called it. He's going to go to Fox News for 4 years,
He knows
waste 4
things.
years of his life.
I saw him on this show once with Amy Schumer. He argued with her.
Oh, man.
I took his side. He argued with her.
What is this voice?
What did she do? You guys were on some show, and she was trying to like diminish you as a comedian.
Yeah.
She was trying to say you weren't a comedian,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that an interesting thing? There's like a thing that people do in the world of stand-up comedy where they decide, oh, he's an opener, or he's a middle act,
Right.
He's there's this weird sort of a thing, and someone like if they're looking like shit on you, oh, you do comedy, yeah,
Right,
oh, you
yeah.
do comedy, yeah. What have you done? You do a few open mics. You
Right.
think you're a fucking comedian?
Yeah.
I really
It's very, very
I
common.
really dislike that.
Yeah. She did that right off. And I knew it because she was asking me questions in the green room. Like, where do you do comedy? What do you do? And she was like, she asked me at one point, do you perform at churches? I said, no. I said, no, I never have. And she was so inflexible in her argument. She was
How
like,
old were you
perform
then?
at-" Yeah, maybe 22, 23.
Probably would have shit on you too, dude.
Probably
Probably
would've.
would have been right next to her.
But that changed. If you look at the
Me and
reaction
Amy
to
would
it.
have fucking dog tagged you.
Well, no, I don't think so. It changed
You
drastically.
don't think so?
No.
What do you
I
think
don't.
would have happened? You would have won that?
Well, I think
Amy
you
Schumer
probably. I
together?
think if you'd have been
think
there,
you would have done really well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I do.
hilarious.
I think if you watch that thing, her argument was you're not a real comedian. I think
Well, I
I
would've
stuck to
never
facts
said
and
that.
information. And
I
I think
would've
Amy
never said
Schumer's a
that.
30-something-year-old girl who bitches at people on Twitter now and is unmarried and miserable. And I'm married to a woman I'm pretty happy with.
Are you comparing lives?
I am. I am, and I think I was right.
Well, I think that whenever someone
And I also think
says
she's
that-
funny, by the way.
Okay, good for you. I think whenever someone
'cause
says
she-
that you're not a comedian thing, that's an issue. I have an issue with that because we all started out as open micers, and when you're talking to someone who's 22 years old, when I was 22, I was an open micer. I was doing open mic nights.
Well,
Like
I'd done it
this-
just for laughs at that point, so it wasn't an open micer.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'd headlined
were you-
crappy clubs.
Okay, were you getting paid?
Yeah.
Were you a
Yeah, yeah.
professional comedian? You're making
Yeah.
your living off of stand-up comedy already?
I've only made my living ever off of acting, stand-up comedy, or writing since 18 years old.
Wow. So when you were 22 years old, all your bills, were you living with your mom or what's going on?
No.
How are you paying your bills at stand-up comedy when you're 22 years old?
So I would do stand-up, and I had some pretty relatively successful acting gigs. Did some films, commercials, some TV. At that point, I was a Fox News contributor, which paid me a retainer. I did freelance writing where they would pay by the word.
So you were doing stand-up on a regular basis. So you
Yeah.
were a stand-up comic.
I don't do it much anymore. I would readily admit, like now I don't because the show, everything's a 14-hour day,
Right.
and I would never claim to be as good of a stand-up as you or a Nick DiPaolo or a Bill Burr. By the way, but Nick DiPaolo asked me to plug. He's doing his stand-up special
Yeah.
in Boston,
Yeah, his stand-up special is going on CISO this Thursday.
so please
So,
go. He's
tomorrow.
probably the best, for my money, one of the best living comedians.
He's certainly one of my favorite. Nick DiPaolo was goddamn hilarious, and he was here yesterday, and he fucking killed me.
He's unbelievable.
He's a very fun and a very, very, very good dude, and another weirdo right-wing fucking guy.
Yeah, he is. But, it's pretty common. I mean, Christopher Titus did the same thing. That was the same thing when he started losing the gun issue. He goes, oh, stand-up, I get paid for stand-up.
Well, you know what? What he was doing was trying to save whatever was going on
Yeah.
in his mind. Whether there's a conversation, whether it was a competition, whatever the little battleground in his mind was going on, he was trying to save his patch of land.
Well, I think it would work with most people. I think you would probably agree with this. A lot of stand-up comedians, they have a void and they're filling it. Becomes their identity. And so for me, it was never my whole identity wrapped up in stand-up. I mean, I had been doing acting since I was 12 years old. I was tutored on set with a lot of things. I did kids' cartoons. That show Arthur is how I started out. So I did stand-up, and I'll be the first to admit it, I did it as a means to getting to other avenues. And then it turned out I fell in love with it. But I never planned on doing stand-up my whole life. So if I'm a stand-up comedian, I'm a road comic. I love being, waking up for leftover drugs and being unhappy and bitching about my manager.
Leftover drugs? Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Yeah.
Who's got leftover drugs?
See, just
Go in
like
the
you, I'm being
refrigerator.
facetious, but the
what do we
point
got
is,
here? Turkey? Oh, drugs.
Yeah.
Whose drugs are these? I can have them, right?
but the pride in stand-up of barely getting by. Kind of like New York, right? You're in a shitty city in a 2-bedroom apartment with 5 roommates,
Right.
and you're proud of it because you can tell everyone how miserable you are. So it just didn't
That's
work.
not real.
Oh, yeah, it is.
No, it's real once you become successful. It's never real while it's
Right.
struggling.
But people try to act like it is, right? Like, oh man, I couldn't do anywhere else. It's the energy of this city. It's like you literally you shit in a drain in the kitchen. In the Lower East Side, you're seeing those.
does that?
Lower East Side.
You're
like those-
exaggerating.
I am not.
It's
Lower
gotta-
East
the
Side.
right wing,
I
the
looked at-
right wing people are always exaggerating.
I looked at
shitting
an
into a
apartment
drain.
in the East Village because they'd have like 19 Polish family members per apartment, and the toilet was right in the middle of the kitchen because they weren't designed.
Sometimes you have to take a shit when you're cooking bacon. What do you want these people to
At
walk?
the same time,
It's an extra toilet. There's one for mom while she's making spaghetti.
They're multitasking.
She could squat. It's got one of those little squatty potty things. You ever seen that one sign? Like if you go to some places that's frequented by too many people from Asia, you'll see signs that show like a person standing on the shitter, squatting down. It's like got a red line through it. Don't shit this
Really?
way. Yes. Pull.
has it become that popular? the squatty potty?
I've seen it. I've seen.
Do you use a squatty potty?
Yes, I do at home.
I would assume so.
It helps
'Cause of the
It helps
caveman thing.
the bowel movement. Well, if I prefer to shit in a hole in the ground, but
you-
it's
in the kitchen
I
as
don't
you
have
make
the
bacon?
time to dig. Like, look at the guy. No.
Hold on, that's not even- he's
that
not even
one
aiming
there.
right. That would just
This
hit
is
the
a joke
rim.
one. This is a joke one. But I have literally seen that. That's real. That is an actual real for people in Asia. Ari Shafir went to China, and he has this fucking hilarious bit about it. And I don't want to do his bit. That's real. But in China, he went into a restroom, and there was literally a hole in the ground, and you were supposed to squat over the hole, and they had no toilet paper.
Yeah.
That is real. And he told me that when people from Asia who are used to that environment as the norm come over to the United States, sometimes they actually stand on the toilet seat and shit that way.
But
So
the toilet seat is not
there's
designed
that.
for the aim to be accurate. If you're
Exactly.
sitting on the toilet seat, you'd be crapping on the water tank.
They don't know any better, bro. They're from another country. Without Trump. Without Trump leading them, they don't even know anything, man.
This is always what happens. You're tossing defending Trump. I think,
Do you think he's a good leader? Are you happy that he's in office? Is it good because it's a shakeup?
I will say this. I think that, again, the left has behaved so poorly.
Again with this left.
Yeah, I
right.
think that Donald Trump has been a lightning rod. I would disagree with him on some policy issues for sure. But I think that because everyone has called him a Nazi and a racist and a sexist and a transphobe, that it's removed those arguments from the table for at least several decades. Because people are going, yeah, but you said it about John McCain and Mitt Romney. Everyone you disagree with is a racist. I think that card's been played too much, and because of Donald Trump, it's been overplayed. And I think now we see with our channel, granted, it's not as big as the outreach you guys have, but it's grown pretty substantially, and a lot of our audience are self-professed liberals going, you know what? I used to hate you. I used to watch the Young Turks, and we used to watch them crap on you, but actually some of these points make sense, and I used to think everyone who disagreed with me was racist, and I think because it's so overplayed, it's left such a bad taste in people's mouth. I do think that Donald Trump has served a real purpose to shine a light on that, and that may be the most important point of all at this point in our culture with political correctness.
Yeah, I think when things go too far one way, people get upset with that. And when people get too biased, whether it's towards the left or towards the right, it tends to balance things out in the other direction. Like Robert Anton Wilson called Lyndon Johnson the pacifist president. Yeah. You know why he called him the pacifist president? Because he was such a cunt that he created so many pacifists because of his atrocities that he ordered in the Vietnam War. People were so upset that more people became pacifists during the during the Lyndon Johnson administration than ever before.
Yeah.
By the same token, he called Reagan the intellectual president because more people just went, oh my God, you gotta God damn it, it's important to know things.
Yeah.
God damn it, it's important to be smart. Like, just say no, bitch. What are you talking about? Just say no. You're bringing heroin in from Vietnam. Just say no. You're selling coke in South Central to pay for the fucking conscience.
Wait, this is Reagan was selling coke?
Sandinistas. Oliver, you don't know the Oliver North story?
Oliver North. Oh, yeah, Oliver North. Yeah, okay.
The real Rick Ross. You know the whole story?
I don't know the whole story with the real Rick Ross.
Dude, the real Rick Ross, not the rapper, but the real Rick Ross, who's been on my podcast twice, was a drug dealer in South Central who they put away for life due to the 3 strikes rule, but didn't know how to read. Okay, went to jail, was a drug dealer, made millions of dollars selling coke, okay? Did not have any idea who was bringing him the coke, how he was getting it, where it was coming from. The profits that they were making was literally paying Oliver North to arm the Contras versus the Sandinistas. I mean, it was all proven in court. I mean, this is what Michael Rupert stood in front of, what was the... I forget what the gathering was, but on television, on C-SPAN, Michael Rupert, who was a narcotics officer for the Los Angeles Police Department, who has also been on my podcast before he committed suicide. He was the guy that was the focus of that movie Collapse. Remember that movie Collapse where he's talking about...
I'm trying to remember who was in that.
It was just him smoking cigarettes, sitting there talking about what he knew about the economy, what he knew about all these different things that were problematic in our society and how there's only a certain amount of time before it's going to collapse. It was kind of a crazy doom and gloom documentary. But the point is, he had caught CIA agents, rogue cowboy CIA agents in the middle of selling drugs in South Central Los Angeles, reported it, and was in trouble because of that and decided to go public with it. And they were selling these drugs. They were making shitloads of money, and they were transferring the money to arm these rebels. Yeah. Well, Rick Ross was in the middle of that and didn't know he was in the middle of that. He was literally selling drugs and funneling this whole thing, went to jail as an illiterate person who literally couldn't read. Learned how to read in jail, became a lawyer in jail, learned law.
Okay, yeah, I think
figured out that you can't charge him for the 3 strikes rule if it's one thing. If you're charging him with a bunch of counts under one incident, it's the 3 strikes law doesn't apply, and that's how they got him in jail. So now he's out. All of this came because of that.
Well, I knew about Oliver North in the Contra thing. I didn't know about Rick Ross specifically.
Well, there's been proof that some elements of our government have sold drugs to impoverished neighborhoods in order to fund black ops. This is a fact. And this is one of the things that Robert Anton Wilson was talking about when he was talking about the Reagan administration. It was he became the intellectual president because people were so frustrated by how fucking crazy and chaotic and movie-like things had become that they had decided to arm themselves with information.
I wonder if a big part of it, though, too, is the backlash with Ronald Reagan, because everyone said, again, he had no chance. He was a moron, and he won in a landslide, where people go, all right, screw you. We're going to consider him an intellectual. Like with Donald Trump. Listen, I don't think Donald Trump's an intellectual.
Well,
I don't
no
think he's a
one
very
was
smart
considering
guy.
him an intellectual. They were considering him a great American.
Right.
And he had slick back hair, and his wife stood still, and everybody was happy.
Well, in between seances at the White House.
Calling her astrologer, making sure she's shit.
exactly.
Now
That's
we're
some
in an
weird
hour.
stuff. But I think people might have just been like, you know what, you called him a moron for so long, and everyone who voted him a moron, that then...
Well, they didn't really
wanted
call
to-
Reagan a moron.
Yeah, they did.
Well, not
Yeah,
like
they
they
did.
called George Bush
Yeah,
a
they
moron.
did. Yeah, they did. Yes, they did.
I
it's
remember.
the playbook with anyone who's conservative or Republican is if they can make you a moron, they will. If not, you're evil. Right?
See,
Dick Cheney can't be a moron, so he's
don't-
evil.
I think you're confusing the narrative a little bit because Reagan might have been simplistic, but he was a wonderful speaker. Like he gave really articulate, well thought out speeches that
Yeah.
spoke to Americans, again, longing for this nostalgia of a time where the Norman Rockwell painting made sense.
Right.
And that's what Ronald Reagan represented to a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they were coming out of the chaos of the Carter administration and the fucking Vietnam and
Gas
then,
lines.
Gas lines and the Iranians taking the American hostages and all that crazy shit. And Ronald Reagan came along. He's like, I'm going to fix it. I'm your dad. And everybody's like, we're in.
Yeah, but the media treated him like a real moron. If you go back and watch that, and right before his landslide election win, they made. If you look at the electoral map, sort of the polls and the predictions, they gave him no chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
we
what a lot
already
of people
proved you're
pointed.
full of shit about Colorado and traffic deaths. Should we go and fuck you up with this too?
Yeah. When you have your guy looking
You
up
feel
sources.
bad about the Colorado thing at all?
What? I never said Colorado. I said states that legalize marijuana.
What other
I've seen
ones
it.
are there?
Well, you didn't bring up the source that I wrote about.
All right, well, I can.
But the
eat
fact that
up
you're
if you
still
want.
hung up on it.
Hold please. What?
I got the article. I've been looking at it for like the last few minutes on your website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple statements that are really bad just off the gate, like this right here. If you want to get high, you're a moron. And,
Well,
And getting high will make you
joke.
more of a
that's
moron.
Not, that's not a
But
news
hold on.
article.
Right.
Hold on, please.
That's commentary.
But, hold on. But fine. After all, things like Coachella wouldn't exist. Is this your article?
yeah.
I think it's an article on my site.
Oh, wait a
I
minute.
think
If you want to get
Courtney-
high, you're a moron?
Yeah, I think
You
Courtney
really
believes
think
that,
you're
yeah.
a moron?
I think
If you
Courtney
get
believes
high?
that. Yeah.
Who's Courtney?
She
works
probably
for
one
you?
of the best writers I think I've ever encountered.
How dare you not read then?
But so then the article links to a couple, like this, for instance, is one that says it has deadliest year of traffic fatalities since 2008.
Yeah.
This article doesn't say anything about marijuana, not one thing. Doesn't mention weed at once. It does say that it could be attributed to
Could be
lower gas
weather.
prices, people driving more,
It
more
does.
people in the state,
Sure.
et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera.
well,
But
more
that's not,
people in
first
the
off,
state.
that's not the only thing. Hold on a
is
second.
a
No,
huge
this is
issue.
important. I'm going to defend myself here because you have someone here at the ready, and what you do is instead of bringing up information, this is what happens with Christopher Titus, right? You don't have information that you bring up. You have another guy look up a source that you specifically want him to find.
I didn't ask him to bring that up.
Yes,
He just
you
brought
did.
it
And he
up.
brought up Washington Post and goes, "This is what's wrong with your article," taking a
No, he
joke out
had
of
already been
context.
talking. You didn't have a joke.
The joke in there about things like Coachella wouldn't exist if there weren't. That's
Okay,
clearly
her
a joke.
in that article.
That's a joke.
Right, but-
to try and go, do you think people who smoke pot are morons? No, it's a joke.
Okay.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Well, and no, pot's not comparable to alcohol. There are tests that determine how much alcohol
Right.
content is in your bloodstream. We can't yet do that with weed, so it's impossible to handle these incidents in the same way.
That's
but
pretty
there
fair.
but there have been tests where they showed people
But that
drunk,
would go back to what he said and what
But
you
there
said.
have been tests where they've shown people drunk versus on marijuana, and the people on marijuana drove far better.
Okay,
That's true.
So this is also
Right?
anecdotal.
No,
but
these are
It goes back
tests.
to your point, right?
But these are tests.
Let's say someone has alcohol
Are
in their
these
system.
tests?
Well, I haven't read your test.
Okay, so
But
why are you arguing against them?
No, I'm saying I agreed with your point earlier.
So why are you saying they're
No,
anecdotal?
well, it is anecdotal if you're saying some people drive better on marijuana
No,
than
I'm
alcohol.
not saying that. I've said there have been tests where they've shown that people drive better on marijuana
anyway.
than alcohol. That's
If you
not
want- if you want-
anecdotal.
my point is, if you
no,
want to
you're
smoke weed,
looking.
go
You're
ahead.
looking to be really good at this argument here.
No, I'm
You
not.
need to settle down.
You said you wouldn't pile on, and you got two people.
I'm not
A rule-
piling
yeah,
down. He's
yeah,
not
it is.
talking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
He's
it
not
is.
talking. He
Actually,
brought
I have
something
a rule
up.
when someone
He brought
comes on
up
the show.
facts.
When someone comes on the show, Jared
Well,
cannot interject.
Congratulations, you're not on the show.
Interject.
And all he did was pull up some fucking
two
information.
people bringing up information, me without a laptop.
No, he brought it
After
up.
I
I
said,
talked
I'm not
about
gonna
it.
stop
He didn't even
After I
talk
said-
about it.
You said, what would be the one thing that you've changed your mind on that
Is
you
there
would
a
look
problem
back?
when two people are correct and you're incorrect? Does that bother you?
I don't agree that you're correct.
What What are you talking about? You just pulled up some statistics that show that Colorado has less traffic fatalities.
No, I didn't.
Since
I didn't pull up
2000
any statistics.
No, he did.
You
saw
just said
them.
you. You just
okay,
said
well,
you.
I will
So,
give
no,
you
that's
my
not
laptop.
correct.
I'll turn my laptop
That's
your
not
way,
correct.
and you can pull up some shit that shows contrary
you said,
evidence.
what is the issue that you would care about the least that you've changed your mind on? I said, probably wouldn't even talk about pot.
That's a long version of what you said.
And
what
then
you
you said, well, why?
was there have been more fatalities since marijuana has been legal in those
In
states.
all the things we've discussed,
it's not true.
Why are you so obsessed with the pot issue?
Because you're not right, and it doesn't matter if we've talked about it for 4
So
hours. In this instance, you are incorrect. You know you're incorrect.
No, I'm not incorrect in that instance. That traffic fatalities have increased in areas where pot have increased. We did the same study in Michigan where pot was legalized and people were actually selling more marijuana to underage kids. I don't care if they do it.
Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with traffic fatalities.
It does have to do with it.
It doesn't have anything to do with traffic fatalities unless you can prove there's more traffic fatalities in underage kids since marijuana has been legal.
Yeah, there have been several articles that have made that claim, made that assertion.
Let's find them.
We've written about it.
Let's find them.
They all come from one article mostly, and it's from these AAA stats. And this is the stats that they said. And it's almost all the articles you're talking about come from this one article.
Okay.
Okay, so it says the percentage of drivers involved in fatal crashes who recently used marijuana more than doubled from 8 to 17% from 2013 to 2014.
Yeah.
1 in 6 drivers involved in fatal crashes from 2014 had recently used marijuana, which is the most recent data available. Now, do you
The
understand that
significant increase in
causation
fatal
does not
crashes
equal
involving marijuana
correlation?
is alarming.
Yeah, it says who?
That's an opinion.
It's an opinion.
President and CEO of AAA Foundation.
Yeah,
for
he says
Traffic
it's
Safety.
alarming. Well, is that a matter of more people smoking marijuana because it's legal, or is it a matter of the marijuana causing these accidents?
Is this
Do you know
not
what
an
else?
article put out by
Do you know what
AAA?
else is true? Do you know what else is true? That all these people also had alcohol in their system. Do you know that?
Well, no, I don't. We don't know that all of them
It's
had alcohol in their
a
system.
giant percentage
Well,
of people
hold
that
on
were
a second.
involved
You just
in
made
these
an assumption. You said,
accidents.
"Do you know this
No,
to
I
be
know
true?"
this because I've read
all
these
of them
studies.
had alcohol in their system.
I
Can
didn't
you
say
prove
that.
You
I
just
said
all.
a lot of them.
Rewind the tape. You said
Maybe I
all.
did say all. A lot of them.
Well, you made a lot of
Shitload.
assumptions.
Let's
here.
find out.
It doesn't say anything in the article about alcohol, though, and for sure they should have tested that and put that
They should,
information
and
in
for
there.
sure they can't test.
Well,
for,
but
by the way,
just
I'm talking
Google
with two guys
how
who
many
just
people-
smoked up a joint.
Just Google.
and
what?
are mad
What does that
I
have
made
to do with anything?
It makes a point that you're going to have an obvious position that would disagree with this one single article. So if I can finish a point, you've talked about interruption. Let me finish the one point that I'm making.
Well, you've
you
already
can't
been
test
proven.
for marijuana.
You've already been
You can't
proven.
test for marijuana roadside, right? Can we agree on
No,
that?
you absolutely can.
You
yeah,
can?
there's new tests. Yes,
Okay, there's new tests.
that are
How
available
recent
right
are these
now.
tests?
Let's find
2014.
out. Let's
Yeah.
find out. Before you do
But
that,
they
though,
didn't test, like you said.
How many of the marijuana-related fatalities also involved alcohol? Because it's a massively significant percentage.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily say that just because they have these new tests for marijuana, especially roadside marijuana.
That's the problem. Is you can't. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll give you that.
What are you giving me?
Let's say you're correct.
But here's the thing:
So let's say
it doesn't
you're correct.
physiologically, it doesn't have an effect on motor skills the way alcohol does, where it doesn't slow down your response time.
Well, I know
It's
that
not the same.
we've had several doctors on the show, 2 of whom had differing opinions on that.
They don't have to be right.
They don't have to be right.
Opinions of it. Do they
have
smoke
opinions.
marijuana themselves? Do they know what it's like?
Now
Have they
we're
studied?
getting to this
Have
whole
they
if you haven't
studied
smoked
all the
marijuana.
different? CBS News caught blatantly distorting cannabis studies says
This
legal
comes
pot
from-
doubles fatal
This
car
comes
crashes.
from Mint Press News. So again, we can go into questioning sources all day long if you have someone else bringing up
You don't
sources.
think this is a good source? You think
Maybe
they're
it
lying?
is. Maybe it is. Let's
It's not
say
a
you're
lot of
right.
Crowder, but
Let's say you're right. Well, a lot of Crowder, we source that to something else.
I know. And
You guys
I
are
looked up
so
your
defensive
sources.
on one issue, and you said,
Hold on.
what's the issue you don't care
I
about?
have your
Pot.
sources right here. I've looked them up. There's people online also sourcing them. They are skewed. You're skewing them to make
And
your
so is the
case.
Washington Post study that you skewed.
But you're not the Washington Post. You're supposed to be the answer to the Washington Post.
I'm not the answer to the Washington
You're not,
Post.
Don't
We're
say that
op-ed.
someone's evil, so I'm evil too.
Well, you just said that.
Is that what you're saying?
That's the argument that you just made.
No, I didn't make
You
that
did
argument.
make that
You just
argument.
said, come on,
You
man.
just made that argument, and all of a sudden, when someone mentions pot, you
When-
put on
when
the
you're
ideologue
saying
hat
this-
where
what-
your worldview
what
is
is
through the
that?
lens of weed.
No, dude.
And you get upset
I'm
with anyone
calling
having
you
a
out
different
on
opinion.
bullshit. It has nothing to do with weed.
Yeah, but you haven't
I would
made an
call
argument.
I haven't made an argument. You said
You've
that
said
the
your studies are
fatalities
sourced.
increased. We showed you what
We
happened in
wrote about it.
Colorado.
What have you shown me?
We showed you the statistics that
Okay.
show that marijuana and traffic violations they
May
correlates
not be,
to less
may not be causal.
accidents.
Right? Your
May
argument
not
is it
be
may not be caused.
Okay, so what else is causing
Okay.
the dropped number? And why can't
what's
you
causing
show
the increase in number?
What increase? This fake increase
From
that
fake?
you're
We're
bringing
doing
up?
fake news?
It's
Is that
not
what we're doing?
real. It's not real. Colorado shows it's not real.
Let's
So
not-
where is it real?
Well, this comes from his AAA study that was AAA and Trustee Safety Council.
AAA is owned by the Bilderberg Group, bro.
Oh, God.
You don't even know this.
So now we're going to go to weed cures cancer and people having meetings
You've got-
with ram's heads.
You've got one one article that says one thing and one
Joe.
article from Colorado that says there's been a decrease in traffic fatalities.
Right.
You're not willing to recognize that.
I just said, let's give that to you. Because this entire conversation started with you saying, what issue would you change your mind on?
No,
and I said,
it started,
probably pot. Because here's
no,
what I
this
think.
argument started with you saying that it causes more fatalities and traffic
no,
violations.
that's not true. That's not true. You said, which issue do you not care about?
Did
I
he
said
say that?
pot.
Did
and then
he
you
say
said
it causes
why.
more
You
traffic
said why.
fatalities?
What's your opinion on pot? And I said, I really don't care if people want to smoke pot. I think it's a state issue. I honestly don't care. I've changed my mind where as a kid I thought it was harmful. I don't think it's harmful
But
anymore.
didn't you say that it causes
and then you
more
said,
traffic fatalities?
Then you said, well, let's expand on this. What issue do you have with pot? I said, I don't like the dishonesty where people just say it cures cancer, it'll end the war on drugs, it's completely harmless, and I have some arguments
It's
that
not
it's not
harmless?
entirely. No, it's not entirely harmless.
Well, it's
not
not-
without consequences.
well, consequences
and
based
I've given
on what?
you so much leeway there on
But
that one.
how have you? How have you?
It
Consequences
literally
based on
started
what?
from me saying I probably couldn't care less about this out of all the other issues that we discuss. And you lasered in on that and go, where do we disagree
Because
on this?
it's a
you're
huge
looking for an
blind spot.
argument.
No, because it's a huge blind spot.
No, it's not a huge blind spot.
It's definitely
Do you think
a
I'm working for the
huge
Bilderbergs
blind
out there
I don't
trying
have
to ban
think
pot?
that. If you say that marijuana is in some way or another a dangerous thing,
Yes.
I can tell you that it's
No,
not.
no, no. I didn't say in a dangerous thing. I said
Well,
it is
it's,
not
if
without
it's
consequences.
causing, what are the consequences?
Okay, what do you believe marijuana does, for example? Well, no, I'm not going to get baited into this because you're gonna get me.
Too
You're
late.
trying to force me to say that I don't think pot cures cancer and there's a big farm. No, listen, smoke pot.
No,
But
that's
I
not.
will ask this.
I'm trying to say, what are the
I'll ask
consequences
this.
of it?
You come on my show. I would love to and have a discussion about
Fuck
it in real time.
you.
I think
Why
so. Well,
would I
last
do it?
time I was on the show,
You're
you
in
said
front
you
of
do
me
the show.
right now. You're in front of me right now. Why do I have
Because
to
we're
come
not
on
having a
your
conversation, you and I, right now.
We would definitely
You're
have
having
a
somebody else
conversation
bring
for
up sources.
hours. Oh, that's not good to read
It's not
sources.
fair. It's not
Tell me-
fair to have two people.
What's fair?
Just like before you said,
No
you think
data?
if Amy, you
Should
think
we
if
be in a
Amy-
room with no
you think
internet?
you think if Amy and I ganged up on you, you think you would have done well in that argument? Come on, man.
Because I want to find out how you feel, how you think. I
yeah.
want to see if you get
But
defensive.
for some reason, you said you think if her and I were together, you think you would have done well on that.
Yeah, because I want to see if you get defensive.
But
Do you
why
ever
wouldn't
fuck with
someone
somebody in a conversation?
Why wouldn't you
ever
get
fuck with
defensive?
somebody? You do that, right?
I don't know, but you've made it all about the pot issue.
No, that had nothing to do with pod. The Amy Schumer
No, I'm
thing
talking
had
about this.
nothing to do with
You've
pod.
gotten into this pot issue because
The
there's an issue
Amy
where you think
Schumer
there's
thing
an
is what you
argument,
just brought up.
and it's the one area that you're super informed and interested in.
Adorable. You're adorable.
And
'Cause
that's
you're
the same thing
you're
as saying
so used to
you're not a
doing
real
this.
comedian.
No, you're adorable.
You've
You're
never
so used to
debated
doing
someone
this.
on an open territory without someone else to back up your argument. It's never happened. I've
This
looked
is
for
not
it.
a backup when someone pulls up information.
Don't-
Let me tell you
Joe,
something.
Joe,
One
Joe,
thing
Joe.
that
I
Jamie
really
does
like-
is he pulls up evidence to the contrary. If I was wrong, he would stick it right in my face and we would laugh about it. And that's what he does.
Yeah, but I don't
That's
have
why
someone
he
to pull
pulled
up
up the
evidence to the
AAA
contrary,
thing.
and I've given it to you.
What
I've given it to you.
evidence? You haven't given me shit.
I've given you the argument.
What
and
argument?
You're continuing. I'm saying, fine. Let's say there's no causation. Let's say that wasn't backed up well enough. Let's give you that argument.
Okay. What's this, Jamie?
And
There's
we're back
also
to
some
it, and we're
evidence
back
that
to
medical
it,
marijuana
and we're
laws
back to it.
may
You are
contribute
obsessed.
to decreasing
You are
traffic
obsessed.
fatalities.
This is what part of the
Hold,
show
please.
is me doing this, though. If we don't do that,
This is
isn't
what we
the
always
show.
do. It's just talking about facts. Listen to
You're
this.
obsessed.
Hold, please. There are some. There are also some evidence that medical. That doesn't make any sense. There are also some evidence. That's not that. There's also.
There, that's what I said.
Okay, I'm wrong. That medical marijuana laws may contribute to decreasing traffic fatalities. One study published in the Journal of Law and Economics in 2013 reviewed traffic fatalities in the 19 states that had passed medical marijuana laws by 2010 and found that legalization is associated with an 8 to 11% decrease in traffic fatalities for the year after the laws took effect. The researchers from the University of Colorado, Denver, and elsewhere also found the decrease is more significant for alcohol-related fatalities at 13.2%.
Can I ask a question?
Pretty interesting.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Why is that study from 2010 considered completely valid to you, and the study from AAA in 2014 considered completely invalid?
AAA's got a fucking biased interest.
There you go.
Because
there you go.
They're
Chemtrails
a
and
big
bias.
ass company.
People can have different
that's
opinions.
in charge. Well, what are they basing it on?
What, so your argument is
This is
the only valid study because AAA is biased.
But this is a study.
It's
Why
a study.
are you ignoring? Do you think that's right, or do you think
I
they're
think
lying?
it could be right. I think it could be right.
So if they're right, if that study's right, then you were wrong, right?
If that study's right,
Then
and
you
it would
were wrong, right?
I could be wrong.
You were wrong, right? When you
I
were
could
just
be wrong.
spouting it out. So we proved that in Colorado you were wrong.
You didn't
and
prove.
if that study
You
is
didn't
true,
prove.
well,
you didn't prove. You said
the-
here's what you do. If
Let's
that study,
pull that
no,
up
hold on a
again,
second,
figure
Joe.
out what
Hold on a
caused
second,
the
Joe. And then you
Colorado
say interruption.
study.
I asked one question, and then you get a paragraph.
You'd like
you
doing
said
this,
that
don't
study,
you?
Joe.
You
I
like
literally
doing
said
this.
I'll give
You
it to
do.
you. you win the argument and you bring up another thing about pot.
Well, it's because
'Cause
you
you can't
don't
let it go.
really, you don't really give up. You
I
reluctantly
did.
give
I
up.
said I'll give it to you. You're right. Let's assume I'm
Okay,
wrong.
you're definitely wrong.
Let's assume I'm wrong.
Okay, so what else would be the problem with marijuana if it wasn't traffic
I
fatalities?
don't
Zero,
even care.
right?
No, not
Right?
zero.
What, zero?
But I don't want to spend the
Okay,
entire
what
day
are the
talking
other
about
problems?
pot.
Well, come on, man. We're talking about real issues. What would be the other problems if it wasn't for
Here's the
traffic
funny thing.
fatalities?
Before you go, oh man, just loosen up. Let's talk about life and jiu-jitsu. Then you get on one
I
thing.
didn't say
you are
jiu-jitsu.
obsessed.
I said let's talk.
You're obsessed.
I just want to get you away from your left versus right talking points because I'm neither.
Because people with convictions, the left-right paradigm.
Bertrand
the
Russell will
left-right
come out.
paradigm.
I'll
I'm a
take
centrist.
I kind of am.
Joe, Joe, here's the thing. And I started off and I still mean the complimentary things I said. But you can't bring people on and call them pussy and dumb
Come
fuck
on, bro. We're
and
joking around.
bias,
I can't.
and then continue going back to an issue and with someone who agrees with you entirely and act as though, now you're defensive? Well, of course I'm defensive.
Well, I think that you were spewing a little bit of anti-marijuana propaganda about traffic fatalities, and I had to address it.
Anti-marijuana propaganda. That's right. I'm paid by
honestly,
Big Pharma
no,
lobby,
I'm not
man.
thinking you're paid by anybody, but I just think you had a point
So
of view.
why would I push the propaganda?
It's not-
Propaganda,
it's
by
not-
definition, means I have to be pushing it
It's
for
not
someone. Who?
necessarily that someone is telling you to do it. It's just that you had a point
Then
of
it's
view
not propaganda.
that you had dug your heels in.
Then it's not propaganda.
It is
it's a wrong
propaganda.
opinion.
It's propaganda
wrong
if you
opinion,
have
Joe.
read it and you are spouting it out, but that statistics prove differently.
Well, okay. Then I would say it's propaganda
It's
for
not-
someone
I'm not
saying
saying
weed
you're
cures cancer.
I'm not saying you're promoting
say that's
propaganda like
I would
someone's
say that's
asking.
propaganda.
Okay, pull that up then,
Weed
Jamie.
cures cancer.
Find out whether. Not saying cures. Doesn't
That's what
marijuana
that
have
was my
beneficial
claim, though.
effects?
No, that
on
wasn't my
cancer?
claim. Weed
Nothing
cures cancer.
Nothing
There
cures
you go.
cancer.
And that was what I was talking about.
But
I
who
literally
the fuck
will get
says nothing cures anything? I mean, things treat
half of your
things.
listeners will tweet me saying
Is there a
weed
single
cures
drug
cancer.
that cures anything? Things treat things.
Sure.
Your immune
Sure
system
there
kicks
is.
in.
There are
If your
plenty of
immune
drugs that
system
cure.
fails,
Plenty of drugs that cure.
okay, what drug
Polio.
cures things?
Polio vaccine. Done.
Okay, polio vaccine doesn't cure things, you fuck. It prevents you from getting polio.
The disease is
Do
effectively
you
cured.
understand what you just said?
Yeah.
You just
The disease is
disproved
effectively
yourself.
cured. No, I didn't just
No, the
disprove myself.
disease is not effectively cured in the person who has polio. We're talking about marijuana curing cancer on people that don't have cancer yet. That's not what it's not a vaccine for cancer.
Okay.
What you're saying is marijuana cures cancer with people that have cancer. There's not a fucking drug. You proved yourself. There's
I
not
agree
a
with you.
medicine that proves
Right.
that you can't fucking cure polio with a medicine.
You get so aggressive on
No,
the
you're
pot
wrong.
issue. You
You're
get so
wrong right
aggressive on the
here
pot
about
issue.
polio.
No,
Do you
I'm not
understand
wrong. No,
how
you said, okay, use it as an
blindsided
example
you are?
right now.
You have a blind spot.
I'm pretty sure there's drugs out there that cure some diseases.
I'm sure there are. I never heard of them.
Well, they
Do
exist.
you know who they are? Name one.
Not offhand if I had someone who could bring it up.
No, you don't have to bring it up, man. You're going to argue for it. Shouldn't you
I didn't
know?
argue for it.
I don't think
You
there
said
are
you don't
drugs
think there are any
necessarily
drugs that cure
things.
anyone, and I said I think that's incorrect.
Your immune system has to be in place. If you're like dying and someone gives you some sort of a drug, how many drugs are there that cure a nasty disease that's killing you? And how many of them have to be also compensated? Your immune system has to kick in as well. There's a bunch of factors. It's not like how many. I mean, there's penicillin that kills some like venereal diseases and all sorts of different fucking horrible infections.
Yeah.
But there's not a
do.
lot but it takes your immune system has to be in effect too. There's a lot of factors.
So now we're getting to the definition of cure. And
well,
saying it doesn't cure.
man, because you're talking about fucking polio. Nothing cures polio, bitch. And marijuana. No one's saying marijuana
I get
cures
those. No, I get those
cancer.
all the time. All the time.
Those are assholes. Those are the
Yeah, but
same
those are
people
people
that
who
say
make
you're
those
a
arguments.
Nazi. Those are the same people that say you're a Nazi.
No, it's pretty common. It's pretty
You
common.
fucking Nazi, punch
Well,
Nazis.
for example, we had a
Same
woman on the
people.
show. We had a woman on the show, a psychiatrist, who basically said, people who are adult, healthy, smoke pot, she said, probably not a problem. She said it is a problem for the developing brain, people who are under the age of 25. And she explained as to why.
Probably correct.
Yeah, and she explained
I
as to
believe
why.
I don't think they think that the human brain is even fully developed. Your frontal
No, it's
cortex.
not. And she talked about specifically also people who might have mental illnesses, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar. Most people don't realize that, or depression.
Mm-hmm.
It goes unrecognized. And she talked about how for those people, marijuana can act as a trigger mechanism. So she said, healthy people, none of these conditions, marijuana is probably relatively benign. But for some of these people, and most people who might have these conditions are afflicted by them, it could be a real problem.
She's got some very good points, but do you
And
know
half
that
the
they've
comments
actually...
are, weed cures cancer, this dumb bitch should get off the show.
Look at this. Cannabis has been shown to kill cancer cells in laboratory tests. See question 6.
Yeah, that doesn't cure cancer, though.
Well, kill cancer cells. No one's saying cure cancer.
Yes, plenty of
Beneficial
people
effects
are.
on
I'm
cancer.
telling you exactly what people say.
But you compared it to turmeric. You compared it to all
Sure.
these things. But look, the point being, I think you agree and I agree that as long as it doesn't hurt other people any more than anything else, like sugar hurts other people. Look, if you want to make an argument for high insurance rates and you want to look at the overall causes of disease in this country and why insurance and health insurance cost so much, you would almost immediately go towards simple sugar. Like simple sugar is a huge problem with people who are obese. Obesity is a huge issue in this country, and it's a major factor when it comes to healthcare costs, right?
I think it's adorable that you're telling me how to craft arguments. And
But
I know
don't
that
you
you do
think-
this, Joe.
I'm not saying that.
But
Don't
I
you
think it's
think-
adorable.
It's
And I think-
an easier argument to say that ice
and I
cream should
think-
be illegal
and I
than it is
think-
that marijuana should be illegal.
No, I don't. And
Why
I think,
that? Tell me why.
No, I'm gonna say what I was about to say.
Okay, please do.
beforehand, because you keep redirecting the conversation, and and for some reason you're turning it into something hostile that it really doesn't need
It's
to be.
not hostile.
It is. It
Might
is.
be to you.
Yeah, it is.
You feel weird about it. I feel great.
It is. It is when someone comes
Smoking
into
a
something
pipe.
where they know they disagree, and two other people with the same opinion are gonna do a team up.
He doesn't even have an opinion.
I think that
Look at this.
what you're doing right now, Joe, is like you talk about with people in jiu-jitsu. Is what I think.
there are now 100 scientific
I think
studies
that
that say that
I think that you think
prove
these arguments work.
cannabis cures cancer.
I think that you think these arguments work, and I think it's like someone going to jiu-jitsu for the first time. You've never done it. I don't think you've ever actually gotten to a place without someone who can bring up sources for you. I don't think you've gotten into an argument or done anything with a debate team where people would actually hold you accountable to the arguments that you make. I think you
Wait, why are
redirect.
you saying you don't think
and
that I
think-
have if
and
you
I
don't
think-
know what conversations I've had?
I've never seen it.
So what, have you
So I'm
been
inviting-
with me
no, I'm inviting you
24/7
to do
for
it.
49
But my
years?
point is this. I think you
These
would
are
be very
ridiculous
surprised.
conversations.
Right now, you're the kung fu guy hitting the kung fu doll with the spikes.
It's
And you've
adorable.
convinced yourself that this
You're
is an
adorable.
argument that would work if you had other people more qualified than myself to discuss it. And you decided to zone in on an argument
This is
that
a
you knew you would
cute
disagree
way
with.
of you diffusing all
No.
these stats that Jamie keeps bringing up. There's more than 100 studies
Exactly.
that proves that cannabis cures cancer.
Exactly.
Do you deny
Where's
those
my
studies? You don't need a Jamie.
Where's my Jamie?
Jamie's pulling shit off the internet. He's not
You
writing
asked me
it, man.
specifically about something where I changed my mind.
Okay.
So you clearly were ready or upset about the pot thing.
I wasn't
and I
ready.
said,
I didn't
yeah,
even think
I
we were
probably
gonna
wouldn't
talk
talk
about it.
that anymore because I don't really care about it, and I think states should be able to legalize it.
Well, if you don't care about it, you seem fucking
Because
really
you asked me
touchy.
3 follow-up questions. It'd be like me asking you why you endorsed Bernie Sanders on this
No,
show
man.
tacitly, saying you would
You were
vote for him.
talking about
when in the green
traffic
room with the billiard stuff, you
fatalities.
said, "Man, he's insane with the socialist stuff." I don't think it's very genuine what you're doing.
What
I think this is something that
this
appeals
is
to your audience.
Silly. No, it's not. You started on with traffic fatalities, and I
No,
thought
I
you were
didn't start
wrong.
on. I
Yes,
didn't start
you
on with
did.
traffic fatalities. You said,
It's
"What
one of the
issue
things
would you
said.
drop and not talk about?" And this is exactly why.
Right, but
because
when we
these are
talked
the
about
conversations that always
marijuana,
occur.
that was one of the things that you
These
said
are the
was traffic
conversations that always
fatalities,
occur,
wasn't it?
And there's no
Was it?
productive conversation that comes from it.
Oh, sure there is.
No.
For people who are listening to this is extremely productive because
Okay.
they understand how someone with blinders can ignore the evidence
Sure.
and figure out some way where they're being wronged intellectually.
like someone
And
like
say-
blinders-
Someone will say that, oh, you should be in some sort of a debate. You've never been in a debate. You don't know what fucking debates I've been in. You know what
No, they're like
conversations
Steven
I've been
Seagal.
in with
We're all
people that have-
untelevised, right,
You
Joe?
don't know. You don't know what
So I'm calling you on your
conversations I've
bullshit,
had.
man. I'm calling you on your bullshit. Then
Wait,
do it when people can
conversations
see.
that I've had? You're saying
you
I've
do
never
it
had a
with a safety
conversation
net
with someone
other
who's
people who
prepared.
agree with you, and you bully people.
Steven Crowder,
and you
we're
bully
not,
people.
I'm
and
not
you're
bullying
intellectually
people.
not
We're
gonna bully
having
someone.
fun. Why is this bullying?
It's
Why is
bullying
this
because there are
bullying?
2 people who hold one opinion, ask me on something that I don't care about, follow up 3, 4 questions to go into an area where you 2 are very specifically passionate, and I said I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it because you're wrong.
No, I don't want to talk because I don't care.
Because he keeps showing
If states
you
want to
wrong.
legalize it, that's fine. But it is a valid issue when people of Colorado are looking at this now, and there are people in Colorado who might vote differently on the marijuana issue because of how it's perceived or because of the information at hand. And I believe that people in Colorado should be able to vote. They voted for pot. But if they want to vote the other way, in states, they have the right to do that.
Who's arguing against that?
Well, that was my point when we were talking about marijuana. My point was when I worked at Fox, we were thrust onto panels where you had to talk about this because it was going on in Colorado.
I can't believe you called me a bully. That's such a left-wing tactic.
You are.
How dare you?
You are.
How dare you?
You are.
How dare is it? How's it a bully?
You are.
What,
you do
facts?
that. No,
Facts
no, no,
bully
no,
you?
no, facts. You use
How is it a
all
bullying?
of this, use these absolutes and call someone on it and then say, well, no, hold
What
on, I'm just
absolutes
joking.
did I
I'm just
use?
joking.
What absolutes
You
did I
said,
use?
oh, okay, let me give you one that I can pull from my memory
Please
bank.
do.
All of them were on alcohol.
That did fuck that up.
Yeah, and you've done it several times.
But we did. We're
But
supposed
if we
to pull
want
up
to have a productive
statistics.
discussion,
Pull up
I
statistics.
wouldn't be doing that. I
But
wouldn't
I
be
know
calling
there's
in
a
all that
large
stuff.
number. There's a large number. It's just Narcanon or one of those companies. One of those. There was one that
Oh,
was
shit,
unlikely
it's 5
source.
o'clock?
Yeah. Well, you don't tell me you have to leave now.
My
before we
flight's at
turn
6.
this around. Well, you're gonna miss your flight no matter what. Now, you're fucked. We're gonna be fine, dude.
No, I'm not going to be fine. I'm not going to make my flight back.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine. You live in America. You could be in Ethiopia right now. huddling in a fucking hut,
Yeah.
trying to protect yourself from some rabid animal.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. We're gonna be fine. You got a little defensive. I thought we were friends.
No, you didn't.
I thought you did. That's
thought
why I
we were
wanted
friends
to
too,
have
but
you
listen,
on
man,
here.
listen.
I thought we were gonna have some fun.
We were having fun, and then toward the end of the conversation, you asked me what issue do you not care about. I don't really care about the pot issue, which I thought I cared about when I was 21. You said you wouldn't defend issues when you were 7 years ago, right? All of your cells had. When I was 21, I was probably a lot harsher on pot than I am today. I thought it was worse. I grew up around it. I had negative experiences. Then I realized that was anecdotal. I don't really care much anymore about it. I think states should be able to do what they want to do. Then 3, 4, 5 follow-up questions so we could get to a point into this debate where the show has now gone on 2-3 hours long and I've missed my flight.
Well, what you were trying to say was that people that are pro-marijuana ignore the negative consequences of marijuana, and I asked you what those were.
Right.
And you said traffic fatalities.
one of them.
And then we tried to find out if that's true, and we found out it's not.
You didn't find out that it's not true. You made an argument that it's not true, but we didn't definitively find out that it's not true.
A lot of statistics.
Well, it's very easy to do that when you ignore opposing statistics.
No, let's find the
and
opposing
make false
statistics.
claims about them.
Let's have
Joe,
Jamie find
Joe, I
opposing
don't have another
statistics.
hour. I've missed my flight. I don't have another
You're
hour to
not-
get into the pot
You
issue.
definitely have plenty of time, man. You're not going to get your flight. You got a lot of time. This is an interesting argument.
Right.
It's an interesting argument because it shows what happens when people not necessarily disagree, but getting into a position where one person wants to have the upper hand. And you keep jockeying back and forth. And we're trying to figure out who's going to wind up on the top of the heap.
No, there's no jockeying back and forth.
Not at all?
You're the one jockeying back and forth.
Oh, sweetie. You know that's
Don't
not
call me
true.
sweetie.
Come
Don't do
on,
that. That's a
honey.
bully thing.
Honey.
Come on, that's a bully thing.
If that's a bully thing,
That's a
then
bully
we have
thing.
a real
That's
problem
a
in
bully
this
thing.
country.
Pussy,
Come
dumb
on.
fuck,
that
honey.
might be dumb fuck might be bullying.
Yeah.
Sweetie
which,
is not bullying.
Which you've done.
Come on, I did it as a joke because I thought we were friends.
No, you don't think we talk every now and then. I do.
I like
listen,
you.
I like you too, but I knew.
You don't think we're friends? You brought me a pipe. You gave me a pipe.
I did give you a pipe.
You've been on my podcast twice.
I know.
How dare
I'm
you?
I'm
Hurt my
guessing probably
feelings.
not invited back.
You're a goddamn bully. I'll invite you back. Are
Listen,
you serious?
Here's the truth.
Are you upset more than me? Who's more upset
listen,
here?
when you say you're defensive, and you have somebody else to bring up sources, let's be
I'll
let's
look
be
up
real
anything
here.
you want me to.
No, I don't want you to look up
Okay.
anything you want me
Well.
to.
Jamie will be. Let me tell you something. If Jamie found something that shows me I'm wrong, and he does
Hey.
all the time, he pulls it up.
Well, not gay Jared knows that he has a standing policy. On our show, we do it differently. And that's why I invited you on the show. Last time
how do you do it differently?
We
What
did it
does it
differently.
have-
Okay, if
how's it
Christopher Titus
relevant?
comes on the show, if Sally Cohn comes on the show, if you come on the show and you say, I want to talk about pot in the show. If you say that and you say, I disagree with you. I say, okay, not gay Jared, not a word, and you don't bring up any sources. This is going to be
Well, there's a difference
conversation
between you
of
and
ideas.
me. I'd let him talk. I'd be like, "Do you think I would ask
No, Jared
him?
talks all the time, but I don't think it's fair.
Why not? I would talk to him too.
I
He's a
don't
human
think, I don't
being.
think 2-on-1 in an argument is fair.
It's not
intellectually.
2-on-1.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's not. And if he disagrees with me and you disagree with me together, we can go back and forth all together. I don't care. I don't mind if there's 3 people. Get another friend that hates pot. Bring him in.
I don't hate pot.
Well, I mean, just
Again,
I'm
there
saying,
you go,
like,
right
find
there,
someone
right
who
there.
does.
What absolutes?
No,
There was
another
a total
friend,
mischaracter-
not
no,
you.
No, hold on a second. Before you
Another
said what
friend who
absolutes?
hates pot.
I said mischaracterizations and absolutes. There, I don't hate pot.
I'm not saying you do. I'm saying get a friend who hates pot. Bring
So
him
get
in as
another
well.
friend who hates pot.
Get
Joe.
another friend.
What
other
does
than
another
Jay
mean?
Garrett. Get another
Have-
friend who
have
also
him look
hates
up
pot.
another. Have Jamie look up
should've-
another.
I should have used the word also.
No, because the implication there is another, meaning you hate pot.
No, I
If
don't
I
think
said,
you hate
Joe,
pot.
get another person
I
who
don't think you
endorsed
hate
Bernie
pot.
Sanders and then had
I
egg
think-
on his face.
I think
it would
you hate
imply that you
losing
did.
arguments. I think you hate
I
losing
gave you the
arguments.
argument, and you continued for another hour, Joe.
You didn't really. You gave it to me with a caveat, and
Right.
that caveat is
Right.
that I'm a bully,
So-
and that Jamie pulls up statistics that only benefit my
you
ideas.
are on that argument. You are. You are. You are.
How is it a bully when 2 people are talking? How is it bullying?
It's not 2 people talking, though. You don't have a conversation with 2 people talking. You have a failsafe. You have other people who agree with you. You have an audience who agrees with you. I'm on your program.
I'm talking to
You're
my
the host.
audience, man. Just two people talking.
Let me be clear.
Okay.
I don't hate pot.
Okay.
I couldn't care less if you want to smoke pot, if states want to legalize pot.
Okay.
I couldn't care less about that. Now,
Okay.
pot is not a substance without consequence. That's all. And some of those consequences can be damage to the developing brain. When they're 25, we had a psychiatrist on talk about it, and people called her a dumb bitch who, weed cures cancer. There have been statistics and reports on fatalities increasing regarding marijuana. You may not accept them, and maybe you're right on those sources. Maybe your sources are more valid than my sources. I'll grant you that. So my issue is when people are dishonest and only present one side of the issue. I just presented several sides, and on my show on a regular basis, said, listen, if you want to smoke pot, I couldn't care less. Go ahead and smoke pot. And I think that the people who have tried to make you think, reefer madness and wacky tobacco, I think that's overblown. But I also think there are some issues that people who simply want to justify it, sometimes a habit, which could be negative to some people, not all, overlook completely one side of the issue. And there is an entire side of the medical community who disagrees with you. And I don't know that I agree with them or disagree with them yet.
Wait a minute, the medical community?
There is an entire side to the medical community who would disagree with your position. And
What position?
I don't know that you think marijuana is a benign substance.
I don't think it's benign to developing brains. We already discussed that.
Okay, good example. Developing brains.
Well, I don't think
But
alcohol
I think
is as well.
I would agree. I think a lot of kids who listen to the show, and I know you're not responsible, it's like you should be 18 in Canada, you should be 16 years old to drive a car. You're not telling kids to go and smoke up. But I think a lot of people who are listening, you have many young listeners, who are in that developmental stage, certainly under the age of 25, who only hear the positive virtues extolled of marijuana. Sometimes they're not entirely honest. Sometimes they're not entirely accurate, I should say. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
Necessarily accurate, how so?
Well, for
what
example,
positive things
let me ask you
are
this.
not
Have you ever on
necessarily
your program
accurate?
talked about how harmful marijuana could be to the developing brain under 25?
Yeah, we have many times.
Have you? In a way
Yeah.
that you've conceded that's valid?
No, we've said that I don't think you should do anything. I don't think like any 15-year-old should do anything to their brain because we don't know what the fuck happens to your brain when you give a kid alcohol. I did it. I'm sure you probably did it too. When did you drink first? How old were you?
Probably like 15. Well, first beer, probably.
I think I
really
was
young, but
14
15,
the first time I got
16,
drunk with my friends. I mean, it's terrible. It's not good for you. It's not smart. It's definitely not smart. And I know, and you know, and I'm sure we all know someone who did get completely overindulgent in marijuana and became one of those wake and bake people that ruined their life.
Sure.
And I think people can do that with almost any substance, anything that's psychoactive at least. I think people do that with cigarettes where they need that fucking cigarette more than they need anything. I think a lot of AA people do that with cigarettes and alcohol. They replace their weird addiction to alcohol to something that's not as bad for them. I think there's a lot of things for the developing mind, particularly for the developing mind, that we have available to us all the time that are really dangerous. I had Henry Rollins on here. He was talking about when he was a little kid. He was like 5-year-old. They put him on Ritalin.
Yeah.
One time he was 5. I think that's fucking horrible. I think psych meds for little kids that don't necessarily need them, but maybe they're just a little too energetic. I think all that shit's horrible. So whether it's marijuana or alcohol or Quaaludes or whatever you want to give a 15-year-old kid that's got a developing mind, I think there's massive consequences, and I don't think you can really calculate those consequences. That's my position.
I think you can calculate those consequences.
Well, I think you can, but I mean, you would have to fuck up a lot of kids in order to really prove the
No, I mean, I
statistical
think-
viability of what damage is being done to kids and how much would cause the
Are you
damage.
talking about Ritalin now? Or are you
I'm talking about Quaaludes, alcohol, marijuana, heroin,
who does
meth.
Quaaludes in 2017?
Wow, Quaaludes, Oxys. Let's go with OxyContins. I'm just talking about downers. I'm talking about anything where it's a depressant or a stimulant. There's a significant amount of effects across
I don't think
the
Oxy's a
board.
barbiturate, by the way. I think it's just classified as a narcotic. It's not like a downer, like a benzodiazepine or something.
Or aren't opiates considered a downer?
I don't think they're
of them a
officially
downer?
considered barbiturates.
Well,
I think they're.
is it a depressant? Alcohol's a depressant, right?
Alcohol's a central nervous system depressant.
Right.
But I know something like a Quaalude or I actually knew a power lifter where the only drug he could. It was a prescription. People don't remember this. The date rape drug was a prescribed drug. A guy named Chad.
One of the date rape drugs.
Well, whatever the most common date rape drug. I don't know if it's actually Rufalin or whatever it's called. But most commonly used or the most effective date rape drug.
I know what you're thinking about, but I can't. It's not coming to me. I know the drug, but it's a weird one where it helps bodybuilders sleep.
Well,
They
this
would
guy was a
take it-
power lifter.
Yeah. Power lifters do it too because it actually infers more
growth hormone?
Well, not just growth hormone, but recovery time because they have like deep sleep. What is it called?
But you know what I'm talking about.
What is
It's
it?
used as a date rape drug.
Not or hypnol. That's not what you're talking
No,
about.
not that's roofies.
Yeah.
That's roofies. There's another thing. I know what you're talking
But
about.
it's used
though.
as a date rape drug.
Yes.
And there was a guy who
If you
actually
give
that was the
people a lot
only
of
thing
it.
he could sleep on. And,
Right.
and then it became so they don't prescribe it anymore. He had insomnia. He had like an 1100 squat. Was not quite world record, but close to it. And lived out in Reno, Nevada. And that was the only way he could sleep. When he wasn't able to get it anymore, his lifts
Did you find it?
fell.
Progestrix?
No.
Could be.
no. God damn it! It's got a real common name. I'll text my buddy because he had an overdose of it.
God.
But he was like 18. Oh, God. Hold on a second. Can you talk, please? For a moment while I pull
You
this
want me to
up?
talk?
GHB?
I don't know what you want to talk about.
GHB, thank you. That's it.
I'm pissed.
I had
I'm
a
missing
buddy
my
of
flight.
mine-
I have a show to do tomorrow. And
Where are you
that's not
going?
gonna happen. I have to go back. I have a show tomorrow.
A TV show or radio? Oh, your
My
show?
show to do. There's no way we're gonna get it done.
Us making up is going to be so good for your show and my show, too.
No, it's not. The entire commentary from this is going to be, oh my God, what a moron. He thinks weed doesn't cure cancer.
No, man. We're
Oh,
gonna
I
be
guarantee
fine.
it. I guarantee
Yeah,
it.
but don't worry about it. We're gonna get through this and get through it in a way that makes sense. Look,
to rebook my flight.
I definitely get weird with these conversations, and I assume everybody can get, fake hostile with me. So if I call it, come on, bitch, I talk to you like that, I don't mean it in a negative. I do it like I would do it if you were Brian Callen, and he would start laughing along.
Yeah.
But you live in Michigan, you get a little sensitive.
Come on,
You're right.
no. When you go, that's adorable. Let's not act
That
like
is
that's
adorable.
No, hold on a second. When you said that's not meant to, and we were joking about other topics, but on that you lasered in, got serious. You're wrong. Let's stay on this. Pound it in. That's just it's just I don't understand the purpose to it.
Have some fun.
So that's fun.
It's
So
a little bit of fun.
So you like doing that. You like having someone in,
certain-
disagreeing with them,
when
and
someone's
going to town.
getting a little silly, like I think you might have got a little silly. I like
Really?
to have a little fun.
Got a little silly. Did I bring up the pot issue? I said it's the issue I care about the least.
Come on, now let's get away from that. We're free. We're out of the woods.
All right.
We're back on the road. We're doing good.
I'm
You just
not on
want to
the road.
grab
I
the
don't know.
wheel and
I
go
don't- I don't
fucking
have any
crazy
place to get
again.
back.
Turn towards the trees. Don't do it. Resist.
Nitro hibiscus cold brew tea.
It's tea. Yeah.
I had a hibiscus beer recently. The most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. And I love hibiscus tea. Just does not work for beer.
I bet if you were wearing Birkenstocks and you had if you had white dreadlocks, you would have thought this is amazing.
Have you seen that
This
kombucha
hibiscus beer?
Have you actually
I've
seen-
had kombucha.
No, kombucha beer. It's
So
like,
that's like a kombucha that's like super strong, right?
well, here's the thing. I don't know how they do it because the alcohol with the active culture in kombucha should figuratively, right? There shouldn't be
Well-
alcohol. Shouldn't it figuratively eat it as sugar because of the way kombucha ferments?
No, not necessarily, because GT's kombucha that you buy at Whole Foods, you have to actually have an ID to buy it because
really?
it's more than 0.5% alcohol by volume. So you have to show your ID and be over 21 in order to buy kombucha.
Right.
Now that you say that, I think I might have tried kombucha beer once.
Called, can I say the name? Or is it
Yeah,
it's
go
called
ahead.
Good Vibrations. And there's one that's okay and one that literally tastes like
One
vomit.
that's
vomit.
okay?
There's like a ginger one and there's like and one of them the problem is I don't remember which one. So it's rolling the dice every time you have it.
See, some people, I just tell them about kombucha, about the positive benefits of probiotics, and like you should try it, and you should eat kimchi, and you should eat
I was a kefir
sauerkraut. Kefir's great.
I had my own culture. Have you ever done kefir yourself?
No, but I did make kombucha myself. I've
Okay.
done that before.
Kefir's easier.
Really?
Yeah, it looks like a slimy, kind of like a sea brain or cauliflower.
Isn't
So-
it like a grain originally?
Technically, it's a grain, but it's really just an active culture of bacteria and yeast. So literally, as opposed to yogurt with a straining or kombucha, which you literally just put it in a jar, put it in on a countertop for a day, and strain it. And after I think about 4 or 5 batches, it's doubled. And then it
Whoa.
quadruples. It's like an investment account. And my wife killed it while I was on the road, actually, doing stand-up. I had a few shows, and I came back, and you have to replace it every day. Otherwise, there's no sugar to feed it. And I came back, and it looked like a snot rag, and that was the end of it. Now I just buy it at the store.
Kombucha is not really a fungus, but it's somehow or another like a cousin of a fungus, and people think it's a fungus, but it's a life form. And when you get it, like I had it at one point in time, it was like the size of a laptop, and I had this like big salad bowl, and I was growing kombucha in my refrigerator in the salad bowl, and the whole top of the salad bowl was this rubbery sort of life form.
It's that like disc. It's like a pancake.
But it would get big. It would get really big. And then what I would do is I would drain it into a pitcher, and I would put the pitcher into the refrigerator, and then I would put more of the sugar water, and I forget what all the ingredients were, but I know sugar was a part of it because
Yeah.
the culture had to eat sugar in order to stay alive, and then it would ferment, and the fermentation was a part of it, and then you would, and you get like some sort of probiotic benefit from it.
That's a lot harder than kefir. Because kefir, you just pour the milk and the lactose is the sugar, and that's it, and it's done. What's actually good about it, too, if you read the studies on it, like 2 tablespoons of kefir, like actual homemade kefir, is tens of billions, of microorganisms. As opposed to yogurt
super
might be
good
millions.
for you.
And it's higher in protein, because if you do the math, so you can still, basically at that point, you're left without the lactose, so you're left with really just the fat and the protein.
Yeah.
And all the B vitamins, so it's like I read an article once. I cannot corroborate this, but they said that whole goat's milk kefir, if you could only have one food, would be the most complete food you could have.
Wow. But what about all your vitamins that you would get, like phytonutrients?
Well,
and
it's
shit
not
that you get?
ideal.
It's not ideal.
I think if you could only do one, because you get the B vitamins, you get vitamin D, you get vitamin K.
Yeah.
And that's what I read. They said if you could only have one, and then there was an article that said if you could only have two, it'd be like that and egg yolks.
Have you ever fucked with like some of those pharmaceutical grade probiotics? Like what was Rhonda Patrick was talking about those once on the podcast? She was talking about some stuff. You have to refrigerate it. You buy it as like super potent.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I have.
Have you?
Well, you know, my producer Not Gay Jared had ulcerative colitis, so he has no colon.
Oh Jesus Christ!
So he's going to our office bathroom 4 or 5 times a day.
Oh, the poor guy.
And I had a problem one time where I was so stressed. You know, I have all these nerve endings where my stomach I thought, oh no, ulcerative colitis. Was getting tested for it, and it just turned out it was stress. And they put me on these probiotics, and it didn't really work. And then when I did the kefir, that actually helped a lot more.
Wouldn't it be ironic if marijuana was really the cure that you needed the entire time?
I bet you it probably would have helped because it would have eased the anxiety. I bet you it would have.
It might have, but it also might have made you more anxious because it makes people. That's one thing. You want to talk about here's the negative. I'll give you one side of the negative that people ignore is the paranoia that marijuana gives you. It 100% gives you paranoia. I have had some friends that were deep potheads that went fucking cold turkey and don't want to go back. It's like a monster that's in their closet that's waiting to get them when they go to pick out their socks. There's no doubt about it. It has this one effect on some people, particularly if you take too much of it or if your life is getting away from you. You know, if it's like slipping away from you and then you start waking bacon and then you just don't ever deal with all your issues so they compound and fucking whirlwind and
Well, I was
El
told
Nino
that
of bullshit.
actually, by my
Yeah?
shrink. She's like, have you done this gene site testing?
No, what's that?
Really haven't done it?
No.
I'm surprised. So it's mainly used in psychiatry now, but they're saying it's going to have all kinds of future with, determining cancer and things like that. And they actually use it to look for depression, bipolar, ADHD, and they can look at your genes. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm going to butcher this, but basically for me, they can look at your dopamine and say, okay, this is how your genetics work. And
Can they tell you
basically,
if you're gay?
I don't know if they can tell if you're gay, but
If
maybe
they
they'll
did,
find
would
it
you
at some
accept
point.
it? Or
I
would-
already have accepted it. I actually have a video called "Do You Choose to Be Gay?" and my answer is definitively no.
What if it was you?
Well, again, because I don't choose, I pretty much knew when I tuned into the OC when I was a kid and I was looking at Misha Barton and Rachel Bilson and the people who wanted to screw Adam Brody. I think that's when you realize you're gay. If it were me, then I'd be gay.
Okay.
What does that matter?
Just question.
Would you be uncomfortable if I
If
were
you
gay?
were gay? No. I've had Milo on the show
Because I've
twice.
complimented you quite a bit.
Thank you.
You could look
Appreciate
back and
that.
think, well, maybe he's gay. Maybe he had ulterior motives.
I don't think I would think that way.
But with dopamine, with me, like we have a relative in the family who actually, who has an issue, and so they looked at genes that create serotonin, and then okay, most people have a long gene and a short gene, and you have 2 short genes, and with me that's the case with dopamine. So like a lot of people who would maybe typically be addicts, or people with ADHD, or people who, for me, I didn't realize this until I was a lot older. Look, I'm going to totally expose myself as vulnerable to all the angry potheads after the argument. I didn't realize until I was older, I didn't actually feel the same feelings of joy or like pleasure that other people do. So dopamine, right? You know how that works. It's your reward center. Like you do something good, bang. And I was a B student in high school. I never opened a textbook because if I completed something, I did a project, that was it. Most people are like, I did a project. I was like, okay, I did a project. What's the next thing? I never really felt that reward center in the brain. And they did this gene site testing, and they found that basically I have the worst genetic pattern. It's not entirely accurate, but it's actually increased the efficacy of antidepressants from like a 1 in 2 to like a 2 in 3.
Wow.
Something like that. Because they can look and look at your genetics more effectively. And so,
No,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
have you taken antidepressants?
I've taken ADHD medication.
That's not antidepressants.
No, it's not
though. That's
antidepressants, but it's easy to.
hyperactivity disorder is a completely different situation.
Well,
right?
it's also basically a dopamine shortage.
ADHD is. Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's why stimulants, on people who actually have ADHD, don't rev them up, actually just zone them in. Some kid takes Adderall who's studying and they feel like wired. And before the genetic testing, that's how they often tested for it. Is, well, how do you react to this drug? And if you feel wired, like me with all this, I had 600 milligrams of caffeine.
Right.
then you probably don't have ADHD.
What kind of shit did they put you on when they put you on ADHD medication?
You know, the basic like Adderall stuff like that.
Oh, so they put you on Adderall?
I've taken it, and I don't take it every day because I never want to be dependent on it.
How often do you take it?
I don't know.
A couple times a week?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Do you just take it when you're feeling down? Like, how do you take it?
It is amazing. I will tell you this. I never realized until I took it, and this is not. I'm not advocating because I think it's way overprescribed.
I think you're right.
I think most kids I don't think you should put kids on it.
I think you're right too.
And I think that most kids or most people who take it don't need it. But I also think that there are people with real conditions out there
like you
that can benefit from it.
Well, you have a genetic. You can prove it.
Well, because for the longest time, my wife will hear this, and I denied it through and through. I thought, no, this is bullshit. The ADHD is just to get kids whacked out on Ritalin. And I had people I would deal with like counseling or stuff as a kid because I would get stressed. I had stress management issues. And they're like, have you ever thought about ADHD? I'm like, no, I don't believe it. And then I was given a book on ADHD, and I've never finished reading it. I read like 3 pages and moved on to something else. And they said, okay, let's do this test, this whole kind of questionnaire deal. And it was pretty extensive, short of actually doing a CAT scan. I said, okay, you test like in the top 99th percentile. And we did the GeneSight testing. I think it's called GeneSight. And it was pretty remarkable. And I will say that I won't get into exactly what it is that I've done or what medications I've taken, but it was certainly life-changing as far as I didn't know what normal people felt like.
Wow, that's really fascinating. ADHD is a fascinating form of a sort of a mild mental disorder that's extremely frequent.
I don't think it's as frequent as a lot of people think, though. I would give you like.
You think
kids,
it's overprescribed?
Yeah, I really do. I really do, because whenever I say it, people go, "Oh, I'm major ADD." I go, "No. It's not the same thing."
Right. That's the thing that people like to say to just compensate for them being a douchebag.
Asperger's.
I'm so ADHD.
Oh, you're a dick.
I'm on the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the autistic spectrum. But it is. I came into it kicking and screaming. And
wow.
I mean, I never did any in school. I just did the bare minimum. It was so boring. So boring. And then when they started doing actual test IQ testing and stuff, and we found like, well, listen, medication doesn't make you smarter. Right?
See, I have my own theories about this whole thing that they do when they take kids and they make them all sit in the same school, in the same class, and listen to the same subject.
Right.
I don't think there's anything in life that mirrors that. And I think experiences in life vary radically. And I think that if you looked at nature and the great spectrum of survivors and, winners and losers and how genes get expressed and how evolution takes place in nature, there's all sorts of different kinds of animals. Why wouldn't we assume there's all sorts of different kinds of people? And whenever you force all people to sit down and do the same thing, you're going to have aberrations. You're going to have people that don't. Like, obviously, you found something with your show and with public speaking that you excel at. Like, you found this thing, like this ranting thing that you could do. Where you could just go on 100 words a second about all these different things. Like, you found this thing where whatever way your brain works, it works perfectly for that. It's the same thing with a stand-up comedian. It's the same thing with a musician, an author. There's a lot of people that daydream all the time, like, oh, you're a fucking loser. No, this guy's writing books in his fucking head. Just give him a goddamn laptop, and he's going to make $1 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
I mean, and the truth is, people, they want to ignore. You probably talked about this with Christine Hoff Sommers. Actually, there are people who have a lot of those kind of interactions that you talked about in a classroom on a daily basis. They're called women. They sit down and talk. Think about women they get together with a book group or whatever it is. They literally sit down and listen, and they'll listen to someone. And that's it. And they'll sit because they're very auditory. That's the way they learn. The public education system in the United States was designed for girls from the ground up. And you put boys into a world where they don't do well. They do not thrive in that atmosphere, but girls do. And that's why girls have much higher grades in high school going into college. And then when boys can study at their own pace, they do better on the SATs. There's actually a great book called Wild at Heart, I think, by John Eldridge, that talks about that. And this is a long time ago, talking about, then rather, we know boys learn better with their hands. Think about it, right? It's considered a masculine gym, shop, or not just masculine things, but physical science, where you're working in a laboratory. Those are subjects where boys actually tend to do better than girls often in high school, or they rate it as something they like. Instead of changing the way we do male education, we try and change little boys. And that's a real problem. And I think that's a big reason, not because someone was bullied, because someone used the word fag. I think you probably have a lot of incidents of depression in young boys in particular, because you're putting them in an atmosphere where they can't possibly succeed.
Yeah, well, I think both are problematic, but I think the square peg round hole issue has been there for the beginning of school in the first place. I mean, I don't mean to be like a proponent of homeschooling, but really, once you have kids, I think you kind of realize that, God damn, every kid out of the box is a totally different thing. They're just different.
Yeah, we're going to homeschool. Because my wife, she went to Montessori school, and she went to, I don't know if it was a public high school or private high school. But she's a genius. She's very, very smart, but she did not do well in a normal school at all. At all.
Do you think you could find a school that maybe is more flexible or because the thing
That's
about
the Montessori school.
Socializing is critical for kids, and socializing during the day where other kids they learn about each other. You know, they learn about interactions, and you can talk to them too. They come home. You know, Debbie said something mean to me. What did she say? And,
yeah.
You know, I mean,
I think that's important. I can tell you kind of a tale of two homeschooled kids. I won't give any names here because they'll know who they are. I have a family. They have homeschooled kids. Very weird. Just stare at their screen all day. I have another family friends who were homeschooled their kids. They're the best kids you could possibly have at an adult dinner table because they put the kids in jiu-jitsu. I think one of them does tennis. They put kids in all kinds of social activities. They travel with the kids. They take them to Europe. And then whenever they have adult get-togethers, where it's appropriate for kids to be, they still have adult night and date night. Kids can be there. And they'll speak when asked to speak. They don't interrupt. They're able to interact with adults. They're probably the most well-adjusted kids I've ever seen. And then I have seen the weird, creepy homeschooled kids where you do your class on your iPad, and then afterwards you get to watch PewDiePie, play video games or whatever it is. So it really does come down to the parents. But I do think that a parent who knows how to homeschool a kid, I think that's going to be, especially if the mom is at home with the kids, I think that's a huge leg up for them.
There's obviously so many variables as far as the intellect of the parents and what their thought process is behind homeschooling their kid and what their experience level is and how much thought they put into it and where they're coming from emotionally, psychologically, intellectually. Yeah, there's a lot of variables. I mean, the idea homeschooling's bad or homeschooling's good. I have friends that have homeschooled 3 of their kids. They have 4 kids. They homeschooled 3 of them. The kids are fine.
Yeah.
They're fine. They put a lot of work into it. They spent a lot of time with their kids. They took their kids all over the world. They took their kids traveling all through Europe.
Yeah.
They just decided at some point in time, and it wasn't always homeschool. They had done some public school. They had done some private school. And then they got to a point, they were like, look, like, what are we doing here? Like, we're trying to, the kids got older into their, like, preteens and then their teens. And then they came to this conclusion, like what they're coming back from high school with and from middle school with is not what I want them to be exposed with. I want them to be exposed to the classics. I want them to be exposed to life and just looking at human beings in a way that's like open-minded and traveling and seeing things. And so instead of like necessarily just having them take Spanish, they lived in Spain for a little while. They went to Spain and lived there. So they did some interesting shit.
Crazy Asian you were talking about on Tucker Carlson. She's a middle school teacher.
Yeah.
Think of the enclaves of crazy places where these social justice warriors go, and often they go into teaching because it's their way to get power of these little kids. And here's the thing. We wrote about that on the website. And what I wrote about that was...
That interview?
Yeah. What I wrote about that was, this is a horrible interview because she's okay with violence in Berkeley. But what really disturbs me is every other professor out there who isn't a national story. Let's say she didn't get caught on camera hitting a guy with a stick, right? But some kid stands up who's a conservative in middle school. I was that way, where I would argue with the teacher, and just says, well, I think you're wrong. And she kicks that kid out of class and just says that kid's being disruptive. Or if let's say that teacher is the principal, gets the kid expelled from school. These people have these little enclaves of power, these positions of authority, and parents kind of have to trust the teacher. So you see that it's a national story. She's exposed, but what about all the teachers who aren't? I had a teacher complain to my parents and talk about how disrespectful I was and what a horrible person I was, because I think in the 9th grade, I actually argued, I was like, I actually don't think we should give the land back to the Native Americans when she was teaching
I'm with the teacher. Fuck you.
Yeah, but I made an argument. And she
what
like,
was your argument? What did you say?
Well, I was a smartass, so this was me as a 14-year-old.
Right.
And I said, the fact that, I remember who she was, I won't use her name. I said, the fact that you're wearing Levi's, and because you have a sore throat, you're speaking through an electronic speaker when you just drove here in a Toyota Yaris, and you're in an electrically powered school in a union, tells me you're glad that we settled here. And she didn't answer. She didn't argue. She just sent me out of class. and call. And I remember the next morning, I thought it was I didn't really think. My dad was furious because he got a call from someone saying I was disrupting class, or she asked students.
Was
"Do you
your
agree
dad
with me?"
mad at the teacher?
No, he's mad at me.
Why was he mad at you?
Because he didn't get the full story. He just, he just hears
I see.
Stevens being immensely disrespectful,
Right.
talking back in class. He didn't hear she asked for an opinion. This was MRE, Moral Religious Education, was a class we had to take in Montreal.
Moral religious education.
Yep.
So there's guilt for the First Nation people up in Canada. Is that what it is?
This just specific professor. And a matter of fact, I learned what right wing was because I remember at one point she said, "That's so right wing. That's so right." And I didn't know what it was. I was 14. I had said something, and I said, "Dad, what does right wing mean?" He says, "Well," and he kind of explained to me the political spectrum. I said, "Okay, I guess I am right wing."
I was in Alberta, and I was with some friends who live up there, and we were fishing. And we were fishing right next to these First Nation people, which are they're Native Americans, right? And they have a limit of walleye that you can take. You can only take one walleye per day.
Right.
If you're a regular person. But if you're a First Nations person, you could just
Yeah.
pull in as many as you want. And I was like, how does that work? And they go, oh, it's way crazier than that. They can go out at night with spotlights and shine them on moose and gun them down from trucks.
Well, right, because doesn't it freeze them?
Yeah.
The spotlight.
Yeah, they don't know what it is.
They don't know what
so
they
they stand
do.
still and
Yeah.
they try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Moose don't see spotlights
Right.
ever in the real world. So,
Yeah.
so when they see one, they freeze, then they shoot them with guns from trucks. And I was like, what? So they're allowed to poach.
Yeah.
Well, it's not poaching. They can do whatever they want. I go, well, how many are they allowed to kill? As many as they want.
Yeah.
So they can kill all the moose. They can kill all the moose. Whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, what? That seems odd.
You know who makes a great argument in the Native American case is actually, have you read Chael Sonnen's book?
No.
It's very interesting. And he talks about this, like Michael Medved and Dennis Prager have talked about this, but I was surprised as to how cogent Chael's arguments were.
He's a very smart guy.
Well, he's a very smart guy, and then he always kind of plays it down or plays it up when it's convenient. But if you read his book, he talks about it. He says it's just a numbers game. The reason that we were able to colonize here is entirely because of Native Americans. They were being, he wrote about it in a way, I'm butchering it, but he said, like, when we came, for example, like, let's talk about the Mayans. He goes, they had literally pyramids or Aztec, whatever, they had buildings entirely full of gold. He goes, now, how do you think they procured said gold? Do you think that they maybe went to other tribes or other members and said, you are going to bring us this gold, or B, die? And so what happened was thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, said when the conquistadors came, who would never have had enough to take over that area of the world, said, we're going to take our chances with the red guys with the beards and the metal helmets because they've been treated so poorly for so long. And the same thing if you look at the Algonquins and the Iroquois in Quebec, those were the tribes that we had and the kind of the pacts that they would have. And listen, they screwed them. Don't get me wrong. They really screwed them with the firewater thing, and they pulled the rug out from under them. I'm not defending it. But the idea that we came in and just conquered these people, no, there were a lot of people who were mistreated because this horse culture that they did, first off, they hadn't domesticated horses. They didn't even use the wheel. And so a lot of the things that were taught are not true, and we're taught that they were peaceful. No, they weren't peaceful. That's why all of a sudden these new people who came in with sticks that go boom had thousands of Native Americans at their disposal who were willing to die with them because they were tired of being treated that way. And I made some argument to maybe that effect, got in trouble, got sent home.
Well, it's a complicated issue that spans hundreds of years, but there was certainly intertribal warfare, and the word that the Sioux use, they don't use the word Sioux, they use the word Lakota. They call themselves Lakota people. Sioux is a word for enemy. That's what it means. So, like, that's what other Native American cultures would call them. They would call them the enemy because they were killing each other. The Nez Perce and the Apaches, they would go to war with each other, neighboring tribes. It was constant. It's just when the Europeans came, they were so overwhelming that we feel bad for what they did. But you know what killed more Native Americans than anything? Our diseases.
Yeah.
Our dirty, dirty bugs.
Yeah.
We came over here and coughed on them, and they all fucking died.
Well, that's another thing, too, right? That we killed them deliberately with smallpox blankets. That's not true.
That's not true.
We didn't even understand. We didn't have germ theory.
No, they didn't understand. They didn't understand that scabs. If you take the idea was you took scabs from people with fucking diseases and you put them on blankets and you gave them Native Americans. You walk out rubbing your hands. No, that's
Well, a big thing was horses.
Yeah.
They hadn't domesticated horses and a lot of animals. So think about that. You've never come in contact with these animals. They're in the wild, and all of a sudden these people are coming off effectively with a boat that's a giant farm. and they're bringing these animals in that you've never had contact with before. All kinds of diseases.
Oh, sure. Well, that's the thing that a lot of people who don't understand where diseases come from, a giant percentage of them come from our livestock.
Right.
That's why you have swine flu and avian viruses and all these
Bird
different
flu.
things. Yeah.
SARS in the Toronto airport, only Canada. Remember
SARS?
that? Yeah, we
Yes,
brought back SARS.
You were the only ones who had SARS? What
Well,
was
in the
SARS
New
called?
World.
What did it stand for?
I don't remember. I just knew SARS. I knew all the
Yeah.
Asians were wearing those masks at the Toronto airport.
I remember SARS.
Yeah.
That one. Well, about Ebola was just a year ago. Everybody's fucking. We're gonna die. Ebola. That fucking chick from New Jersey. That bitch. She left the hospital. Right. That was a big
I remember
deal.
got so much flack from conservatives too, because I was like, listen, I don't like Barack Obama as a president, but you can't blame Ebola on the guy. And they're like, oh, fuck you.
It's an African disease. He's from
Yeah,
Kenya.
I know, and that's one of those things where I know I'm seen as an ideologue, but it's something like we get so much flack for criticizing Donald Trump, for example, on some trade policies. We're like, I just think this is bad.
What's the big thing that you've been criticized about Trump for?
that I've been criticized about
Yeah,
for?
that your show.
Oh, just for criticizing him at all.
Anything. Like
Anything.
you toe the line.
Yeah, people get real. Well, because they're
Us
used to.
versus them, bro.
Well, because they're used to, like you've had people on the show. You've even mentioned on this program people who are their only raison d'être, right, is being a provocateur to offend. And there's a purpose to that. But if just offending people is the end goal, and I really don't think that's what we do if people actually watch the show. I mean, if people actually watch the show every day, an hour of content, most of it is really pretty reasonable. They see the highlight reel of me dressing as a tranny interviewing Wendy Davis, right?
Right.
Well, that's from thousands and thousands of hours of the program. So we criticize him all the time, but less and less, because every time he does something stupid, the left does something so bad, where it's like calling him literally Hitler.
Like that woman who was a school teacher who was talking
Yeah.
about. Well, the
Or
other
Jim
thing that
Jeffries
really bothered
with
me
Piers
about
Morgan.
that woman who was a school teacher was she was talking about just labeling. They're all fascists, and you have to stop fascists.
Yeah.
And then when he asked her, "What is a fascist?" She gave like this shitbag definition of what a fascist is. It only suited her needs.
Yeah.
Let's pull up the actual literal definition of fascist, young Jamie. What is the literal definition of fascist? As I interpret it, it is.
I
How
did
do
a
you
video.
think-
Oh, I did a video on this, and here's what's so funny. If I'm not mistaken, Google's definition brings up fascism and mentions right wing, but if you bring up communism or socialism, or maybe it's authoritarianism, something that's very clearly left wing, they don't actually mention left wing.
Okay, an advocate or follower of the political philosophy or system of fascism. He went to Spain to fight against the fascists.
There you
Two,
go. Extreme right winger.
yes, extreme right-winger, rightist, or a military coup throughout the old fascist regime. Synonymous. Authoritarian, totalitarian, dictatorial. See, this is where it gets weird. Because
Undemocratic, illiberal. Now type in communism.
But hold on a second. Authoritarian
Yeah.
and totalitarian. Like this, when you talk about extreme left-wing ideologues, you are talking about authoritarians and you're talking about totalitarians.
Yeah.
And you're also talking about people that would advocate violence against anyone who does not fit their mold
Sure.
of how a person should think or behave. And what they do is they call them a fascist or they call them a Nazi, and that lets them alleviate themselves of any guilt of being a violent person against these people. And that's what happened at Berkeley. And that's why this woman felt no irony about being on television saying that Milo is a homophobe when he's a
Right.
gay guy.
Well, and she was also talking about justifying beating up people who weren't Milo. Jamie,
Yes.
could you hit authoritarian real quick? Yeah.
Okay.
Seymour Stevens.
Favoring or enforcing strict obedience or authority, especially that of the
So
government, of the expense of
it was
personal freedom.
fascism. Now, do me a favor. Type in communism, and I want you to see the Google. So that just said right-wing extremism, right, with fascism, which is not a right-wing ideology at all. Communism, do we all agree, is an inherently left-wing ideology?
Yeah, well, a political theory derived from Karl Marx. Well, there's a lot of, like, I had Jordan Peterson on the podcast, and
Yeah.
he really talked about how it's like progressives who are sensitive and kind people gravitate towards Marxism in a lot of ways because the initial draw seems appealing, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid for according to their abilities and needs.
So here's the point, and I wrote about this. I think we did a video on this. Fascism, which is not inherently right-wing at all.
No.
It's not. They write right-wing, extreme right-wing, illiberal, communism, which inherently has to be left-wing. It is the definition of the political spectrum of left-wing would be communism and then capitalism. And then in between can be authoritarianism
Right.
and fascism, depending on the regime. No mention of left-wing with communism because I know this is Google. They know there's a negative connotation. It's the first thing that comes up. But fascism, authoritarianism, they immediately try to attribute to the right. That's what people are fighting back again when they talk about media and fake news and the constant bias. You see it there with Google. That's not fair.
Right. Do you think there's a problem with also defining things in terms of a word like Marxism or like communism? Like, let's just talk about, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you actually trying to appeal to?
Right.
When you're saying that you can't have someone speak at your university if they say things that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember the story about the University of Toronto? Really famous story. Guy who is an author. They completely misrepresented what his book was about. They were saying he's pro-rape culture, and these feminists shut it down. They pulled fire alarms. The famous red-haired lady who's
Yeah.
fucking screaming at people on YouTube videos.
Yeah. I remember her name, Melissa Click. Melissa Click.
No. That's the one from the University of Missouri.
Oh, that's right,
I'm talking about the one from Toronto who is like this, like she's kind of funny in a way because she was like, "Shut up, fuckface! I'm talking." She's screaming at those men.
Yeah. The
You
red,
remember that?
Like
the
blood red
devil.
hair
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
glasses.
I mean, that was this crazy moment in time where this guy had scheduled an appearance to speak about his book.
Yeah.
And someone had misrepresented his book, decided what his book was actually all about, and decided that they were going to have a campaign to make sure this guy couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So people would show up and they would try to just go to listen to this guy talk. And women were screaming in their face, "You
Yeah.
fucking rapist, you piece of shit."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "I want to hear the guy talk. Can I hear the guy talk?" No, they wouldn't let people. I mean, that is fascism.
Well, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Isn't it?
It happened too with Ann Coulter in Toronto, I remember. And whether you agree with her or
She
not,
deserves it.
I disagree with her on a
I don't
lot.
mean that.
But I remember she was asking me like, "What?" And I said, "Well, you don't understand. Freedom of speech doesn't really exist in Canada. As a matter of fact, it doesn't exist outside of the United States.
It really doesn't exist in Canada. I mean, they have some weird rules.
It doesn't
up there.
exist in Europe."
No.
And when I told her that, she couldn't. And then actually, someone went on the news, and said, "Well, what Ann Coulter needs to understand is that America has this idea of free speech and rugged individualism, and all speech is protected. But that's not the case in Canada." And this was the representative they trotted out, where she basically said freedom of speech does not exist in Canada. And so you can read the YouTube comments where every time I say freedom of speech doesn't exist in Canada, thousands of people, that's bullshit, because they think they get to type on an internet message board. But you can be jailed in Canada for saying something wrong. You can lose your business.
There's
for
a
saying
Human
something
Rights
wrong.
Council.
There's
Yeah,
a
we talked about it actually
Mike
yesterday.
Ward. Did you have him, the comedian, on? Yeah.
No, but we talked about, well, he's got a different case. That's from Montreal. We talked about the comedian from Vancouver that had the altercation with the lesbians in the crowd. They were heckling him and the comedians before, and he called them some fucking, "you pussy-eating dykes," or whatever. He said something crazy. And they
One
sued
does.
him and won. They won.
Yeah.
He had pay. I don't know if he's paid, but it was tens of thousands of dollars. I think it was like something like $15,000 this fucking guy had to pay to these people who were hecklers.
Yeah, I know. That people, and you know, that's why, again, when people say, well, the left versus right, this is why it does matter, because I lived through it in Quebec. So in Quebec, we only have the left. We have liberals and then liberal separatists. That's it. There's
So
no
there's
conservative.
liberals and there's liberals who want to only speak French and
separate.
secede from the rest of Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
Quebec's a weird place, right?
It's a very weird place. It's not like the rest of Canada. It's multiculturalism gone awry. The French were a conquered people. It should have been shut up, you're speaking English. Instead, they said, it's cute, let's let them have their little enclave, and now it's just a nightmare for the rest of the
That's
country.
what white golfers are afraid about with California.
Is that what it's
Mexicans are just going to dominate and turn this whole thing into a Mexican-speaking joint.
I don't remember what we were talking about before. Oh, yeah, the left versus the right. Because
Yeah.
I do think you do, at a certain point, and I think a lot of people are readily acknowledging now, that those stories that you're talking about, the red-haired girl, the Melissa Glick, this
Yeah.
Asian lady, you really can't find that today on the right.
Right.
It
That
just
is
doesn't
true.
exist
It's
today on
true.
the right. And that's
doesn't
why
exist like that.
Well, it doesn't exist, period, on the right. You know, people try to point to, like, at parental advisory lyrics and stuff, and he probably has to pee as badly as I do. Oh, my God. And
You
that
can
was,
go pee.
That was Tipper Gore.
Yeah, no, the parental advisory thing from the 80s when they were she was trying to ban rap music.
Yeah.
People forget about that. Al Gore's wife
Yeah.
was trying to ban rap music.
And Christians never wanted to ban South Park. That's
true.
one thing where they talked about, they said, no, we just don't want it on at night. We want it on late at night. We don't want our kids watching it. And I remember
Right.
Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Was it Matt Stone? Yeah, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. I saw Matt speak at UT. And a guy stood up and he was like asking this question, like, how do you fight back against these Christians? And he actually said, well, you know what? He said, we've actually never had an issue. Really? He said, they don't want it on in prime time. We don't want it on in prime time. We've seen them as an ally. And he said, contrast that to the Comedy Central reaction where they decided to cut an episode because we put Muhammad in it. And that tells you who's really in power.
Right.
Something to that effect. But the kid who was at UT, in Austin, my brother went to UT, so he would get access to all of these speeches or presentations. The kid was dumbfounded. He thought, well, Matt Stone's not one of me. And Matt Stone's not a conservative. He's not a Republican. He's not a Trump supporter.
Right.
But he just recognizes the intolerance today of the progressive left.
Well, there's definitely an issue when you have that woman, the Melissa Glick lady, who was yelling at that kid who was just a photographer. He was a journalist.
Yeah.
And I think he was hired to be there in a public space.
He was Asian.
Yeah, he's taking pictures, and she said, "Can we get some muscle here? Because we've created a safe space. You can't take photos of our protest and our sit-in in our safe space about racism. So we're gonna get this Asian guy because he doesn't understand Black America. Like, what the fuck?
How long do you think she was waiting to say, I just want to use the term muscle?
Oh man, she was just.
I want to say get some muscle in here.
She was intolerant in that she was very adamant about getting her way, and she did not consider whether or not they were in a public place, and this kid had the right to take those photographs. And again, like you said, this is an Asian kid. I mean, this is not like some fucking white jock with a crew cut like from Back to the Future, where you can say, "Oh, it's fucking Biff, fuck him." It wasn't that.
Right.
It was really hard to label him as an oppressor.
Right.
But she still found a way.
And it was such an Asian response too, where he was just like, "I just want to do my job. I don't want to be the center of this story."
He's like got his camera up above his head,
Yeah, that's
taking
it. He was
pictures.
like, I don't want to start a march.
Yeah, and she was like, "You have to get out of here." He's like, "No, I don't. No, this is my job. I'm paid to be here. I have to be. You have a public thing going on here. There's a protest.
I have to urinate so badly.
Go do it, dude. Go do it."
You're gonna keep doing the show?
No, we'll wrap up.
Okay,
We'll wrap up.
let's wrap up.
All right, let's wrap up. All right, so S. Crowder on Twitter. I'm glad we got through this, dude.
No, seriously, I really appreciate
do
you're a
like
generous dude, and
I
you've
really
been very
do
nice.
like you.
No, I like you a lot
If
too.
I fucked with you a little bit, I treated you like a stand-up comedian. I figured you'd fuck with me back, and you got a little, but we're fine. We got through it.
No, that was me.
I'm glad we got
messing
through
with
it.
you back.
We got through it.
Yeah,
we got through it.
Listen, seriously, and for those listening, honestly, I won't. I don't, because I don't want you to get in trouble if I say behind the scenes, Joe has done some things. He says some things that have been very nice. So he's a nice. Anyway, I don't know if that hurts your street cred. Like, no,
I don't have
I'm
any
a
street
badass.
cred. I have zero street cred.
Well,
I have cats.
You have cats?
I have no street cred, dude. I take yoga. He's a good dude too, folks. We're all fine. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna find a way. All these ideas to come together. This is part of it. So thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Steven Crowder.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, everybody. See ya, fuckers.
I'm not pissing. I have to piss.
Go ahead, Gank.